Hi, welcome back guys. This is your friend, the D and WhatIf, with another fanfiction. This is the first part of What If Deku Was a Dancer. All credits for this video go to their respective authors. So please support the real author. Check out the link in the description for more details. Please give this video a like and subscribe to the channel if you want more videos like this. Now let's get into the fanfic. Mommy, watch. Inko turned and watched as her son began dancing to the soft music playing. Once the music ended, he looked at her with so much hope. That was amazing, sweetie. Do you want to be a dancer? Izuku looked at her with a slight frown. But if I'm a dancer, I can't be a hero. He cried, looking at her a little disappointed. Inko chuckled and picked him up. And who told you that? Doesn't Present Mike have 2 jobs? Izuku looked down and thought before smiling. Does that mean I can be a hero and a dancer? Inko nodded her head as her son jumped down and started dancing again. Izuku came home the next day crying and covered in bruises. Inko ran over to him and picked him up before bringing him to the counter to work on the bruises. Honey, what happened? Inko asked as she began applying some bandages and cream for the scraps. The other boys said I couldn't dance because it's too girly, and that I can't be a hero. He spoke through sobs. This isn't the first time either. Inko spoke through gritted teeth. Honey, I think it's time we move, then we can look for a place to teach you to dance and train. You'll be my strong little boy. Izuku giggled as his mother blew a raspberry on him. Masaru and Mitsuki walked back to their house after picking their son Katsuki up from daycare when they noticed moving trucks at the house next to theirs. Oh, we should go greet the new neighbors, Mitsuki suggested as she began walking up to the trucks with her husband and son close behind. Careful now, Izuku. You need to watch where you're going. Both the parents looked in shock, already recognizing the voice. Inko, Masaru called, walking closer. The woman froze and turned to them with a box in hand. Mitsuki, Masaru, it's been so long, she greeted, setting the box down before running to hug them. Yeah, we know, Inko. Blame that on the brat, Mitsuki joked as she ruffled Katsuki's hair. Don't call me brat hag, Masaru sighed as Mitsuki started tickling Katsuki, who was trying to fight her off. Oh, and who is this? Inko asked, squatting to get to eye level with Katsuki. This little demon is Katsuki. He's almost 4 years old now and has his quirk, Mitsuki explained, still messing with her son. Nice to meet you, Katsuki. My name's Midoriya Inko, she greeted, offering her hand for him to take. Yep, she's your auntie Inko, Mitsuki declared as her son took Inko's hand. Mommy, who are they? They all turned in a small voice as a little boy approached them. The 2 adults looked in shock at Inko and the boy. Izuku, honey, these are the Bakugos. Mitsuki, Masaru, Katsuki, this is Izuku Midoriya. Izuku ran up with a smile and offered his hand to the adults. Hi, Mr. and Mrs. Bakugo. My name's Izuku. The 2 smiled down and shook his hand each. Well, it's nice to meet you, Izuku. This is Katsuki. Izuku looked at the boy, who seemed a little nervous but angry. Nice to meet you, Katsuki. Wanna be friends? Katsuki stared at him for a minute before huffing. Whatever, just don't expect me to care even if you have a strong quirk. I don't have a quirk. Katsuki looked to Izuku, who was still smiling. Well, at least not yet. But if I get one, I hope it makes it so I can dance better. Katsuki looked surprised but smiled. Hey mom, can me and Izuku go play? Mitsuki looked in shock but nodded her head. Watching the 2 run into the backyard of Katsuki's place, Mitsuki spoke. I don't think he's made a friend so fast. Usually the kids at daycare only want to be friends because he has a strong quirk, she explained. Inko only smiled. Well, that's never mattered to Izuku. Quirks interest him a lot and he has a smart mind for analyzing them, but he thinks all quirks are strong if used correctly. Plus, he's just happy to have a friend. Most the boys at his old school bullied him for wanting to dance and be a hero. That explains why you moved then, Masaru reasoned, receiving a nod from Inko. Well, I wouldn't worry too much. The new school is really nice and accepting, and I'm sure Katsuki will protect little Izuku if needed. Good morning, everyone, the teacher greeted, getting a good morning back. Today we have a new student. Why don't you come in and introduce yourself? Izuku slowly stepped into the room, a little scared but calmed down seeing Katsuki. Hello, my name's Midoriya Izuku. Tell us a little about yourself, Midoriya. Well, I want to be a hero and help people like All Might. And I want to be a dancer. The teacher smiled down at him. That's very nice, Midoriya. Now, do you know anyone here? Izuku nodded and pointed at Katsuki. Okay, go sit next to him then and we'll begin. Izuku ran over and sat next to the boy, who smirked. Hey Bakugo, why don't you come play with us? One of the boys yelled. As if I'm playing with Izuku. Katsuki walked over with Izuku to sit under a tree where flowers grew. You don't have to hang out with me if you want to play with your friends, Izuku said with a sad smile. Are you kidding me? They aren't my friends. They only want to be friends because of my quirk, Katsuki grumbled as he sat next to Izuku, who was picking flowers. Oh, well, that's not very nice. My mom says that no matter if someone has a quirk or not, you should treat them the same. Katsuki nodded his head, watching Izuku. What are you doing? Katsuki asked, looking at the flowers. My uncle Hisashi taught me how to make flower crowns. I'm getting flowers to make one for you. Katsuki blushed a little. Well, then you can teach me so I can make you one. Izuku looked at him shocked but then smiled and started explaining everything to him. I wonder how Izuku's first day went. Inko thought out loud while she walked with Mitsuki. I'm sure it went fine, Inko, don't worry so much. Inko chuckled as they finally made it to the school. I'm sure you're right. Soon students started being let out to meet their parents. Mitsuki and Inko waited patiently for the two boys to come out when Inko began to laugh and Mitsuki stood in shock. Mommy, look. Me and Katsuki made flower crowns for each other. Inko smiled down at her son. It looks wonderful, honey. Katsuki did a good job too, it looks like. Mitsuki was still looking in shock as her son showed her the flower crown on his head. His crown had mostly red flowers with a few orange mixed in, while Izuku's had mostly yellows and a few blues mixed in. Aunt Mitsuki, you should close your mouth. Izuku teased, finally breaking her out of the trance. Haha, she said, messing with his hair. It looks very pretty, Katsuki. You did a good job on his too. Katsuki blushed but nodded his head as they made their way home. I'm sorry, but your son is quirkless, the doctor said, sitting lazily in his chair. Really? Inko asked. She looked to her son, who didn't seem to react, but she noticed something in his eyes. She couldn't tell what it was. Yep, with a weak quirk like yours and your husband having a weak quirk as well, it was likely. He pulled up an X-ray and it shown that people with quirks don't have an extra joint in their pinky toe. Your son does have on though. I see. Izuku still hadn't said anything as he continued to look at the doctor. I would suggest giving up on being a hero, kid. He turned back to Inko, but what I did find is bad. You see, your son has a congenital insensitivity to pain, meaning he can't feel pain. But he's come home crying from bruises and marks. That was probably just shock. I would suggest being careful with him. If he can't feel pain, he most likely doesn't know his limits and it could end badly. Inko nodded her head and took her son, leaving. As they sat in the car, Inko looked to her son every now and again as he continued to look out the window. Hey mama. She looked to Izuku, letting him know she was listening. I still want to be a hero. Him saying that didn't surprise her. Anytime he put his mind to something, he did it. It just means I have to work harder than the others. I can be like Eraserhead and Midnight. They fight quirkless all the time. You're right, honey. You know what that means. He looked to her with a confusion. It means we better find some place for you to train and dance, so you can be my big strong hero. So you're quirkless? Katsuki asked as they sat under the tree again. Yeah, but the doctor said I can't feel pain. Katsuki looked at him, then up to the sky again. Huh. Izuku looked at him, then up to the sky. My mom found a place for me to learn to fight and dance. That way I can still be a hero. Really? Can I join? Katsuki asked, a little excited. He had been wanting to train for a while now, and maybe he could finally understand why Izuku loved to dance so much. We can ask our moms. Katsuki smiled as the two began playing heroes. Inko waited for the phone to be picked up as she stood in the kitchen. Hey sis, what's up? Hisashi asked on the other line. Hi Hisashi, I have a favor to ask of you. Sure, what is it? Is someone messing with my nephew again? He asked, letting a little venom slip through. No, not yet anyway. We recently went to the doctor and they said Izuku was quirkless and that he couldn't feel pain. Inko explained, looking at the floor sadly. Please tell me he didn't give up on his dream of being a hero. No, of course not. I was actually wondering if you would help him become one. He knows he's gonna have to work harder than others, but he's ready to do it. I've already found a place called the Dance Dojo. They teach people different ways to fight and dance. Katsuki said he wanted to join so he would have a friend, but I know that you could teach him better. There was a beat of silence. Okay, sounds like a plan. I can go back to Japan and teach the kid. I have missed the rascal after all. Thank you so much, Hisashi. This will mean so much to him. No problem. Anything for my big sis and nephew. I gotta go though. I think I have something in mind to help with the pain part though. They said their goodbyes and hung up, allowing Inko to turn and see Izuku look at her with a smile. Uncle Sashi is coming back, he asked excitedly. Inko smiled and nodded. He squealed and went to tell Katsuki, who had now been dubbed Kaken, about his uncle coming. Okay Izuku, slip this on wrist and put this in your ear. Izuku did as his uncle said. He looked in the mirror at the electric blue bracelet that seemed to almost light up. What is it? Hisashi smiled as he clicked a button on the earpiece. This is something that can tell you if you're hurt. Since you don't feel pain, this will help. Izuku smiled at it until he heard a voice making him jump. Hello Midoriya Izuku, I am your health assistant. Izuku looked around confused before Hisashi pointed out his ear. Hello. What can you do? He asked, a little curious. I can scan your body and tell you if anything is wrong, as well as give it a rating from 1-10 on how dangerous it is to you and your health. Oh well, do you have a name? No, I do not, but you may give me one if you please. Izuku nodded and began thinking of names. How does Karen sound? He asked, getting a robot hum of agreement. And why Karen? Hisashi asked, smiling down at the boy. In one of the comics from before Quirks, there was a teen hero who had an AI called Karen. Hello and welcome to the dance dojo. How can I help you guys? The receptionist asked as Mitsuki and Inko walked in with their boys. Hello, my name's Midoriya Inko. I have an appointment to meet with one of the teachers about our boys going here. Oh right, she began typing on the keyboard. She'll be with you in a minute. And sure enough, not too long after, a woman with long silver hair walked out with a smile on her face. Nice to finally meet you, Ms. Midoriya and Mrs. Bakugos. The name's Hakucho, but you guys can call me Haku. The woman greeted with a smile. Nice to meet you to Haku. Mitsuki greeted, shaking the woman's hand. Right, now let's get down to business. I hear one Midoriya Izuku wants to enroll in both the dojo and dance area along with a Bakugo Katsuki, she said, looking at the boys. Izuku was almost jumping in excitement while Katsuki just looked at his friend happily. Yeah, I want to dance and I gotta train if I want to be a strong hero. The woman smiled at him before turning to Katsuki. I gotta be strong to be a hero. And I want to know why Izuku likes to dance so much. Well, luckily we can help with that. But lesson number 1, you gotta be a lot more than strong to be a hero. Do you know what else? She asked, looking at the boys. Smart, fast, agile, and prepared. Both shouted the last one together. Yep, that about sums it up. Now why don't we start showing y'all around? Haku began walking around the giant building, explaining everything. This all sounds like a lot, Inko pointed out, looking at all the equipment. True, but don't worry, it's not any more expensive than normal even if you continue to train here and start learning gymnastics, parkour, and the likes. That's another thing I was wondering about. Haku turned to Mitsuki. There's so much here to learn and teach, but you charge almost nothing. What's up with that? She asked, a little suspicious. Oh well, you may have noticed, but there aren't a lot of people here at the moment, and that's because we actually don't teach many people, but I love to teach. We actually usually rent out place for people to train, whether it's fighting or dancing, and we also have weekend nights where we have a dancing competition for fun. A lot of people come from all over and we usually get our money from that, Haku explained. The boys won't have to participate in that, will they? Inko asked. She didn't doubt her son would do it, but maybe when he was older. No, of course not, but they can come and watch whenever we have it. And when they're older and they want to participate, they can. Inko nodded thankfully as they started to finish the tour. So what did you think of it, Izuku? I loved it. It's so cool and we can. And he started going on a rant trying to put everything into words. How about you, Katsuki? Mitsuki asked after drawing her attention away from Izuku. Sounds awesome. I can train here and use my quirk to train too. Eyes up, boys, Haku yelled as she watched the two sparring. Izuku did another roundhouse kick as Katsuki lifted his arm to stop the kick from colliding with his head. He pushed the boy's leg away from him before jumping forward, about to tackle the boy, who jumped out of the way and grabbed the other's arm, swinging to the ground. Midoriya wins, Haku yelled as the two panted. Izuku walked over, offering his hand to Katsuki, who took it, helping him lift himself off of the mats. Told you I would win, Izuku teased with Katsuki punching his arm. Yeah, whatever, nerd, I'll win next time. I let you win, so now we're tied. Izuku huffed out a laugh, punching the other in the arm in return. Okay, listen up, boys. The two walked up to her and listened as she spoke. You two have been training here for almost 6 years now, and I'm proud of you both, even if you only come here every now and again, she said, pointing at Katsuki. Yeah, lay off me, Haku, Katsuki grumbled, even though he was smiling. Never. Now, Midoriya, I have an offer for you. Izuku perked up at her. I know things get tough for you and your mother now that your uncle went back to America. Izuku nodded a little sadly at that. He had missed his uncle, so I have decided I want you to work for me. What? Both boys yelled in shock. Yep. You would help train the others and do simple things. I of course would pay you for your work, but I also wouldn't charge you for the lessons since you would be an employee, Haku explained as if it was the simplest thing out there. Are you sure you want to hire me? I'm still in school and I'm only 9 and I plan on going to UA, and Haku cut him off, placing a hand on his shoulder and lowering herself to his level. Kid, you've got raw talent for dancing and a quick learner to almost anything I've taught you. A lot of the people here respect you and what you've done here, so yes, I think I know what I want and who I want to hire. No offense, Bakugos. The other smiled. Then taken, I'm not here enough for that. Izuku looked between his best friend and his teacher before speaking. I'll do it. Hi Izuku, how was practice today? Inko asked as her son walked into the kitchen. Mom, I have something to tell you. Inko slowly put everything down after hearing that voice and turned around. Haku offered me job in etiquette, he quickly said. Honey, slow down and tell me what's wrong. She spoke slowly to try and calm him down. Haku offered me a job. She said she wanted me to teach there and that she would pay me and we wouldn't have to pay for lessons, and I took it. He explained, a little slower but just as anxious. When his mother didn't say anything, he opened his eyes to see her smiling. That's great, honey. I'm glad Haku trusted you with that. Did she give you details about it? Izuku perked up and started explaining everything that Haku had told him about the job and the hours along with pay. Izuku, you have a burn on your arm that I suggest you get attention for. Izuku hummed as he heard Karen tell him of any other injuries he had after a long spar with Katsuki. Jesus Zuku, Uncle Sashi made that for you for a reason. Katsuki sighed as he walked over and started treating the burn. Izuku just hummed, adding more to his hero notes. Katsuki lifted his hand and smacked him upside the head. What was that for, Kaken? Izuku asked, finally looking up. Other than the fact you don't listen. Felt like it. The boy teased as he finished wrapping the burn. It had been a while since Izuku had started teaching at the dance dojo, and he was happy everyone was okay with someone either the same age or younger than them teaching them. They didn't mind it so much that they had actually started calling him Midoriya-sensei. Tama, relax a little with your left foot. If you're too stiff, then you might hurt yourself, Izuku said, looking at the black-haired boy with a little worry. Right, Midoriya-sensei, Tama said, relaxing his leg a little before performing the move again, this time more fluidly. Tama, stop calling me that, Izuku yelled with a blush, getting Tama to laugh. But you're our teacher, aren't you? Soon the others started to join in on calling him Midoriya-sensei or just sensei. Come on, Kyoka, this is a good opportunity. We know you want to be a hero, and with this place you can even be their DJ. Kyoka's mom said as they drove. I know, Mom, but no one's gonna be there that's my age. Most of the people there are older and are there for dance, Kyoka complained. It wasn't long before they made it to the dance dojo. The building was big and she could already see a lot of things like a running track, fabric hanging from the ceiling, a rock wall, and a few rooms where she saw some people dancing. Hi, you must be the Gyros. You can call me Haku, the woman greeted. Kyoka looked at her blankly as her mother and the woman talked. Well, since you're here already, I'll have one of my teachers come and show little Gyro around while we figure everything out. She pulled out a walkie-talkie and talked into it. Hey Midoriya, come to the front, we got a new student for you to show around. There was no reply as she put it away. Hello, my name's Midoriya Izuku, but you can call me Midoriya or any other name really. She looked at the boy, seeing another 10-year-old. Well then, Kyoka, have fun. Her mother and Haku left, leaving the two alone. She looked at the boy again, seeing he was wearing a hoodie, crop top, and leggings with a snapback on. Nice to meet you. What are you thinking of trying here? Midoriya asked, getting her attention. I'm here to learn how to fight. My quirk isn't really suited for fighting, but I really like music, so my mom suggested I try to be a DJ here. The boy beamed. Well, lucky for you, they teach quirkless fighting here as well as with weapons. And we can always use another DJ. Midoriya soon led her around the gym and showed her how some of the machines work. You know what you're doing. How long have you been here? Kyoka asked out of curiosity. Oh well, I've been a teacher here for about a year now. Kyoka's eyes widened at that, but I've been training here since I was about 4. Wow, that's crazy. How do some of the people here feel about a 10-year-old teaching here? In Kyoka's head, it would make sense if they didn't listen to him since he was so young. Before he could answer, someone who looked like they were 15 walked over. Sensei, who's this? The boy asked. Midoriya sighed heavily. I wish you would stop calling me that, but this is Gyro. She's here to learn to fight. This is Tama. The boy waved before going back to the group he was with. They call you Sensei? Kyoka asked, trying not to laugh. Yes, even though they shouldn't, because I'm 10. He raised his voice, making sure the others heard. It wasn't long before Kyoka's mother and Haku walked up to him with smiles. So what do you think? Kyoka's mother asked. I like it. Would you mind if I DJ here too, Haku? The woman smiled. You can DJ whenever you want. Glad to have you join Gyro. This'll be fun. Kyoka smiled at the boy. She knew they would be good friends. Hey Mom. Inko turned to her son with a smile. I was wondering if I could get my hair cut and a few piercings. Izuku asked nervously. Can I ask why? Well, when Gyro, Kaken, and me were practicing the other day, we saw this guy with some piercings and tattoos, and I thought he looked kinda cool. So then we started talking about things we might want when we're older, and it kinda went from there. Izuku explained quickly but slow enough for her to understand. I see. I don't see why not. You could intimidate villains and be an awesome hero with it. Inko knew what things to say to help her son with confidence. Really? Of course, honey. Let's get some ideas drawn out. They went through types of piercings he may want as well as placements and earrings to choose from. Once they were done, they decided he would get an undercut for his hair and normal lobe piercings, along with 3 on his right cartilage and 3 on his left upper lobe. Izuku came in the next week with all his piercings and showing off to Gyro and Kaken. Didn't think you'd actually do it, nerd. Looks cool though. Kaken inspected them further by tugging on them a little. Did it hurt to get them? Gyro asked. Izuku's eyes went wide and he face-palmed. I knew there was something I forgot to tell you. He moved his hand and smiled a little anxiously. The doctor said I have a rare thing that makes it so I don't feel pain. Gyro just nodded her head. That's useful for hero work since it would make you harder to go down, but bad for you. Yeah, that's what my Uncle Sashi said. So he made me this bracelet and earpiece that tells me when I'm injured and how bad it is. He pointed out the earpiece away from his new earrings. Nice. Gyro nodded her head along, also looking over the piercings. After Izuku's piercings healed, his mother got him some cool piercings that went around his ear. Right now his favorite was a golden dragon that had a small chain hanging on it. When he first started wearing it, his mother would call him the Dragon Slayer as a joke, saying that it was one he had defeated. That was at least until she checked in on him at work. She walked in seeing him showing some of the new dancers a move that would make it so you almost flew through the air to the beat. After that she called him a mother dragon. That soon caught on with the students that started calling him Dragon Sensei instead. "Hey Sensei," Gyro called as she ran over to Izuku, who was hanging upside down on one of the Parker sets. He blushed and almost fell. "Gyro, not you too. I thought we were friends." She continued to tease him as he trained her more. "You know, Sensei, you can call me Kyoka if you want," Gyro said as they took a break. Well, a break for her and letting him dance to any song that was on. "Sure, I'll call you Kyoka, but you gotta stop calling me Sensei then." He whined as he did a handstand before falling back into the dance. "Never." Izuku was dancing while Kyoka played the music, and Katsuki trained when Haku and Mitsuki ran in looking like they had seen a ghost. "Aunt Mitsuki, what's wrong?" Izuku asked, stopping and getting the other two's attention. "Izuku, Katsuki, Gyro, I am so sorry." Mitsuki spoke, looking close to tears. "Mom, what's happening? Where's Aunt and Co?" Katsuki asked. Hearing that, tears began to fall from her face. All three children stood in shock. Kyoka had quickly joined the boys' group a little over a year and a half ago and had grown close with the Midoriya family to the point she called Inko auntie as well, though she was closer with Izuku rather than Katsuki. Inko had cancer. Haku spoke when the other couldn't. She passed this morning. Apparently she knew she had it, seeing as she paid off the house for a long time so you could live comfortably. "Kids, I am so sorry." Izuku didn't know what to think. His mother was gone and had known she was going to die, but she instead took care of him and not going to the hospital. Both his friends were crying now and had ran to hug him, bringing him to the ground. "Izuku," he looked to Gyro, who spoke first. I don't know what to say, but I'm here for you." She hugged him tighter. "We got you, Izuku. We'll get through this." Katsuki spoke as he gripped both of them tighter. At that, Izuku smiled and hugged them closer with a few tears running down his face. "I know I can count on you too, but..." He paused, whipping his tears away. "This is Mom we're talking about. She may be gone, but she would never want us to be sad about it. She's done so much for us, so let's keep doing what she wanted us to do." The group looked at him in surprise, but all smiled and nodded. "You're right, she would want us to keep working hard." Katsuki cheered as the three began talking about what they would do next and how they would honor her. "That boy is strong," Mitsuki said, smiling at the group, "but I know him. He's being strong for her." She turned to Haku, who looked proud. "Haku, keep an eye on him for her and me." Haku nodded and walked up to the kids. "Eyes up, kids. We got a lot of work to do." When Izuku got home that night, the house was quiet. He smiled sadly as he walked into the kitchen. He looked at the counter and saw a small box on the counter with a note. He picked it up and read it, breaking down. "Dear Izuku, I'm sorry I wasn't there for you to hear what happened, but I know you're strong. Make sure to tell Kyoka and Katsuki that I love them. You deserve so much and I couldn't always give it to you. But there is one thing I know: you loved my little dragon. And to make sure you know I'm always with you, I made a new one. I hope you love it. And I love you, Izuku." He looked to the box and opened it. Inside was a green dragon with gold swirls around it. The eyes were two diamonds that Izuku recognized as her wedding ring, and the gold spelled out "I Midoriya." He smiled at it and went to the mirror to put it on. Slowly sinking to the floor with tears, he decided then and there that everything he did was to honor her and do what he wanted. It wasn't long before Izuku, Katsuki, and Kyoka went back to training, with Izuku doing it more than ever. "Sensei, shouldn't you take a break?" Kyoka asked, watching as Izuku climbed up the silks before unraveling and falling but being caught by the silks. "No, I'm fine. I'll take one soon though, don't worry," he said with a smile as he started performing more. Kyoka nodded her head, finishing her snack before going back to training. Soon Izuku took a break and pulled out a few snacks. Sometimes some of the students forgot and always asked him for some, since he always had some on him. Kyoka joined him again for another snack as they watched Katsuki go through an obstacle course that they had. So far, Izuku had the fastest time since he was used to all the swinging and dodging that you needed to do. "Damn it, nerd. How the hell do you finish that so fast?" Katsuki yelled as he panted and sat next to them. Izuku smirked and stood up. "Magic." He walked up to the starting area and took a few breaths before hitting the button to start time and took off. He almost danced around the objects as some came swinging at him. One aimed for his legs, causing him to jump up and flip over it before going back to running and dodging. Once he was done, he walked up to his friends. "I hate you," Katsuki said as he glared at the boy. "No, you don't, Kaken." "Okay, we're allowed one support item as long as it's in regulations. My bracelet doesn't count since it's medical, and if I..." Kyoka and Katsuki listened as the boy rambled on what he was going to use. Kyoka and Katsuki both didn't need a support item since their quirks worked well on their own, but Izuku didn't have a quirk. "Nerd, chill." Izuku stopped talking and looked to Katsuki. "Don't bring a support item." Before Izuku could refute, he continued, "Let me finish. If you don't bring a support item, it'll make it so they know you worked harder. Then when it starts, use the area and shit around you to win. Find something that you can use like the staff and go from there, okay? Izuku looked at him before nodding. You're right. If I bring something, it's like a piggyback and not letting me use what's around me. If I use something from the area, then it shows that I'm observant, and the two listened again before Kyoka turned to the other boy. You know, Katsuki, if all three of us get into one, it's gonna be hard for me not to call him sensei. The boy chuckled at her. Yeah, well, get used to it, cause we're all getting into one, whether the school likes it or not. What did you need me for, Netsu? Aizawa asked, walking into the principal's office. Just an interesting student that's shooting for your class, Netsu said, holding onto the file and reading over it again. What's so special about it? Netsu smiled and began reading off of it. Midoriya Izuku, quirkless, can't feel pain. That got Aizawa's eyes to widen. Mother and father both deceased. That didn't sit well with Aizawa at all. Appears to live alone with his uncle in America. So the kid doesn't have anyone with him? Aizawa asked. He wasn't sure, but he figured this person was going to be a problem child. Not necessarily. He also has connections to two other possible students. Netsu set down the file, meeting Aizawa's eyes, but that isn't all that interested me. He also has a job, it seems. Where? Well, he's worked there since he was 9. He works at a place called Dance Dojo. I'm sure you've heard of it before. I see. And the school is letting him continue to work there then? Netsu nodded his head. Of course. But since he wants to shoot for your class, I wanted to make sure you're aware of anything that might come up. Aizawa narrowed his eyes. And why would something come up, sir? Netsu chuckled. A possible hero student working and considered the second in command at that place with only one owner. I don't see anything coming up at all, Aizawa. Aizawa knew the principal was planning something, and he didn't like the sound of it already. Izuku packed his bag with an extra pair of cloths and his tracksuit for the exam when there was a knock at his door. He smiled and ran over to it, opening it and seeing his two friends. Let's go, nerd. Izuku nodded his head and the three walked. So, sensei, how do you think you'll do on the tests? Kyoka asked as they got closer to the gates. I have some confidence, but I just gotta hope for the best, right? The other two nodded their head. Kyoka, you need to stop calling Zuku sensei. Some fuckers are gonna think some weird shit is going on. I've tried. It just feels weird to call him Izuku or even Midoriya. Kyoka cried, to the amusement of the other two. Okay, well, just try not to when it's not just us three. I don't want people getting the weird ideas. Kyoka and Izuku both shivered. After all, it wasn't exactly a secret that the three were all friends and happened to not be the straightest out there. Soon they made it to the gates and walked in. They got separated into different testing rooms where they began the written portion. Izuku thought it was easy, seeing as they were all pretty average for his age. Or at least he thought. When he got to what he thought was the end, he saw an extra credit portion. It was a bunch of questions of hero and villain situations. Analysis. Izuku thought excitedly as he began filling it out quickly. Already know a lot of the quirks and their fighting styles. When he finished, he handed it to the teacher at the front. Holy shit, it's midnight. And then left the room. When he got out of the room, he saw Katsuki leaving his with a smirk. Kakin, how did you do? The blonde smirked further. Oh please, it was easy as hell. We should probably go to the last room and wait for Kyoka though. Izuku nodded as they waited for the girl. It wasn't long before a few people came out, with Gyro, who looked proud of herself. That felt almost easy. Thanks to you guys. She hugged them both, with Izuku hugging her back and Katsuki huffing. That's great, Kyoka. Let's go to the auditorium. When they made it there, it was pretty empty except a few others and present Mike at the front. Kyoka and Izuku immediately started geeking out at the hero, who only smiled and waved at them. Jesus, you're both shitty nerds, aren't you? Katsuki asked teasingly. Shut up, Kyoka yelled, still looking at present Mike. Izuku had been lost and thought about ways he could take down the robots when the boy had stood up to say something. And you there? Izuku looked up surprised. You've been mumbling this entire time? Stop that. It's distracting. Izuku put his hands over his mouth before Katsuki spoke up. What's distracting is you interrupting. Give the damn man a minute to finish explaining. Katsuki yelled angrily. Kakin, you didn't need to do that. Izuku whispered while present Mike finished explaining. Whatever, the guy was being an ass. Izuku smiled and thanked his friend silently by signing to him. It wasn't a secret that Katsuki's quirk affected his hearing, so when Izuku and Kyoka found out, all three of them learned sign together just in case. Plus it came in handy when they could shit-talk people, but Izuku tended not to join in. Now everyone head to your areas and get changed. The three friends stood up, going their separate ways with good luck to each other. Izuku quickly changed into his light blue tracksuit with a tank top under so he could have it unzipped and breathe easy. It wasn't like it was constricting or anything. It just made it looser for him to move in. Same reason he wears crop tops when he teaches, trains, or dances. He stood in the back, still thinking of ways he could get the most points, when he noticed a girl near the front trying to calm herself down. He had been analyzing the group when she noticed her panicked breaths. He started to move when a hand stopped him. He turned his head to see the boy from before, looking disappointed at him. Were you planning on distracting that girl? Before Izuku could speak, he continued, and isn't it dangerous for you to have all those piercings? That made the other boy mad. He always wore the piercings his mother got him in the dragon as a way to remember her. Actually, I was going to make sure she was okay. She looked like she was having a panic attack. The other boy looked a little surprised, and no, it's not, but thank you for worrying, he said sincerely. That also seemed to catch the boy off guard. And go. As soon as Izuku heard Present Mike speak, he ran forward and looked to the robots. He quickly grabbed a fallen pole and used it to shove through the robots' heads. About 29 points now. I need more if that's anything to go by. He hadn't been able to get all the points he wanted as he had been helping the other people. Some of them almost collapsed under a robot, but he would quickly get them up and a safe distance away and made sure they were okay before going off again. Jesus, this kid is getting a lot of rescue points, Aizawa thought as he watched the green-haired boy pull someone away just in time to miss the robot's laser. That kid's impressive. What's his quirk? He heard one of the other teachers ask as he threw the pole he picked up through another robot's head before it was able to get away from him. Midoriya Izuku, quirkless? Nezu spoke excitedly as he watched the boy work. Really, I would have thought a strength quirk. He's lifted well over his own weight helping the other examines. He recognized that as Snipe as he spoke. Aizawa smirked as he watched the boy work with the area around him. Aizawa could tell the boy had training, but the way he was moving, it looked almost like he was dancing with how easily he moved. He spared a glance to All Might, who had recently joined, and saw him looking worriedly at the screen. He was going to ask about that later. Let's see how they all deal with the zero-pointer. Nezu cheered as he clicked the button. There was a rumble throughout the area as Izuku looked up. He almost gasped at how big the robot was. That's the zero-pointer. Is UA trying to kill us? He heard people shout. He watched as people began running away with the boy from before, sparing him a glance before continuing running. He was about to join them when he heard someone scream. His eyes widened. He quickly turned around and ran towards the voice. When he made it, he saw the girl from before pinned under rubble with the zero-pointer coming fast. He saw another person running closer, this one with purple hair. Hey you, I need some help. The boy nodded and ran closer. I'm going to lift this up. You pull her out. The boy nodded again as Izuku began lifting up the rubble enough for her to get out with the other boy's help. They got her out with the other boy holding her. He turned to the girl with determination. The robot's coming too fast. I need you to use your quirk on me so I can get up there. The girl nodded and tapped him. He lowered himself, holding onto the pole from before, and jumped up with enough force to get him to eye level. He reeled his arm back and threw the pole with enough force for it to go through the eye. It stopped its motion as Izuku felt the quirk let go. He angled his body enough for it to roll onto a taller building. He took a breather enough to see the robot start to fall in his direction. He cursed before running off the building and grabbing onto a metal pole running down another building. He slid down it and ran to the other two, and they all ran closer to the gates. Polish it. The purple-haired boy spoke through pants as he set the girl down onto the ground. Izuku took a few deep gasps of breath in and nodded his head, agreeing with the boy. I know, he finally said with a smile. Present Mike called time and let the examines know that Recovery Girl was coming around to heal any injuries. Izuku, it would seem you have a strained shoulder muscle and your hands have been injured to a level 3. Izuku looked down and saw his hands bleeding enough to stain his cloth slightly. Oh, the other boy looked at his hands in surprise and quirked an eyebrow. Should probably get them looked at. You think? The other asked sarcastically. Soon the old woman made it to them, healing the girl before turning to the boys. Do either of you have any horrible injuries? Izuku shook his head no, and the other boy looked unimpressed. His hands are bleeding. Recovery Girl grabbed his hands and looked at them, seeing the cuts. Those must hurt, dearie. Let me fix those. She kissed the boy's forehead, watching his hands heal quickly. Not really, he mumbled when she said that they hurt. The boy looked at him confused before letting it go. A girl having fallen asleep due to Recovery Girl's quirk and quirk overusage. Can you help me get her back to the school, young man? Recovery Girl asked Izuku, who nodded his head and picked the girl up with little effort. Midoriya was impressive. Aizawa spoke as they watched him carry the girl with care. Did Shouda just compliment someone? Yamada teased. He has potential, I want him. Aizawa stated, simply looking at Nezu. Not to worry, Aizawa. With the villain and rescue points, he's already in your class. Aizawa looked to All Might again, who looked like he wanted to say something. Good. Izuku made it back to the locker rooms and only saw Katsuki, who was waiting for him inside. What took you so damn long, nerd? The boy asked, looking over the other and seeing the dried blood on his cloths. A girl was knocked out and they needed someone to carry her back to the school. Nothing bad, don't worry, Kaka. What's with the blood then? Izuku looked down and laughed sheepishly. My hands got a little roughed up. Katsuki took a step forward until Izuku showed him his healed hands. Not to worry, Kaka. They're all healed up. The boy nodded in satisfaction as Izuku began to change his cloths. Soon both were in more comfortable cloths. Katsuki was joining Izuku at his work but not training since they had already fought today. Izuku was wearing his usual hooded crop top and leggings along with combat boots while Katsuki just wore a plain t-shirt and jeans. Do you ever take an actual break, Zuku? Katsuki asked, a little worried. Not that anyone else could tell by his rough attitude. Of course I do. Izuku tried to defend, but both knew he was either working or training, and if neither of those he was studying and analyzing. Sure you do. Katsuki rolled his eyes at his friend Kyoka went home to sleep. But when we get our acceptance letters you're not working that day and we're going out to eat, got it, nerd? Izuku sighed almost lovingly at his friend knowing he wouldn't get to escape it. Sure thing, Kaken. We can. I mean it. You are going to relax your damn ass that day, got it, fucker? Izuku laughed and nodded his head. Dragon Sensei. Izuku turned to see some of the students his age walking up to him. We heard you applied to UA. Do you know if you've gotten in? Before Izuku could say anything, one of the other students spoke up. Of course he did. Izuku smiled at them and chuckled as two began to play fight over it. Actually, we haven't gotten the letters yet, but thank you for the faith. One of the girls spoke up a little sadly. When you do get in, are you still going to come teach? He turned to her in surprise. She had been here a little over a month now. Well, of course I am, he said, making sure all the others heard I wouldn't abandon this place. And if I can't make it in one day, I'll make it up to you by doing whatever you want for an hour, okay? The other girls and a few guys smiled at him. Anything you say. He glared playfully at one of the older boys. So you're saying if you missed a day you would perform in heels if we asked? The others soon got smirks. If that's what you guys would want, then yes. Some of the other cheered, already getting ideas for it. If you do that, can you teach us to dance in heels? One of the girls asked with another few behind her. You guys want to dance in heels? Izuku asked, a little surprised at them. Yeah, one of the more outgoing girls cheered. It makes us look badass and sexy. One of the others yelled. Fine, that's next lesson. He heard some of the boys cheer. Hey, don't think you don't have to do this. It'll be a fun learning experience. Some of the boys paled while others seemed excited. Sensei is a dirty dancer. I'm the bass. Have you guys gotten your letters? Dirty dancer, no. Have you? I'm the bass, yes. And I got into the hero class 1A. Bakugos, I got mine, fuckers. Extras better be ready to get their ass beat. Dirty dancer, weird, maybe mine's late or something. I'm the bass. Well, you should be in one with us. They showed all the scores and you were tied with it, Bakugos, I think. Dirty dancer, holy shit, really? I can die happy. Bakugos, I ain't letting y'all fuckers die yet, bitch. Dirty dancer, love you to Kaken. Izuku looked up from his phone as there was a knock on his door. He was a little confused because neither Katsuki or Kyoka knocked since they had keys. Dirty dancer, I'll be right back. Someone knocked on my door. Bakugos, I going over now and seeing who it is. Dirty dancer, Kaken, don't, it's probably no one. I'm the bass. You still heading over there, aren't you? Bakugos, hell yeah, I don't know who the fuck it is. Izuku put his phone in his waistband, since he still had his sort of work clothes on. He didn't have a peephole, so he just opened the door. How can I? He stopped as he saw Eraserhead and Principal Nezu standing there. Eraserhead, Principal Nezu, what are you doing here? He asked as he inwardly fanboyed. You applied to UA hero course, right? Aizawa asked as if it was normal for him to be here. Izuku let them in before speaking. Yes, he was cut off by Katsuki yelling. Who the fuck? The two looked at the blonde a little surprised while Izuku just looked at him tiredly. Kaken, I told you it was fine. Nezu smiled in amusement as the blonde seemed to recognize them. I don't give a fuck. You said some random person was at your door, asshat. Izuku sighed. I did, but I also said it was probably nothing. Katsuki glared at the two, then back at Izuku. This doesn't seem like fucking nothing. Aizawa hid his smirk as he continued to watch the two bicker like children. Actually, Mr. Midoriya, it's quite alright if Mr. Bakugos sits in. Both boys looked at the principal as Izuku was trying to shove the other out the door. Are you sure, sir? Katsuki huffed and smirked as he walked in. Of course he is, I'm a fucking angel. Izuku laughed, getting a hit from the other boy as they all went to the living room. Do any of you want something to drink? Izuku offered as he began going to the kitchen. Coffee, Aizawa said tiredly. Tea is fine for me, Nezu said, waving his hand. Any particular kind for you too? Izuku asked, already in the kitchen. Strong. Katsuki quirked an eyebrow at that. He knew how strong Izuku's coffee could be and it tasted like shit to him. Green if you have it. Izuku hummed in acknowledgement. Kaken, Izuku called. The two watched as Katsuki lifted his hand where a water bottle was thrown and he caught it. You two seem very close, Nezu commented as he watched the scene in front of him. We better know the fucker since we were 3. Katsuki took a couple swigs of the water bottle before he looked at the two in front of him. But you're not here to talk about our friendship bullshit, so why the hell are you here? You would be correct. Katsuki eyed the principal almost in warning. We actually came to talk about his situation. If it's him being quirkless, then leave. The two were a little surprised at that. He earned his points fair and square and did better than those extras with quirks, so if you're gonna give him shit for it, then leave. Before either could reply, Izuku walked back in with 3 cups. Kaken, what have we talked about being mean to figures of authority? But he looked at Izuku, who was giving him the disappointed mom look. Ugh. Not to be an ass. Izuku smiled and nodded his head, sitting down and grabbing his own cup of coffee. Thank you, Kaken. He turned to the 2 adults. Now what do I owe the pleasure of this visit to? The 2 adults just stared for a minute. The 2 boys had conflicting personalities, but they got along really well, it seemed. Well, we wanted to talk about you applying to UAS hero course. They saw Katsuki lean up again, only to be stopped by Izuku, who didn't break eye contact with them, putting a hand on the other's chest, making him lean back again. We noticed something that seemed a little different than the others. They saw Katsuki glare harder at them with so much hate that if looks could kill, they'd probably be dead. And what would that be? Aizawa watched the teen, who kept looking at Nezu. There was something in his eyes that almost sent a shiver down his spine, like he knew something they didn't. Well, it would be the fact that you can't feel pain. Katsuki's eyes widened slightly as Izuku nodded his head. Yeah, it is a little strange, but it's exactly like it says, I can't feel pain. Aizawa nodded his head. Is there a way around that then? Aizawa asked. If he was going to be a hero student, he needed to know when to stop. Yes, actually, my uncle a while ago made this bracelet and earpiece. He lifted his arm with the bracelet and pulled out the earpiece to show them. It pretty much scans my body for injuries and tells me the level and if I need immediate attention for it. That's very handy then. Nezu spoke. Izuku nodded his head, moving his hand away from Katsuki. But that's not all, is there? Go ahead and ask your other question. That surprised Aizawa a little, but Nezu just smiled wider. We also noticed it said your parents had passed and your legal guardian was your uncle. Though he's in America, we were curious about it since you're only 15 and you've lived alone since you were no younger than 11. Aizawa saw the boy flinch slightly but didn't change his expression. Well, my father died when I was too young to remember. He was a cop and died on duty, while my mother died of cancer when I was 11. I live here still because she paid off the building for a few years so I could live comfortable and still do what I wanted. She was very supportive of my dream to be a hero. I see. She sounds like she was a nice woman. Izuku nodded his head, but Aizawa could see the sadness and unshed tears in his eyes. Sensei. They all looked to a panting Kyoka in the door. You weren't answering your phone and neither was Katsuki and I. She stopped seeing the 2 adults and Katsuki sitting on the couches and chairs. Oh. Well, hello, Ms. Gyro. Glad you could join us, Nezu said, ushering her over to them. Why did you just call him Sensei? Aizawa asked, a little confused. Oh well, he teaches at the dojo I go to and he teaches a lot of people, so we usually call him Sensei. Kyoka explained a little awkwardly as she sat down on the other side of Izuku. Oh, so you teach? Nezu said excitedly. Izuku nodded his head with a faint blush. But you're both the same age, so why Sensei? Aizawa was still confused by it all. The students there insist on call me Midoriya Sensei, Sensei, or Dragon Sensei, even though most of them are older than me or my age, though some of them are younger. Izuku explained, glaring slightly at Kyoka, who just smirked at him. Why Dragon, if I may ask? Nezu was curious. This boy was interesting. A little after I got my ears pierced, my mom got me something similar to this. He showed them the green dragon wrapped around his ear and started calling me a mother dragon when she saw me teaching people, and it sorta just caught on after that. Sounds like a fun time. Nezu said, full of excitement. Well, we've finished what we wanted to talk about, so Nezu stood up and offered the boy his paw. Congratulations on being the first quirkless student in the UA Heroics class, Midori. Izuku shook his paw with a smile. Thank you for the opportunity, sir. The 2 adults finished their drinks and began leaving until Nezu turned around. And Midoriya, if at any point something comes up at your work and you cannot make it to school, tell me and I will make sure you don't fall behind, Nezu said, to the surprise of the group. Of course, Principal Nezu. The principal nodded his head and left with Aizawa. As soon as the door was closed, Izuku cheered. Yes, I made it in. His 2 friends cheered with him. You know what that means, nerd. You aren't going to work and we are celebrating. So let's go fuck heads. Nezu, why are you helping him? Aizawa asked as they stepped into the car. The boy has a bright mind. He's amazing at analysis and he, as you would say, has potential that can't be wasted. Aizawa looked at him from the corner of his eye. There's something else you aren't telling me, isn't there? The mammal only chuckled as they drove off. Izuku walked into the studio that day with a little pep in his step. He caught the eyes of some of his students who were smiling. What's got you all happy, Sensei? One of the girls asked him. He turned to them with a smile. I was told I got into UA yesterday. Katsuki and Kyoka took me out to celebrate all of us getting into the same class together. That's great, Dragon Sensei. One of the boys said, walking closer. But you missed yesterday due to UA, right? Izuku nodded his head slowly, a little confused. So now you gotta keep your promise. Izuku's eyes widened. Dang it. Okay, hand me the heels then. He held his hand out, but the group only smirked. Oh no, Dragon Sensei. We'll cash this in at a later date. Izuku didn't like the sound of that at all, but he smiled anyway. Fine. But everyone in front of the mirror were going to see how well everyone did on the last dance, then groups to perform. Who gets to do it with you today, Midoriya-sensei? One of the more quiet guys asked as they all got into formation. Let's see. He looked around the group when his eyes landed on a girl with white hair. Her name being Sakura. I think it's Sakura's turn. The girl smiled and nodded her head. Izuku walked over and hit play on the music, watching as everyone danced with him, calling out someone and something they needed to fix. Izuku woke up that morning anxious. It was the first day at UA and he didn't know how it would go. He also had to think of a new routine for the class to learn that day since they had finished the other one already. He plugged in his headphones, listening to the song that they had chosen. It was another American one since his class liked that music so much, so he had to remember the beat and lyrics to get it right. He sang it as he got ready to be young and in love in New York City. He put on his uniform and brushed his teeth to not know who I am but still know that I'm good long as you're here with me. He opened the mirror cabinet and pulled out his earrings and putting them in to be drunk and in love in New York City. He picked up his backpack and pulled out his notebook to write the moves on. Midnight into morning coffee. He walked over to the kitchen getting some coffee for him to stay awake, burning through the hours talking. He pulled out his lunch from the fridge and put it into his bag. Damn, I like me better when I'm with you. I like me better when I'm with you. He walked out the door being greeted with both of his friends looking normal. He mumbled the lyrics quietly as he wrote down his ideas he already had. Good morning to you, Izuku, Katsuki said, rolling his eyes seeing his friend already starting on his job even though he wouldn't have it till later. Izuku paused the music and smiled awkwardly at him. Sorry, Kaken. I have to have this done before work and I want to make sure it's perfect for them. Katsuki nodded his head in understanding. He may not like it, but he was happy to see his friend so into something other than being a hero that gave him joy. It's okay, sensei, we get it, but work on it at lunch and our free period. You need to wake up first. Kyoka took his notebook and looked at the notes and small drawings of his moves he had planned. I know, Kyo, I will. He turned the music off all the way as they walked to UA. Thank fuck to, you look like hell, Katsuki pointed out. It was kinda true, he looked tired but not absolutely terrible. Thanks, Kaken. You look lovely. Katsuki smirked and nudged his friend with a huff. And Kyo, you really gotta stop calling me sensei. I don't really want people to know. Why not? You're a good teacher and an amazing fighter. You should be proud. Kyoka praised, making the boy blush a little. Thanks, Kyo, but at my old schools either everyone made fun of me for it or Kaken was the only one who didn't think it was stupid. Kyoka smiled sadly while Katsuki glared ahead. Okay, I'll try, but I probably won't call you anything then and just walk up to talk to you. It's still weird to call my teacher of 4 years by their first or last name. Both the boys laughed at that as they finally made it to the front of the school. They finally found their classroom and only saw 2 other people in the room. They didn't mind them as they found their seats and talked a little waiting for their teacher and other students. Katsuki had kicked his feet up onto the desk as they talked, mostly about what they thought they would learn in other classes and who their homeroom teacher would be. The door opened, revealing the boy from the theater that had called out Izuku. He immediately looked to Katsuki and frowned. Get your feet off the desk. It's disrespectful, he almost yelled as more people came into the classroom. Huh, what are you, some elitist ass? The two then dissolved into a shouting match as other students either watched or talked in groups. Izuku and Kyoka just watched as the two fought, but Kyoka and Izuku didn't miss the weird looks Izuku was getting. Izuku didn't mind though, as he was used to it when he first got his piercing. It's you. He looked over to the door, seeing a girl with a brown bob pointing to a boy with purple hair. Oh, the girl that got hurt and the guy that helped. I wanted to thank you for saving me. Kyoka looked to Izuku with confusion. She had heard him tell the story and it was more of Izuku that saved her. Actually, I'm not. The boy got cut off by the blue-haired boy, finally leaving Katsuki alone. I see. You saw through the exam and helped a fellow examine when the rest of us ran. Ida Tenya at your service. Oh yeah, you're Raka Achako, nice to meet you. The other boy looked a little panicked. Katsuki then looked to Izuku, hearing their conversation. Both knew it was Izuku that had actually saved her. No, he got interrupted again, but this time by a yellow blob on the floor. If you're here to make friends, then leave. The 3 by the door went to their seats, with the purple-haired boy sitting behind Izuku, as the blob went to the front and stepped out, revealing their teacher. Kyoka tried not to laugh as the man stepped out, realizing it was Eraserhead since she remembered him from visiting Izuku to tell him he made it in. It took you all 8 seconds to quiet down. You're wasting time. My name's Aizawa Shouda. I'm your homeroom teacher. Go put these on and meet me outside. He showed them the cases, then left. Everyone hurried to grab the cases except Izuku, who grabbed Kyoka's and Katsuki's cases along with his own. The 3 walked out while the group pushed each other. How come you didn't say anything about saving that girl, sensei? Kyoka asked, since they were the only ones in the hall. I didn't see a need to. If the guy wants to take credit for it, he can. It wouldn't bother me. I'm just glad I made it to her in time. Kyoka nodded, understanding somewhat, but Katsuki scoffed. Oh please, you saved the extra. You should get the credit, not the grape. The other two laughed at the nickname until they made it to the changing rooms. To Aizawa's surprise, it only took Problem Child 1, 2, and 3 1 minute to change and make it outside. Since no one was coming out, he walked up to them. "How did you three change so fast?" he asked out of curiosity. "Me and Kaken's trainer always made us go fast, otherwise each minute we took we had to run a mile. I do something similar, except instead of running a mile I make them spar me. If they last the amount of time it took them, then they win and I have to go easy on them. But if I win, then they have to work harder." Kyoka and Katsuki nodded, already knowing it was true. "Doesn't sound like a bad idea, Problem Child," Aizawa said before walking away, seeing the others come out. "Did he just call me Problem Child?" Kyoka laughed while Katsuki huffed and rolled his eyes. "Aizawa-sensei." Aizawa looked to Uraraka, who had her hand raised. "What are we doing out here?" "Yeah, what about the opening ceremony?" Kaminari asked. "You're heroes in training. There's no time to waste on that stuff. We're going to do a physical test instead where you can use your quirks." "Wow, really? Sounds fun." "Yeah." At hearing the word fun, Aizawa smiled one of his creepy smiles. "Sounds fun. Well then, whoever gets last will be expelled." Many of the students gasped, but he didn't see the three react at all. But he did see some of the others with obvious weak quirks look scared. "Bakugos." The boy met his eyes as he threw the ball at him, having the blonde catch it no problem. "What was your throw score in middle school?" The boy walked closer and into the circle that was drawn. "About 67 meters. Try it with your quirk." Katsuki smirked and drew his arm back before throwing it with an explosion and yelling "die." Aizawa smirked and showed the class the screen. "This is the heroics class. Go beyond plus ultra." Izuku wasn't too worried about the tests. He knew he wouldn't get last, but he still tried his best doing them and did as Aizawa said, go beyond plus ultra. So when the first test was a 50-meter dash, he was a little excited. He loved to run and go as fast as possible. He always went for runs when he had free time to clear his head or come up with new ideas. When it was his turn, he was running with Katsuki, who had smirked at him before the start. When it went off, Katsuki used his quirk to make himself fly while Izuku just ran. He ended up about a second behind his friend, earning a laugh from the other. The rest of the tests seemed almost easy as he went through them. With the standing long jump, he just acted like he was doing a performance and did a couple of flips to get him further and landing 6th in that test. For the grip, he was stronger than the average person and got a score similar to a small strength quirk. Push-ups was easy and he ended up getting first for that since he had endurance like a madman. For the endurance running, he had gotten third after the girl that made a scooter and Ida, who had a speed quirk. And he got tied for flexibility with the girl that had a frog quirk. The only one he didn't think he was going to do good on was the ball throw. Sure, he could throw well, but most of the others' quirks let them give it a boost. He sighed and gripped the ball, pulling his arm back before throwing it as far as he could. Aizawa smiled and showed him the score of 107.5 meters. He smiled back before going back to his group. "Who do you think got last?" Kyoka signed to the two boys. Izuku thought about it for a minute before answering. "From the scores we've seen, it's most likely the invisible girl or the boy with purple hair." Katsuki nodded in agreement before signing back. "Yeah, the invisible girl didn't seem to train her body much. Along with the grape dude, they both probably rely too much on quirks and didn't do any extra training." "Well, they should have. If they don't, they're as good as quirkless." Izuku signed. Both of his friends stared at him for a minute before Katsuki signed. "Izuku, you're quirkless." "I know what I said." Katsuki huffed in amusement as Kyoka held in her laughter. Aizawa read what they signed to each other and noticed how Izuku seemed to know he was reading it. "Okay, there's one more. Follow me." The class followed him as he led them to a small building. When they stepped inside, they all saw an obstacle course. "This is your final chance to change the rankings of the test. Some sighed in relief, but you can't use your quirk in this." Aizawa noticed how the three problem children seemed to perk up at the course and looked filled with determination. "Once you get to the end, hit that buzzer and it'll tell me your time, so line up." They all stood in a group with the three problem children at the back. When the timer went off for them to start, he saw almost everyone run forward and trying to shove each other to get to first place, except of course the three amigos. He watched as Izuku and Katsuki both cupped their hands and had Kyoka stand on them before she pushed off with them, giving her a boost and getting over the crowd. Then Izuku did the same for Katsuki, also getting him over the crowd. The two waited patiently as Izuku disappeared into the group before emerging next to his friends. Aizawa was surprised to say the least. They had noticed that he never said you needed to go through the entire course to win and that you could work with people. That was something even some third years had trouble with. The three continued through the course, helping each other if one of them had an issue. The three came out at the same time, but Izuku hit the buzzer first, then Kyoka, and last Katsuki. The class had only made it halfway through while the three simply continued signing to each other. Why are they all pushing and shoving? The point of being a hero is to help others, so why aren't they helping each other? Aizawa had to admit Izuku had a good point about that. The teacher walked up to the group and signed back to them, making the other two a little shocked. You bring up a good point. They didn't listen and only focused on themselves. Izuku nodded. It had been a while since he had talked to another teacher that thought in a similar way to him. Soon the class finally finished and got to the other side, seeing Katsuki and Kyoka talk while Izuku was writing in a notebook that he always had on him. How did they finish so fast? One of the boys yelled, pointing at the group. They worked together to get through it and had each other's backs. Aizawa explained, looking at the tablet in his hand. But that's cheating. Someone else shouted. Katsuki almost pounced on the person to defend his friends. It's not. I never said you couldn't work together or had to go through everything, only that you had to get to the end. They actually figured out the point of the course, Aizawa explained before Katsuki could do anything. Once the class had actually calmed down, Aizawa showed the board showing the rankings. The three were proud of where they had gotten but knew they still needed work. With the course added, Katsuki got 2nd, Izuku got 5th, and Kyoka got 14th. The person that got last was the invisible girl that was close to tears, with the girls trying to calm her down. Oh, by the way, the class looked to Aizawa. It was all a logical ruse to make you do your best. Half the class sighed with relief and almost sank to the ground. Aizawa-sensei, if you don't mind me asking. Aizawa looked to the girl with a black ponytail. Why did you call it a physical test that we could use our quirks on instead of a quirk test? Aizawa quickly looked to Izuku, who signed yes, meaning he could tell them. Because one of you is quirkless. That seemed to shock most of the class that started looking around. Now change and go to lunch. Hiraraka didn't know what she expected when she walked into 1A, but it certainly wasn't this. She saw a boy with blue hair and glasses yelling at a boy with blonde hair. And a fuck you attitude, but that wasn't the person that had caught her eye. No, it was the boy with green hair and piercings. He seemed to be messing with the dragon wrapped around his ear as he somewhat glared at the pair. Seems scary. I'll try to avoid him then. She turned her head and recognized the boy with the purple hair. It's you. The boy turned to her a little confused before he seemed to recognize her. I wanted to thank you for saving me. Actually, I'm not. Then the blue-haired boy ran up. I see. You saw through the exam and helped a fellow examine when the rest of us ran. Ada Tenya at your service. The boy Ada greeted while waving his arms robotic-like. Oh yeah, Uraraka Achako, nice to meet you. The purple-haired boy seemed a little uncomfortable. Must not be used to compliments and friends. I'll change that, she thought. She noticed the scary-looking boy looking over at them with his two friends, maybe looking at him confused. No, if you're here to make friends, then leave. Uraraka watched the boy throughout the testing. She noticed if he wasn't doing the test, then he would move his arms over his chest and a hand would go to fiddle with the dragon again as his face stayed with the scary look. When she looked away for a minute and looked back, she noticed the girl trying not to laugh loudly while the other boy just rolled his eyes with a smirk. Then the obstacle course rolled around. She was one of the last to make it to the button, but she noticed before that they all seemed to be talking in sign, with Aizawa-sensei replying sometimes. They cheated. A blonde, Kaminari, she had learned his name at some point, yelled, pointing at the three. She noticed how the blonde one seemed to get angry and almost pounced before Aizawa spoke. It's not. I never said you couldn't work together or had to go to everything, only that you had to get to the end. They actually figured out the point of the course, Aizawa explained. Uraraka froze. Someone was quirkless and in the hero course. Or that's what Aizawa said. She didn't know if it was actually true or not after the whole logical ruse thing. When the girls began to start changing, the girl with the frog quirk spoke. I doubt someone quirkless is in the hero course. Some of the others looked at her. It was hard for even me to get in. Yeah, maybe it's another logical ruse thing. The invisible girl spoke. I'm not sure. He seemed pretty serious about it. The girl with the black ponytail said, putting her shirt on. Izuku quickly changed his cloths and grabbed his bag, waiting for Katsuki and Kyoka. Soon the two came out, one looking more pissed than the other. What's up with you, Katsuki? Kyoka asked, seeing his expression. Some of the extras don't think it's possible for a quirkless person to get into the hero course. Katsuki signed so the others didn't hear. Same here. Some even said it was impossible since it was so hard for them to get in. Yeah, well, wait until they figure out it's Izuku. They're gonna freak. Both laughed slightly as Izuku pulled out his phone and notebook. They made it to the lunchroom and sat down, already having food, and talked about new training they would need. Or at least Katsuki and Kyoka did, while Izuku tried to figure out the choreography for the new song. We need to work on the speed and power of the launching and going through the course together, Kyoka added, taking a bite of her food. Yeah, we may have beaten the extras, but it could have been fucking faster. Kyoka nodded, going silent for a minute as they listened to Izuku mumble the ideas he had with them, adding some and dismissing some. They had seen Izuku dance enough to know what was good and wasn't to a point. Katsuki noticed, and pointed it out to Kyoka, that some of the students were looking at Izuku almost scared. The two looked to their friend and realized why. They may have been used to stressed, working, and focused Izuku, but others weren't. Whenever he was focused, almost always, he tended to make his face look like he was angry and wanting to punch something while he fiddled with the dragon on his ear. What a bunch of dicks, Katsuki huffed as he took a drink from his water bottle. Man, sensei isn't that scary. Not even close unless you get on his bad side. Katsuki nodded. But they're dumb extras who judge on the surface like a bunch of fucking window shoppers. Aizawa may not seem the most observant, but he noticed small things, like the class seeming to avoid the trio but mostly looking at Izuku in fear, which he didn't understand. The kid was polite and seemed very kind and happy. Sure, when he was focused he looked a little scary, but otherwise he was a sweet kid. Aizawa, why does your class seem to avoid Midoriya? He turned to see the principal, the question getting the other teacher's attention. Is it because he's quirkless? Yamada asked a little angrily. No, I only told them there was a quirkless student, but most of them don't believe me since it would be too hard for them to actually do it. Most of the teachers rolled their eyes at that, but Aizawa turned back to the principal. Is it possible most of your class find him scary? Nenzu asked with the tilt of his head. I think that's it. Some of the students look scared when he even glances at them. But don't Bakugos and Gyro stick around him? Yamada asked. Most of the teachers knew of their situation in case something happened at work and Izuku had to leave, so they knew who to give work to make sure he got it. They knew him before UA though, and have likely all been friends for a long time since they all refer to each other by first name or nicknames. Nenzu didn't mention that Kyoka called Izuku sensei, but that wasn't important. Well, I don't see what's so scary about that boy. Midnight spoke sitting at her desk. He's very sweet from what I've heard and seen some. Could use a little more confidence though since he doesn't seem to stick up for himself. Aizawa nodded in agreement. They might think young Midoriya is a delinquent. All Might spoke up. Aizawa thought about it for a second. I guess, but if anything out of the class it seems to be Bakugos based on personality. Aizawa said, looking back to his paperwork. I see, thank you for your input. Nenzu walked out of the teacher's lounge, leaving the teachers to wonder why he asked. The next class for them was English, which the trio didn't mind. Izuku was fluent in it since his uncle was in America, and most music his class chose was from America. Kyoka was close to fluent since she liked to learn about music and had learned more of it since training with Izuku. While Katsuki was fluent since he decided to learn it with Izuku when they were younger. Present Mike was a little surprised when he found out the trio were almost completely fluent in 3 languages: Japanese, Sign, and English. He had asked the class how many languages they all spoke, and a lot of them had only said 1, Japanese, while a few said 2, English, but the 3 surprised him. Okay, well, we're going to take a test to see how much you can write and read in English. He handed out the papers and watched them work. While some others seemed to be struggling, he noticed a few who seemed to be doing fine and not stressed. He looked over to the trio and now understood why some of them found him a little scary. He was focused on the test, but it looked like he was killing someone with his eyes. It reminded Present Mike of Shadow a lot, but otherwise the kids seemed fine and honestly friendly. After a while he collected the papers and let the kids talk to their friends or do any other work they had. He noticed how Izuku seemed to quickly pull out his notebook and start listening to music. He didn't think much of it until he heard English instead of Japanese. That explains why he's pretty fluent. It wasn't long until he had graded most of them and they switched teachers to midnight. Izuku's first day for him seemed to go by just fine. He used what time he had to work on the choreography for his class when he could. His teachers were nice and didn't mind him sometimes mumbling quietly or listening to the music, so he thought he had a pretty good day. You know, most of them are scared of you, sensei, Kyoka mentioned offhandedly while they walked to the bus. Izuku looked up confused. Why would they be scared of me? I didn't think I was intimidating. Izuku almost squeaked out, trying to think of the reasons they might be scared of him. You aren't, you fucking nerd. It's that shitty face you make when you're focused on your work and all the piercings and haircut. Katsuki explained. I don't make a face. Izuku tried to defend, only getting looks from his friends. Sure you don't, Kyoka teased, but what is this I hear about you wearing heels? Izuku immediately blushed while Katsuki tried not to laugh. I'm sorry, he's doing what? He asked, directing his vision to his friend. Okay, when my students learned I was applying to UA, I promised that I wouldn't miss a day, and if I did I would do whatever they wanted me to do for an hour. And they all may or may not have collectively decided they were going to make me wear heels at some point. Izuku explained to them. Wait, when did you miss a day? Katsuki asked. He knew his friend was a workaholic and would never miss a day on purpose. You remember when you two took me out to celebrate? I ended up missing that day and they decided that counted. Oh, I need to see that, Katsuki said, trying to imagine Izuku walking in heels. Well, I'll try to tell you when they make me do it. Izuku rolled his eyes as they made it to the stop. You two going home today? Izuku asked as they got onto the bus. He didn't notice a few of his classmates sitting on the same bus. Yeah, we take breaks, unlike you, dumbass. Izuku fake gasped at his friends. How dare I take breaks? Both quirked an eyebrow at him. Oh really, sensei? What have been doing during our free time during school then? Izuku looked down at his hands. Working on the choreography, he said, sighing through it. Exactly. We take breaks from training to actually have a fucking life. Katsuki teased, making Izuku punch him. I have a life. Soon Izuku's stop came and he had to leave to head into the studio. Katsuki and Kyoka sat in silence since both preferred it when Kyoka picked up on some talking. Dude, she called him sensei. I know. I wonder why. It's probably a joke or something, guys. But what did he mean when they mentioned choreography? Isn't that for dancing? Kyoka looked over and saw 4 of her classmates talking about them. She tapped Katsuki on the shoulder before signing. People over there know us and heard us talking. Katsuki looked over at them before back to Kyoka. I wouldn't worry about it. If they ask us about anything, I'll just tell them to fuck off or they die. Kyoka huffed but nodded her head anyway. Sensei, how was your first day at UA? Akane asked. She was one of the more open girls. It went pretty good actually. But apparently I scare some of my classmates. That got the attention of the others in the room. No offense, Dragon Sensei, but you're about as scary as a kitten unless you're fighting someone you don't like. Daichai explained, looking his teacher up and down. Thanks so much. Love you all too. Some chuckled at his reaction, but I have the choreography for the song. So let's get started. He always started off by showing it them slowly then quickly before they would join in to do it themselves. As the music started, Izuku looked up into the mirror and took almost robotic steps forward to the beat. To be young and in love in New York City. Izuku lifted his arms up before shooting them to the side at the city. Do not know who I am, but still good as long as you're here with me. He pointed his arms to the left before pulling and sliding over to that space. To be drunk and in love in New York City. He lifted his hand, pretending to take a drink before stumbling along to the beat. The class continued to watch him as he moved slowly to the beat and snapped his fingers along with the music until it came to the drop. Once it did, he jumped up and spun before moving his body again, but this time faster. It continued until the song stopped and he turned to them with a smile. So what do you think? All of the class cheered and clapped. Okay. Thank you, but now it's your turn. Izuku began leading them through the motions. It wasn't long before they all got into groups, pairs, or stayed separate and went through the motions, changing a few to match their style. He watched a few making comments and suggestions every now and again to the groups. Nedzu picked up his phone, dialing a number and listening before it was picked up. This is Hakucho, what can I help you with? Yes, this is Nedzu, principal of UA. Oh, you looking for Midoriya then? Nedzu smiled. No, but I would like to make an offer that may help him. He paused, allowing her to say something if she wanted. You see, some of Midoriya's classmates are scared of him. Scared of the kid. The boy's a kitten unless you get on his bad side. So I've been told. But I have an idea to help with that. The woman hummed, waiting for him to continue. Since he's a teacher there, I was wondering if in the next week you could ask him to work full those days while you go on a family emergency. Oh, I see what you're saying. You want them to see the kid when he's most himself and at his best then. Exactly. It would also help train my students who need help with mobility. Okay, sure thing. This coming week I'll call him in so your students can come in and he'll teach them. Fantastic. I'll let his teacher know to inform his students of it. Nedzu then called in Aizawa, who looked skeptical. What are you planning, Nedzu? Nedzu smiled innocently. I don't know what you mean, but this next week you'll be taking your students to the dance dojo to learn some skills by their most experienced teacher since the owner will be out on a family emergency. Aizawa sighed, already getting the plan. Fine, when will he be gone? He shouldn't be in this Friday and the next week. Though I doubt that will matter much, don't you agree? When they had to send in their costume designs, Izuku didn't really know what to put in. He was never really a clothing types person all that much since outside of school he mostly wore crop tops and leggings since he was always at work. Luckily Katsuki and Kyoka had decided to help him with it since he was a fucking idiot that doesn't know fashion. So when All Might busted into the room and told them to put their costumes on, he didn't know what to expect, but it wasn't this. They had given him a black medical mask, his usual black snapback that he wore when dancing, fingerless red gloves, a tight dark green shirt, black leggings with padding on his legs, a red utility belt that had mostly smoke bombs, and a hooded black leather jacket. He honestly was just happy to have his snapback, combat boots, and retractile staff on him. Told you we'd do a good fucking job, Katsuki said, walking up to his friend. Katsuki's costume was way more intense than Izuku's and he was thankful he wasn't wearing it. We went a little more subtle since we know you want to go underground and stuff, Kyoka explained, waving her hand at the outfit. I like it a lot, but I think this made them more scared of me, Izuku whispered, feeling eyes on him. Whatever, if the shitty extras can't deal with you then they ain't ready to face villains. Kyoka rolled her eyes at the boys and turned to All Might, who had started speaking. Today you will all be paired and fight as teams, one playing the hero and the other the villains. People started shouting questions at the man before he stopped them. Please, one at a time. My quirk isn't super hearing. One of the students, Izuku didn't know who, then asked how they would be picked, so it's fair. We'll be drawing lots. You'll be paired, then drawing lots on who is the villain and who is the hero. Izuku hoped he would be paired with either Katsuki or Kyoka since they weren't scared of him. It would be easier to work with them. First up, Hiroraka and Midoriya versus Bakugos and Ida. Izuku grimaced at that. Not that you could tell with the mask, because him and Katsuki always fought and either tied or the other lost badly. He saw the girl walking up to him nervously, looking ready to run. Looks like we'll be the heroes then. Izuku could tell her cheery tone was forced and just nodded. Soon the villain team was inside the building with the hero team outside waiting to be told when to go in. Oh, my name's Uraraka by the way, and my quirk lets me make things weightless. She was still trying to be chipper. Izuku sighed and pulled down his mask and smiled kindly at her. You're scared of my, aren't you? Uraraka was caught off guard at the kind voice and expected to be yelled at or something. I would know why would Izuku stopped her by laughing. It's fine really. We don't have to interact after this if you don't want. Uraraka was about to speak but Izuku stopped her. I already have a plan in mind. Me and Bakugos kinda have a competition going on who can beat the other the most. Right now we're tied so he'll mostly go after me just on instinct, and when that happens I want you to run to Ida who will most likely stay with the bomb. Once I'm done taking him down I'll join you and then we get the bomb, okay? Uraraka stood surprised but nodded anyway. Hero team enter the building. When they entered it was quiet. The bomb is most likely on the last floor. Bakugos is most likely only on the third floor right now. Uraraka followed behind Izuku as he navigated the halls until there was shouting. Come on nerd, come out so we can settle the score. Uraraka looked worried but Izuku only smirked. When I get him away go to the stairs. Uraraka nodded nervously as he dashed out and confronted Katsuki. You sure you're ready, Kaken? Izuku asked, getting the boy's attention. He smirked at his friend and started running at him. You bet. Left hook, Izuku thought as they started attacking each other. When Katsuki started with the left hook, Izuku wrapped it in capture tape before flipping him over and sitting on his back so he couldn't move. Katsuki struggled for a minute before letting on explosion, making Izuku have to jump back and off of him. Kaken, that was dirty. I'm the villain. I'm supposed to play dirty. The two started attacking each other more violently until Izuku landed a hit in his abdomen, making him go down in pain long enough to be tied up. Uraraka, I'm heading up. How are things going? He heard a few grunts before a reply. I can't get Ida down alone. He's moving too fast for me. There was a few more grunts and a yell before Izuku replied. Got it. I'm almost there. When Izuku finally made it to the floor, Uraraka was close to the wall trying to keep away from Ida, who was taking the role very seriously. So you've taken down my partner, have you? No matter, you'll be dealt with fast. Izuku flipped over Ida as the boy came speeding at him. Uraraka, I'm gonna need you to trust me. What is it? She asked, dodging him again. Izuku spoke quietly so only his comm would pick up his voice. I'm going to tackle him. I won't let go until you've got your hand on the bomb, okay? It's going to look bad if he reacts a certain way, so trust me please. Uraraka took a deep breath. I trust you. Izuku smirked before getting Ida's attention. Hey Ida. The boy turned to him, giving him his opening. He jumped at the boy and grabbed onto one of his arms, forcing it behind him before kicking out his legs, making the boy fall onto the ground. Uraraka now. Hearing that, Ida began to thrash in the smaller boy's grip. Izuku then closed his arms around the boy, making it harder for him to move but allowing him to get in a few good blows on Izuku. Izuku was glad at the moment that he couldn't feel pain as the boy elbowed him hard in the stomach. Hero team wins. All Might yelled over the system, making Ida stop moving and Izuku letting him go and standing up while offering a hand to Ida, who took it. Quite impressive, Midoriya. I was sure with the blows I made you might have been injured, but you seem fine. Izuku's eyes widened a bit. Well, that might be because I can't feel pain. The other two students stood in shock at his statement until Katsuki snapped them out of it. Fucking idiot. Katsuki reached and pressed a button on the bracelet damage report. The other two stood in confusion until a robotic voice spoke. Light internal bleeding and bruised ribs. The blood will pass on its own, but I suggest taking it easy for a few on the ribs. Katsuki nodded his head as his friend nodded sheepishly. We need to take him to recovery, girl. The injuries may be worse. Ida spoke. Katsuki waved him off. The tech does a full body scan. Those are the only major injuries. He'll be fine in an hour, and if he isn't, I'll take him. Katsuki hit the button again before walking out of the building with Izuku while Ida and Uraraka trailed behind them. I told you to stop using the left hook when you start off, Kaken. If you keep using it, you become predictable and someone could take you down with one move. Izuku scolded as they made it back to the observation room. The class was looking in shock at the boy, who seemed fine. Okay, who was the MVP of that round? All Might asked the class. The girl with the black ponytail raised her hand. Yes, Yaoyorozu. I believe it was Midoriya. He was able to come up with a plan for him and Uraraka to take down the other team. He predicted how they would act and how Bakugos would attack. Then when both were pinned against Ida, he came up with another plan that worked, with them winning. The building wasn't destroyed and both teams came out with no injuries. Yaoyorozu explained, with some of the other classmates agreeing. But Midoriya Uraraka was cut off by All Might. Correct, young Yaoyorozu. Now on to the next round. Izuku and Katsuki stood near the back of the class with Kyoka next to them. So how hurt did you get? Kyoka asked, looking the green-haired boy over. Just some bruised ribs and internal bleeding. Karen said the blood would pass on its own. Once he was done, he started coughing into his hand to try and silence the sound. When he pulled it away, there was blood on his hand. Jesus Izuku, go to the fucking bathroom before you throw up blood in front of everyone. Izuku nodded his head and walked over to the side bathroom. Is he going to be okay? Both looked back to the front, Uraraka and Ada looking a little worried. Fucker's gonna be fine, so fuck off. Kyoka rolled her eyes at him. Sorry about him, but yeah, he'll be fine, just give it a minute. Not even second later, Izuku walked out of the bathroom and joined his friends. Oh, Uraraka, Ada, is everything okay? He asked them with his mask back over his mouth. Oh yeah, sorry. Just wanted to make sure you were okay. The two then left the three alone. Why do you have the mask back up? Because my teeth are covered in blood and I couldn't wash it all out until later. Didn't want to scare them more than they already are. Katsuki rolled his eyes. Would have been funny to see the extras freak the fuck out. Izuku chuckled at the image. Maybe next time I throw up blood, Kaken. What the trio didn't notice was a dual-haired boy listening the entire time to their conversation. Uraraka sat down at lunch with Ada, Tsuyu, and Shinsu. The purple-haired boy still seemed awkward around them though. That Midoriya fellow is very strong, but him not feeling pain is quite strange, Ada mentioned as they all ate. It probably has to do with his quirk, Tsuyu said with Ada and Uraraka agree. Shinsu sighed, getting their attention. That reminds me, Uraraka, I wasn't. Shinsu was cut off by someone loudly yelling. Well, if it isn't someone of students. The other students looked over to see a blonde yelling at Kirishima, Ashido, Kaminari, and Siro, who all looked confused. How does it feel to be treated better than everyone else because people think you're special? Ada was about to say something when they saw Midoriya walking up. Hello, my name's Midoriya Izuku. Can I ask why you're causing a scene? The blonde looked to him a little confused. I'm trying to show that one isn't special. They're not even that good. I have friends with better quirks than them. Midoriya cocked an eyebrow. Well, how are their quirks better? It was an honest question to the boy. Because they're stronger than theirs. I think you're missing the point. It's not about if a quirk is strong, it's about if they know when and how to apply it to a situation. I don't doubt that your friends have what's considered a powerful quirk, but instead of causing a scene, show that on the field. The other boy glared at him before nodding his head and walking away. The students went back to eating. Wow, that was super manly, Midoriya. Thanks, bro. Kirishima yelled, getting a smile and nod from Midoriya before he went back to his seat with Bakugos and Gyro. Maybe we should try being friends with him. He seems nice but looks scary, Uraraka said. That's true, Uraraka, but he seems content with just Bakugos and Gyro. Tsuyu pointed out. Maybe, but everyone could always use more friends. We could ask Kirishima's group too. They seem like they want to talk to them too. Okay, now that you've done one day of heroics class, let's go over some of the problems with a spar. Midoriya, you need to not hurt yourself so much. That confused the class. Izuku didn't seem hurt after his round. Todoroki, you can't just freeze everything. You need to think there might be hostage in that situation. Shinsu, don't rely on your quirk so much either. Aizawa listed off a few more before having the kids change and meet outside again. Hey Midoriya. The boy looked a little surprised at Kirishima. What did sensei mean by you getting hurt? You didn't seem hurt or anything. Before Izuku could answer for himself, Katsuki cut in. Don't worry about it, shitty hair, it's none of your fucking business. Izuku glared at his friend. Hey, my hair isn't that different than yours. Soon the two started talking, or at least Kirishima tried talking to Katsuki, who responded a little. When they made it out onto the field, Izuku stood near the back by himself. Katsuki had somehow made friends with Kirishima, Sira, Kaminari, and Ashido, who now wouldn't leave him alone, and Kyoka had made friends with some of the girls and the boy with the bird head. He didn't mind it though, since it meant his friends now didn't only have him. Okay, now that you all finally made it out, I'm going to par you up and then you're going to spar. Some of the class cheered. Aizawa smirked. You're going to spar quirkless. Some of the class paled at that. Okay, here are the pairs: Ashido versus Anjiro, Kaminari versus Aoyama, Kirishima versus Sato, Yaoyorozu versus Hagakure, Bakugos versus Gyro. Hearing that, Izuku deflated a little. He didn't want to fight other people he wasn't used to if it was quirkless fighting. And lastly, Midoriya versus Shinsu. Now go to your partner and start fighting. Izuku made eye contact with the boy with the purple hair, who nodded at him. Shinsu jogged up to him and they started walking away from the others. I have a question before we start. Izuku turned to the boy and nodded his head. How come you haven't told Uraraka that it was you that saved her and not me? Izuku was a little shocked at that. I don't see the need to. How come you haven't taken credit for it? Shinsu glared slightly at that because most people would have by now. It gives you credit for a heroic act and makes people think highly of you. So how come you haven't? Shinsu softened his eyes at that. So Izuku didn't think he was some kind of villain. Because I didn't do it. I didn't come into heroics to make friends. Izuku nodded his head. Okay, now that we have that cleared up, why don't we start? Shinsu nodded his head and got into a stance. Izuku immediately went into teacher mode. Then wait, Shinsu, hold on. He walked up to the other boy who kept his stance. He kicked his feet apart and moved his hands a little. Your stance was off. This one is what you want to go for. There are less open spots and it's harder for someone to move you from it. Okay. Shinsu was a little surprised. He sounds like a teacher, he thought as the other boy walked back a little and got into a similar stance. Before Shinsu could think though, Izuku had gotten too close to him and swung his foot at the boy's head. Shinsu moved his head back but didn't notice how Izuku turned, so he was on his back and swept Shinsu's feet out from under him. Izuku took the chance and pinned him to the ground with him sitting on the boy's chest and pining his hands next to his head. I win. Shinsu looked up wide-eyed at the boy. Holy shit, he could do that again and I would thank him. The boy stood up and offered his hand to Shinsu, who took it. How did you? Izuku smiled and took a step back. This is actually one of my favorite moves. I'd be happy to show you. Izuku kicked his leg like before and did a flip. But instead of landing on his feet and landed on his back and spun with his out foot out. If you're able to do that, then either you kick your opponent in the head and sweep them off their feet or just sweep their feet. Aizawa looked over and saw the two boys talking casually. Well, it looked like Izuku was explaining something to the other. Midoriya, Shinsu, you're supposed to be fighting, he said as he walked closer, getting the attention of some of the other students. We did, Shinsu stated simply while crossing his arms. And who won? Shinsu pointed to Izuku, who waved sheepishly. And how did he win so fast? I can show you, he said excitedly before turning back to Shinsu. If that's okay with you, I don't want you to hurt your back or head. It's fine. Shinsu got into his stance again, with Izuku fixing it a little before going back to his position. It played out the same as before, with Shinsu not seeing Izuku move till he was right in his face. Then he was on the ground again. I hate this. Izuku chuckled but helped him back up. You didn't have to, Shinsu. Aizawa was mildly impressed. The move Izuku was performing was a combination of 3 roundhouse kick, a sideways flip, and sweeping someone's legs out from under them. I see. Midoriya helped Shinsu with his fighting then. Aizawa walked away while Izuku beamed. Okay, Shinsu, get into the stance from before. The boy did as he was told while Izuku fixed it some. Okay, no, I want you to come at me and I'll block you. Then at the end I'll help you fix anything, okay? Shinsu nodded his head before they started. At the end of the class, Shinsu was tired as hell. Izuku had helped him get a better stance and showed him where to aim a good punch and of course how to throw one. Jesus, Midoriya, where did you learn to fight like that? Shinsu asked as the two went to the changing rooms. At the dojo I go to. If you want I could take you there after class and show you around. Izuku was excited. If Shinsu ended up going there, he could make another friend and help them. Are you sure? I don't want to impose or anything if that's the case. Izuku shook his head. No, you won't. It's fine. I usually go with Kaken and Kyle, but I have a feeling they're going to hang out with their new friends, he said, smiling as his friends interacted with some of the other students. Shinsu frowned slightly at that. He only has those two as friends then. Sure, just let me tell my parents that I'll be late. How long do you usually stay? He asked, already pulling out his phone. Usually till closing, I think. Shinsu looked at him surprised but nodded his head anyway. I hate this fucking family. Hidasan, I won't be waiting for you guys or going home after school. Heads up. Tired dad, why? Hitsun, Midoriya's gonna show me where he trains to fight, might try it out. Loud dad, that's great Hitoshi. You make those friends. Tired dad, you two literally just spared. Hidasan, I know what I signed up for. Shinsu closed his phone as he made his way back to class to pack up his stuff when he heard 3 people talking. Are you sure, sensei? We'll cancel and go with you if you want. Was that Gyro? Shinsu thought as he looked inside. I'm serious, Kyle. Don't worry, go have fun with your friends. That was Midoriya. Did Gyro just call Midoriya sensei? Fine, but if I find out your bitch ass was upset about this fucking thing, I'm killing you. That was Bakugos then. I promise, Kaken. Now go, I'll be fine. He heard the two leave through the other door as he decided to walk in. Hey, is there anything I need before we go? Shinsu asked, grabbing his bag. Nope, unless you want to train more or just wear comfortable clothes. Shinsu thought about it for a second. Let's stop at my house and I'll grab a change of clothes first. Izuku nodded with a smile as they walked out. They walked silently until Shinsu spoke up. Why did Gyro call you sensei? Izuku blushed and crossed his arms over his face. Well, Kaio's been going to the dojo for almost 5 years now and when she joined I had started teaching 3 and Izuku cut himself off and took a breath. A lot of the students there had started calling me Midoriya sensei or sensei and she just jumped on and now has a problem calling me Midoriya or Izuku. Shinsu hummed and nodded his head. That explains today then. Izuku looked at the other boy weirdly before he continued. When you were helping me you acted like a teacher. Izuku opened and closed his mouth a few times, still blushing. I don't know why I hate you. That made Shinsu laugh as they finally made it to his house. It's not my fault you act like one. Shinsu unlocked the door and turned back to Izuku. Wait here, I'll be back soon. Izuku nodded his head and pulled out his phone. Sensei is a dirty dancer. Dirty dancer? I just got told I act like a teacher by Shinsuo. I am the base. In his defense, you act like one a lot when you aren't teaching. Dirty dancer, I'm making you run an extra mile next time. I am the base, you wouldn't. Bakugos, he wouldn't. Dirty dancer, you may be right but you shouldn't say it. I am the base, why are you booing me? I'm right. Dirty dancer, ha 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 dot dot dot, now go back to hanging out with your friends. Bakugos, oh ho ho, who's this? Bakugos. Bakugos actually has friends dot 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 dot, and his name in this is Bakugos. I can't breathe, I hexed. Dirty dancer, who is this and how has he not killed you yet? Bakugos, this is Ashido Mina, Kaminari Denki, and Siro Hanta. Our good friend Kirishima has a hold on your good all. Bakugos, now who are you? I'm the base, classified information, sorry. Bakugos, all that's to RFR Vugvithinchimakum. Bakugos, I'm closing this so the fuckers don't get it again. I am the base. Welp, that's my cue. Have fun, sensei. Dirty dancer, thanks Kyle, you too. Why is your name Dirty Dancer on that? Izuku almost jumped out of his skin hearing Shinsu. Oh well, he was blushing again as he tried to explain sometimes the girls want to do more sexual songs so yeah. Wait, what? Crap, he had forgotten to tell Shinsu that part. Oh well, the place is called the Dance Dojo. I teach both, but my most popular class is the dance one. Shinsu just nodded his head as they walked to the train station. Is there anything else I should know? Shinsu asked, quirking an eyebrow. He liked Midoriya so far, he seemed kind of fun to hang out with. I don't think so. Oh, my class might make me wear heels while you're there though. That confused Shinsu a lot. Why? Well, they were worried that I wouldn't be able to make it there every day, and I told them that I would be there every day, and if I missed a day due to UA then I would do whatever they want for an hour. But how did you miss a day? It's only like the first week. Well, Kaken decided to take us out to celebrate getting an SND. I ended up missing that day and they counted it. So they decided they were going to make me wear heels at some point. Then that brought up that some of the girls and guys wanted to learn to dance in heels. Oh my god, I hope they do it around me. I want to see that. Shinsu said through laughs. Okay, I'm better no. But what song made Gyro call you a dirty dancer? Izuku began blushing again and pulled out his phone. Have you ever heard the song Taki Taki? Shinsu shook his head. No. Do you know and understand English? Shinsu nodded since one of his dads made him learn English so he could torture him with music. Izuku handed him an earbud as they listened. Once the music was done, Shinsu was laughing again. Holy shit. Izuku just rolled his eyes. There are others she mentioned but said this was the one that started it. When they made it to the dance dojo, Izuku was greeted by a group of his students. Sensei, we thought you weren't coming. Izuku just smiled at him. I wouldn't miss it. I don't want to let you get more things for me to do if I miss a day. Some laughed and went back to the studio. Okay, we can change in the locker rooms and then I can show you around a little. Shinsu nodded and pulled out his cloths. It was just a pair of pants that looked like jeans and a plain black shirt. When he looked to Izuku again, he had a similar reaction to when they spared. Izuku had a white hooded crop top, black leggings, a black snapback, combat boots, and white fingerless gloves. He was then reminded of Izuku's hero costume. Are crop tops and leggings more comfortable? Shinsu asked, getting the boy's attention, who smiled. Yeah, it's better for me since it's more loose and breathable, plus I just like wearing them. Usually if I'm not wearing a uniform, I'm wearing something similar to this, he explained, gesturing to his outfit. Shinsu would be lying if he said that Izuku didn't look good. It was a nice look for him anyway. Okay, what do you want to see first then? Izuku asked, clapping his hands together. How about the dojo part? Izuku nodded his head and went to the other side of the building. Shinsu was amazed by all the equipment that they had. There was a rock wall, parkour course, an obstacle course, normal gym equipment, some weapons, and a sparring area with a track overhead of it all. Wow, this place is impressive, he said, looking up at the area. I know, right? It's crazy. I love training here since there's so much to do. Shinsu smiled at seeing the boy look so happy. One of my favorite things to do here are those. He pointed to fabric hanging from the ceiling that Shinsu hadn't seen at first. Show me. Izuku looked to Shinsu with a smile before leading him over to them. He watched as Izuku expertly climbed up them and did a few tricks. Holy shit. It was beautiful to watch as the other boy had fun before he went back down to the ground. They're really hard to learn, but it's an amazing feeling to do them. Let's continue. They walked around the dojo part as Izuku would give demonstration or explain how something worked. If I trained here, would you be my teacher? Shinsu asked as they headed over to the studio part of the building. Yep, we don't have a lot of teachers and I'm one of the people that have been here the longest. How long have you been going here then? Izuku thought about it for a minute before replying. Well, I started going here around the time I was 4 and then I started teaching around the time I was 9. Though I mostly taught dance then. You've been going here for almost 10 years. That explains why you're so good at fighting then. Izuku chuckled and nodded his head. Okay, class. Everyone in the room looked to Izuku. This is Shinsu. He'll be sitting in for today to see how everything works. Got it? There was a wave of yes, sensei, around the room. Okay. Now everyone get into groups from before and let's work on the song. Shinsu watched as the groups all danced together and added their own spin on things. It was pretty impressive to say the least. Midoriya. The boy looked over to Shinsu now that almost everyone was gone. Do you ever post your stuff online for people to watch? Izuku blushed and shook his head no. I haven't. I don't think people would actually want to watch it, and besides I don't want people know it's me. Shinsu looked at him dumbstruck. People would love to watch what I just did. Are you kidding? And you could just wear a mask. Everything else you wear tends to hide your face and stuff. Really? You think people would watch it? Shinsu nodded his head as Izuku thought about it. You know what? I will. Help me real quick. Shinsu was happy to help with the idea they had. Shinsu had left Izuku and went back to his house looking over the video that they had posted. It already had over 1,000 views even though they only posted it recently. They had hid his face and called the channel Golden Dragon, and people seemed to love it. When he walked into his house, he was greeted by the cats and his dad sitting in the kitchen. Itoshi, how was it? Shinsu looked up at Yamada and put his phone away. Pretty awesome. Midoriya's a good teacher and the place is really nice. So then you won't mind if I take the class there next week? Shinsuo did a spit take and started coughing. What? The principal has decided to have the class go there to learn for a week. Don't tell the problem child. Shinsuo looked at him a little confused. Did you just call him problem child? Can you tell us what All Might is like as a teacher? What's it like learning from the symbol of peace? Can you? Katsuki glared at the reports, making them back off a little but still be annoying. Izuku grabbed his two friends' hands and led them through the reporters into the gates, where they were greeted with Aizawa and Present Mike glaring at the reporters. Get to class, doesn't matter if you're late, Aizawa said, not even looking away from the reporters. Sure thing, sensei, Kyoka said, walking up to the front of the school. When they walked into the class, it was almost empty again, with only Shinsuo, Todoroki, and Yaoyorozu. Oh, Gyro. Yaoyorozu walked up and started talking to the girl, with Katsuki and Izuku smirking, knowing full well the girl was having a gay panic. Oi, Midoriya. Shinsuo walked up with his phone out. The video did really good so far, look. Both boys looked at the video, seeing over 1 million views. Jesus fuck, Zuku, when you do that shit? Izuku blushed and rubbed the back of his neck. Yesterday when Shinsuo came to the studio. Katsuki glared at him but nodded his head. Fine, but I better be there next time, asshole. Today you'll be picking a class president, Aizawa announced before stepping into his sleeping bag. You should have me. No me. Shut it, extras. It's me. Izuku and Kyoka looked at their friend and rolled their eyes at him. We should vote. That way it's fair. Ada yelled even through his own hand was raised. But won't people just vote for themselves? Kirishima asked. Well, let's give everyone 2 votes then. Yeah, soon the class started voting for the people they chose. Midoriya Izuku, 5, Yaoyorozu Momo, 3, Bakugos Katsuki, 2, Ada Tenya, 2, Gyro Kyoka, 2. The list went off with most having 2 or 1. Really? Who voted for him? He's really scary. Will he even take it seriously? Izuku looked down slightly, hearing all of them talk, with Kyoka and Katsuki glaring at them. Quiet. Since you've all voted, Midoriya and Yaoyorozu are your class president and vice president, Aizawa announced, standing up from his sleeping bag while the 2 walked to the front of the class. It will be a pleasure to work with you, Midoriya, Yaoyorozu said, holding her hand out. You to Yaoyorozu. The 2 then sat down and it went back to normal lessons. I can't believe those assholes, Kyoka yelled, slamming her tray onto the table. Kyo, calm down. It's okay. Izuku tried to get the girl to calm down a little. He really didn't mind it. Like hell, it's fucking okay, Zuku. They treated you like shit, Katsuki yelled, agreeing with the girl. Kakin, it's not their fault, okay? They think I'm scary and they don't trust me, so I can't hold it against them. Okay, maybe Izuku wasn't okay. Excuse me. The 3 looked over to Yaoyorozu, standing there with a smile. I was wondering if I could sit with you 3. Kyoka blushed lightly, making the other 2 smirk. Sure thing, Yaoyorozu, Izuku said, with Katsuki moving to sit next to him. Oh, please call me Momo, it's easier. The 2 nodded. So what do you think of him being class president? Katsuki asked. If she was going to sit with them, she had to be cool with all of them. Oh, I think it was a great idea. I actually used one of my votes to vote for him. Izuku blushed while Katsuki nodded his head in approval. I don't know how I feel about Midoriya being the class president, Ada said, looking at his food. Come on, Ada, you're just jealous that you didn't get it. Uraraka tried to joke. While I am sad I wasn't able to get it, I don't think Midoriya was the right choice for the class. He doesn't seem to take anything seriously. Shinsuo took a breath to try and calm himself down a little. Hey Shinsuo. He turned and saw Hagakure and Mina standing there. We saw the other day that you and Midoriya seemed pretty close. Is he actually that scary? That seemed to be the end of it for him. He grabbed his stuff and stood up. Midoriya's actually a good person. You all are acting like he's a villain. He walked over to Midoriya's table and sat on the other side of the boy. Shinsuo, what's up? Izuku asked, seeing the other look slightly pissed. They're acting like you're a villain and were asking me if you were actually a bad person since we had hung out once. Are you fucking kidding me? Katsuki asked. As soon as he yelled, the alarm went off and people started running. What's going on? Momo asked as the group stood up and walked into the hall. Izuku was shoved to the window where he saw the media trying to get in again. It's the media. He turned, seeing the 4 looking shocked Kakin, Kyo, boost, the two nodded and joined their hands, allowing him to jump up and grab onto one of the hanging pipelines near the door. Everyone. They all quieted down and looked to him. It's the media. All of you look out the window. Please continue slowly or someone might get hurt. Now that that's over and we have all the other things picked out, everyone go to your seats. Aizawa put down some papers when the phone rang. He picked it up and nodded. Midoriya, please go to the principal's office. The boy nodded and walked out of the room, heading down to the office. When he opened the door, he was shocked to find Haku in there. Haku, what are you doing here? Is everything okay? Izuku asked, a little panicked for his teacher. Oh, everything is kinda okay, Midoriya, but I'm here because we need to ask you a favor. Izuku sat down next to Haku. You see, Mr. Midoriya, when Aizawa and I first went to you, I explained that at any time work needed you, we would figure something out. Izuku was a little confused but started to realize what that meant for him. Why would work need me though? Is something going on, Haku? Yes, I have some family business and I won't be able to make it to work and I need you to watch over the place for a week. Izuku looked shocked at the two but quickly replaced it with a smile. Of course, Haku. I hope your family is okay and I'm willing to help as long as Aizawa-sensei and Principal Nedzu are okay with it. Aizawa turned back to the class and straightened the papers in front of him. This Monday through Friday I suggest you bring cloths you're fine with moving and possibly messing up. We'll be going to a place for you all to learn better fighting skills and mobility. Aizawa explained, already seeing the looks on Katsuki and Kyoka's faces. Sir, he looked to Ada, a little bored. Shouldn't we have been informed before this though to prepare? Aizawa sighed and ran his hand over his face. You got warning, now be lucky. If you don't have cloths to use, then you're allowed to take the gym cloths. That's all for today. Sensei is a dirty dancer. Dirty dancer. Sorry guys, I won't be back in class today. Divided by, but come to the dojo if you want. I'm the base. You sure? Cause I kinda want to bring Momo. Dirty dancer. That's pretty lesbian of you, Kyle. Bakugos, like we didn't see you giving brain fucker eyes. Dirty dancer. I could say the same about you and Kirishima, bitch. Bakugos, you take that back. I am the base. Ladies, you're both pretty. And we're all gay disasters. Dirty dancer, you can bring Momo if you want. I'll still be a little nervous though, not used to people being supportive besides you guys and everyone at the dojo. I am the base. I'll only do it if you're comfortable with it, sensei. Dirty dancer, it's fine, go ahead and bring her, she seems really nice so I'm not as worried. Bakugos, if I find out that you aren't comfortable I'll kick your ass and bring brain fucker. I am the base, goes for me too, sensei. Also, we should have a sleepover. We haven't had one since UA and it'll be fun. Do a full weekend and hang out at the dojo when you need to work. Dirty dancer, that sounds like a great idea. Do you want to bring someone, Kakin? Bakugos, hell no, he hasn't earned it yet. Dirty dancer, sure Kakin, but Kyo, you text Momo and I'll text Shinsuo. Shinsuo laid on his bed. He really wanted to talk to Izuku again and get to know the boy more, but he didn't know how to. At least until his phone beeped at him. Izuku, hey Kakin, Kyle, maybe Momo, and me are going to have a sleepover over the weekend. Do you want to come? He stared at the screen for a minute before running out of his room to his parents. Dad, Pops, can I stay at Midoriya's? He didn't have to yell, but he was a little excited about it. Sure, Aizawa answered quickly. Are you sure, Shouda? Shouldn't we meet his parents first? He saw his dad give his pops a look that shut him up and agree. Shinso, sure, what's the address and time? Izuku sent everything before him and Shinsuo ended up talking for a few more hours until it was almost 1 in the morning. Shinso, shouldn't you go to sleep? You have work in the morning, right? Izuku, actually I have it off until the evening and we'll all probably go together to train a little, you know. So I'm not really worried. Izuku, I mean unless you're tired, cause then we can stop talking. I know you don't get a lot of sleep and you need as much as you can get, and also if you want we can stop. Shinso, I didn't know you could mumble over text, but I've been proven wrong. But no, it's fine, I like talking to you, but you need sleep too. Izuku, you'd actually be surprised by how long I can go without sleep and not pass out or sound crazy. Shinso, I'm now suddenly worried about your health. Izuku, you should be OWO. Shinso, I hate you. Izuku woke up the next morning feeling exhausted as usual. He walked over to his closet and pulled out a blue crop top with sweatpants. He looked at his phone, seeing that it was around 11 a.m. and the chat was active. I am the base. Sensei, we have a problem. Bakugos, what did the nerd do now? Dirty dancer, hey, I didn't do anything. I am the base. You kinda did. You just invited 2 people that are probably expecting to see your parents and meet them, and one doesn't know about your job. Dirty dancer : // Well fuck. Bakugos, good job fucker, I'm at your door now, bitch. Kakin, why can't you just knock like a normal person? Izuku yelled as he walked into the living room and opened the door. Cause I do what I want. Izuku rolled his eyes and let Katsuki in. Yeah, whatever. But how do we explain that I don't have parents to people? Katsuki looked at him weirdly. We tell them when they get here. We'll tell them when they get here. And don't you own anything other than crop tops? Jesus, Katsuki yelled, walking over to where he knew Izuku's room was. Not really, Kaken. You know I think they're comfortable. That's it. We're going to the store this weekend and getting you something other than crop tops. Izuku rolled his eyes as he heard a knock at the door and walked over. He opened the door, seeing Shinsuo standing there a little bored. Hey Shinsuo, how's it going? He saw the boy smile slightly and moved out of the way to let him in. Hey, I'm doing good, how about you? Fine, except that Kaken doesn't want me wearing crop tops all the time. Izuku yelled playfully to where Bakugos still was. Well, sorry, some of us don't want to walk out with you and have everyone staring at a 16-year-old with almost a fucking 8-pack. He yelled back. Jesus, you have an 8-pack. Izuku blushed at the question and nodded his head slightly while looking away. There was another knock at the door, giving Izuku the chance to walk away from the situation. Kaio, Momo, how are you guys? He asked, stepping out of the way to let them in. We're good, Midoriya, it's nice to see you. You have a lovely house, Momo commented as she walked in next to Kyoka. We're going shopping at some point because the nerd needs more than crop tops. Bakugos directed the last part at Izuku, who only stuck his tongue out. Wait, you don't own anything other than crop tops? Kyoka asked, a little surprised, while Izuku looked offended. Really? But I think the crop tops are quite nice, Momo said, looking at the blue one he was wearing now. Thank you. They all relaxed in the living room, sitting around on the couches and chair. So Midoriya, when are we going to meet your parents? Momo asked with a small smile. The three turned rigid and froze, making the other two stop and look at them worriedly. Is it something I said? No. Well, yes. But nothing bad. It's just I live alone, Izuku explained, rubbing the back of his neck awkwardly. Don't just fucking tell them that. Jesus, explain it, a little nerd. Katsuki yelled from the chair. Oh right. My dad died when I was too young to remember, so it was just me and my mom for a while. But then she got sick when I was 11, almost 12, so I've lived alone ever since. The two looked at him a little shocked before Shinsuo spoke. I get that. My parents died during a villain attack when I was younger. I got adopted around the age of 10. Shinsuo said, getting a shocked look from the others. They all sat silently for a minute until Momo stood up and bowed. I'm sorry to hear about that for you too. She stood back up and smiled, but I remember Bakugos mentioning something about shopping. The group walked around the shopping area for a minute before stopping in front of the food court. Okay, after Midoriya told us his sizes, we'll split up and look for clothing we think will look good on him. Then we'll go around and have him try everything on and buy what we like, Momo declared, pumping her fist into the air. Groups are me, Momo, and Katsuki. The other is you and Shinsuo. Have fun, Kyoka called as the three walked away, leaving the two confused. Well, let's go look at some stores. Where do you want to go first, Shinsuo? Izuku asked excitedly. Shinsuo rubbed the back of his neck with a small blush before he answered. I really like Hot Topic. Shinsuo barely spoke, looking down a little. Really? Me too. Usually only Kaio will go with me, but Kaken doesn't want to because it's too emo for him or something. Izuku smirked at the last bit, making Shinsuo look up surprised. Really? I didn't think you'd like it. You seem a little happy-go-lucky. There are still things you don't know about me, Shinsuo, Izuku teased as they began walking towards the Hot Topic. The group of three walked around the mall for a second until they heard someone shouting. Bakugos, my man. Is that you? The three turned around, with Katsuki angry, to see Kirishima, Mina, Kaminari, and Siro running towards them. The hell do you want, shitty hair? Katsuki whispered, trying to not cause more attention on them than there already was. We saw you walking and wanted to ask if you wanted to hang out, but looks like you're hanging with Jiro and Yaoyorozu. Kirishima finished, sounding surprised. Yes, Bakugos asked for help getting Midoriya some new clothes since all he wears is crop tops, Momo explained, laughing at the end, and Kyoka smiling at her. Really, Midoriya didn't seem like the kind to wear crop tops. That's manly as hell. Bakugos sighed, rubbing his face. Kirishima, we came over here for a reason, Mina teased, smirking at her friend. Right. Well, mind if we join you then? Kyoka and Momo looked to each other and smirked. Actually, me and Jiro are heading to this super girly store, so why don't you just take him and we'll meet you at the food court when we text him. The two girls walked away before any of the others could say anything. After Izuku and Shinsuo finished at Hot Topic, getting a few shirts and outfits that Shinsuo didn't let Izuku see yet, they started heading back to the food court when they started hearing music and a crowd. Let's go check it out. Shinsuo rolled his eyes playfully before following the excited boy. When they got closer, they saw a group of people standing around two people that seemed to be dancing around each other. What's going on here? Shinsuo looked to Izuku to see him looking excitedly at the two. It's a dance battle, Shinsuo. I see these all the time on YouTube. They kept watching the two until one of them slipped up and it was clear the other had won. Someone stepped in between them and spoke. Crimson Fire has won again. Anyone wish to challenge him? Izuku looked even more excitedly as he reached into his bag and pulled out the mask, gloves, and hat that he wore in the video they posted on YouTube. He put them on, handing the bags to Shinsuo with a smirk before he walked up cockily. I'll give it a shot. The crow dude as the man in the middle smiled. You look familiar, kid. What do you go by? Golden Dragon. A lot of the crowds seemed to recognize the name. He was surprised though. Shinsu had helped him do a few more videos, but he didn't expect people to actually remember the name. Oh ho ho, seems we got a professional here. Let's see how he does without an instructor, shall we? The crowd cheered, getting more people to come over. Normal rules apply. Go back and forth 3 times. If the crowd can't decide, then it goes to round 4. Whoever slips up then is the loser. A song began that Crimson began dancing to. His movement were smooth and fast, going to the beat well. For a beginner who mostly did street. Izuku had noticed a lot of mistakes with the song choice. The crowd cheered as he finished while Izuku began walking towards the speakers where he plugged in his phone and scrolled till he found the song. As he went through the dance, he could barely hear the crowd reacting to the moves at the time, but when he finished doing a flip and landing in a crouch with his arms resting on his knees causally, he heard the crowd almost screaming, getting more people to come over. Damn, I don't think I ever seen shit like that. Who do you think won? Izuku smiled excitedly as he heard people shouting, Dragon, okay. I hear you all. Golden Dragon wins round 1. Round 2 starts. Crimson went again, this time going to rake it up. This time doing a lot better than before. Guess he's never had to try too hard. Izuku plugged in his phone again, pulling up Taki Taki. It was a classic and his students always liked it. As he danced this time, he could watch and see their reactions. It was silent until he finished and the crowd began cheering again. Damn man, you know how to break down. The crowd agreed and the vote went for him again. Looks like we know who the winner is. Crimson looked at the ground angrily before sighing and lifting their hand. You did good, Dragon. Izuku looked at it before smiling and shook their hand. You're good, Crimson. Here, go to this place. Izuku wrote down the name. They'll be able to teach you there a lot of stuff. Who knows, you might meet me again. He walked back over to Shinsuo, who looked at him shocked. Jesus, Midoriya, I knew you were good, but that was intense. Izuku smiled but noticed the phone in his hand. Did you record that? Shinsuo smirked and nodded until he looked past Izuku and looked confused. What is it? He didn't get an answer as someone tapped on his shoulder and he turned around facing some of his classmates. You're Golden Dragon, right? I'm a huge fan. That was amazing, by the way. Mina complimented. Izuku looked at her, then to Katsuki, confused before looking at her again. Thanks, really. What's your name? He already knew her name, but it was polite either way. Wow, really? Well, it's Ashido Mina, but everyone calls me Mina. Can I have your autograph? Oh, well, nice to meet you, Mina. And sure, he signed her notebook and handed it back. I have to go though. Have a nice day. He turned around and ran back to Shinsuo, dragging him to a bathroom close by. Here, put this on. Shinsuo took one of the outfits that Izuku had chosen, a galaxy crop top, for him to change since Shinsuo figured that they would run into the group again. Thanks, Shinsuo. I didn't expect to run into them. Izuku stepped out, putting the other clothes into one of the bags. Don't worry about it. Gyro texted you, by the way. They're all ready to meet up. Izuku nodded as they walked out of the bathroom into the food court. When they got there, they saw Katsuki, Kirishima, Mina, Shiro, and Kaminari all seeming to talk excitedly. Well, not Katsuki. Hey, Kakin, Izuku greeted, walking up. Who's Kakin? Kaminari asked with a smirk, looking at Bakugos, who glared at him. Hi, Zuku. Izuku smiled at him as Shinsuo rolled his eyes. Are Kaio and Momo back yet? Katsuki shook his head and took the bag from Izuku while looking at his shirts. You let him get more crop tops. We came here so he didn't. Shinsuo smirked and shrugged his shoulders. Katsuki fumed, with Kirishima trying to calm him down when Kyoka and Momo walked up. Hey guys, Kyoka greeted boredly with a smile. They all found tables and sat around getting food. So when did you guys get here? I didn't see you earlier, Izuku asked, looking to the group around Katsuki. Oh, we were walking around and saw Gyro, Yaoyorozu, and Bakugos walking around and wanted to see if we could hang with him, Kirishima explained excitedly. Izuku smiled at the group before smirking at Katsuki. Oh, Bakugos, huh? The boy blushed before hitting Izuku while the other laughed. How long have you and Bakugos been dating, Midoriya? Mina asked with a small smirk but worried glance at Kirishima. Izuku fell out of his chair while Katsuki stood up quickly. What? Both shouted at the same time. Kyoka began laughing hysterically that she soon fell out of her chair too, with Momo trying to help her up. You'd think I'd date him. My standards aren't that low. Bakugos said the last part playfully towards Izuku. Well, love you too, Izuku yelled back playfully. So you two aren't together? I would have though you were. I thought one of you was with Gyro for a moment, but I figured out she wasn't when she mentioned she mostly liked girls. Mina explained, making Kyoka laugh again and Izuku break into laughter as well. Okay, Anomi and Kakin aren't together. We've just been friends since we were kids is all. Same with Kaio, but we met later, Izuku explained as he finally caught his breath. After a moment of talking calmly between the groups, they all said their goodbyes and left, at least until Izuku stopped them. Hey, we're all actually hanging out at my house for a sleepover. Wanna join? The other group looked surprised but smiled and nodded their head. Oh yeah, We were actually doing the same thing at Kirishima's house, but his moms are fine with it, right? Kaminari asked, looking to the other boy. Yeah, they should be. What about your parents, Midoriya? Don't worry about it, I actually live by myself. He smiled at them as they began planning other things out. Oh, at 6 or so I have to go to my dojo and train. I help out the other people that go there, so people have a habit of calling me sensei. Really? That's pretty cool, man. The group began walking back to Izuku's house, with all the groups talking to each other, except Izuku and Shinsuo, who walked quietly. Hey Shinsuo, how come you won't let me some of the outfits you got me? Izuku asked, trying to look in the bags to only have Shinsuo pull them away. It's a secret. The two then began in playful banter to each other. Mina looked over to the two with a smirk. We should help them get together, she suggested, making the others look over. I don't know, Mina, maybe we should let them do their own thing, Kirishima said, sounding nervous. I know him, he won't say anything about liking the boy in a normal situation, Kyoka said, trying not to call him sensei. Really, I thought that Todoroki guy liked Midoriya, he's always looking at him, Kaminari said, sounding confused. Wait, that means it's a love triangle, and they'll have to fight for his love, Mina shouted, making the two look at her confused before going back to their conversation. I'll kill that half-and-half bastard if he tried anything funny, Katsuki threatened, making some of them laugh. See, this is why we thought you two were dating, Shiro pointed out, making Katsuki go feral. They finally made it to Izuku's house and went inside, sitting down for a minute. He, however, got ready to head into work since they had been out for a while. He grabbed a pair of sweats and another hoodie crop top. He walked out, packing a few more things into a gym bag, and walked into the living room. Okay, I have to head to work, but y'all can stay here since I shouldn't be gone that long. Are you kidding? We want to come. You're like our class cryptid, we must study you, Mina said, with Shiro and Kaminari nodding their heads. And it would be weird to be here without you actually here, Kirishima said, trying to make the others seem less nervous. Oh, okay. Well, if you need gym cloths, we have extra cloths there, or here if you want, Izuku offered. He knew they didn't have any other cloths on them. We'll use the ones there, Kirishima said, sounding exhausted as he grabbed the 3 so they wouldn't run away. After that, the rest changed and they made their way to the dojo. When they made it there, the group that didn't change went to the rooms where Izuku pointed them to, and the others went to the training area to wait for them. Yo, Dragon Sensei, can you help me on this move? One of the students asked. Izuku nodded his head and ran over to help them. It was a gymnastics move that involved hanging upside down on one of the bars, then going into a flip to land on their feet. Holy fuck, Mina yelled when they all walked out, seeing Izuku hang upside down and then go into the flip before standing there to catch the other student. Oh, you're out. Sorry, one of the students needed help with a move, Izuku explained, jogging back over to him. Can you teach me? Kaminari, Shiro, and Mina all yelled at the other teen, making him jump back a little. Sure, I don't see why not, but you'll have to talk to Haku about lessons, he explained with a smile, pointing to one of the only adults in the room. Let's go. The 3 ran over to the girl and started talking excitedly to her. Kirishima just shook his head before following them. The rest of the night went similar, with the other 4 now being students and Izuku teaching them what they wanted to know about and what they wanted to learn. After that, they went back to Izuku's house to watch movies for the rest of the night. Since there was enough room for them in the living room, they all partnered up and laid down together. Kirishima with Katsuki were laying on the ground with a blow-up mattress, Kyoka and Momo on one of the couches and Mina with them, Shiro and Kaminari on another blow-up mattress, and Shinsuo with Izuku on the other couch. The first ones to wake up the next day was Kaminari, Shiro, Mina, Momo, and Gyro. Do you think we should wake Midoriya? Mina asked, looking at the 4 still asleep. When they woke up, they saw that Shinsuo had at some point seemed to latch onto Izuku, who didn't seem to move, and Katsuki and Kirishima both holding each other. Let me get blackmail first, Kyoka said, taking a picture of them. Okay, now you can wake them up. Midoriya, hey, wake up, Mina whispered while shaking Izuku awake. What, where am I? He asked, sitting up before feeling something tighten around his waist. He looked down and saw Shinsuo still holding him. He quickly moved out of his grasp with a blush on his face. Not a word or you're dead. You wouldn't hurt a fly, Kyoka joked back, messing with his hair. I want her to fly, but I'll hurt you. He laughed as he tackled her into a hug and started messing with her hair. Okay, so what should we do today? Mina asked once everyone was awake. I'm not sure. How about we go to the park? It could be fun, Kaminari declared, almost jumping off of the couch. Oh, you're right, that would be kinda fun, Momo agreed as she stood up, already getting ready to go. Soon the others joined in and started getting ready. Izuku looked through the stuff that the others had gotten him and decided on a pair of blue ripped jeans, white shirt, and black leather jacket. Wow, nerd, you aren't wearing a crop top, Bakugos teased. And you aren't wearing Kirishima either, Izuku whispered so the others couldn't hear him. That's it, I'm killing you. The group had finally made it to the park and there didn't seem to be people there. The group split off into different areas around the park. Momo, Gyro, and Mina were sitting at some of the benches watching Shiro try to throw Kaminari to one of the swings. Kirishima and Katsuki were walking a track that went around the park and some other areas. And Izuku and Shinsuo were on the playset talking while Izuku hung and climbed random things. You just really like climbing anything you see, don't you? Shinsuo asked with a smile as he looked down at Izuku, who was hanging off of the railing. Of course, what am I supposed to do? No, climb it, he joked back as he pulled himself back up to the landing. Hey Midoriya, Mina yelled, getting the boys' attention. Come over here. The two boys walked over, seeing Bakugos and Kirishima standing with them, looking a little confused. We got a question, my mans, Shiro said, looking serious. Sure, what's up? Izuku asked. He felt a little nervous but didn't know what they wanted. We've been theorizing a lot lately, hope you didn't hurt yourself. Shush. Now we want to know what your quirk is, so what is it? Kaminari asked excitedly with a slight bounce in his stance. Kyoka and Katsuki both got defensive very quickly and stood closer to Izuku, but not enough for Mina, Shiro, and Kaminari to notice, though the others looked a little confused. Oh, I'm quirkless actually, he said with a slight shake in his voice. He already started remembering what would happen in middle school and before. Well, what? Some of them yelled, a little shocked. You assholes got a problem with it? Katsuki asked, already ready to fight them for his friend. What? No, of course not. It's actually hella manly, Kirishima assured with a smile, making the three calm down a little. Wait, then what about you not being able to feel pain? Shinsuo asked, remembering what Ida and Uraraka had said about the fight. Oh, that. It's actually an issue I have with my nerves is all. Anyone could get it, he explained with a wave from his hand. You're telling me you passed the exam with no quirk? That's so cool. I had an issue just getting through on my own, Kaminari yelled, getting pumped. Thanks, but can we not let the others know just yet? The group agreed. Of course, Midoriya, but why? Momo asked, a little concerned. He shifted from foot to foot for a moment before answering. At my old schools I was bullied a lot for it. And a lot of our classmates are scared of me and ... and I don't like it, but if they're scared of me it's better than them hating me or bullying me again. He looked at the ground a little. It was quiet for a moment until Mina spoke up. I would die for you. Before he could even react, the others tackled him into a hug, with Kyoka, Katsuki, and Shinsuo just looking at them. You're so sweet, Mina shrieked. Hey Madabro, do you have parents? Kirishima asked. It caught Izuku off for two reasons. One, he got called Madabro, and two, his parents. Oh, and oh, they died when I was younger. The group looked sadly at him, but he only smiled at them. Doesn't really bother me though. I didn't know my dad and mom knew what was happening and did everything she could for me before I died. He pushed his ear slightly, showing the golden dragon earring that covered a lot of his ear. She actually left this for me when she died. It's a way of always having her with me. He smiled sadly while the others looked like they were ready to cry. I'm your new mom. So is Momo, since she's actually functional, Mina declared, hugging him again, making the others laugh. Thanks, Mina, but really it's fine. Besides, I still have my Uncle Sashi. He just lives in America. Mina didn't let him go for the rest of the night, claiming it's her job as his mom to hold on to him. It might have also been the movies they had been watching. The group had enjoyed the sleepover a lot and had even made a group chat after almost everyone left so they could plan another one. It had been a couple days since they were back in school after the weekend, and Izuku was so hyped for everything. There was a field trip happening today and he couldn't wait. Maybe he could get to know some of the others more than he knew them already. Everyone change into your costumes and follow me outside, Aizawa said with a tired sigh, already leaving the room. Once everyone was done, they started getting close to the bus when Ida stepped up and stopped Izuku. Don't you think we should get into lines? Izuku quirked an eyebrow since he already knew what kind of bus this was. No, I mean if some people don't get along with others they should be able to sit where they want. Katsuki and Kyoka ended up sitting next to each other while Izuku sat on the lower level near them with Tsuyu and Uraraka on either side of him. It was silent for the most part, but with a few people talking here and there. What are you talking about, Kirishima? Your quirk is awesome. Tell him, Mido, Kaminari practically yelled, looking at Kirishima like he had killed a puppy. I have to agree with Kaminari here, Kirishima. Your quirk is really useful and strong. It can be used for a lot of things, Izuku said, already ready to list them off. Thanks, Madabro. But it can't really do much. Unlike you, you're an amazing fighter. Izuku blushed a little, but no one could really tell with his mask on. Not really, I could always use more work, but you guys are great at fighting. Midoriya, he turned to look at Tsuyu. I usually say what's on my mind, so we really don't know anything about your quirk except that you can't feel pain. He froze at that. He didn't want people know he was quirkless just yet. Oh, I guess you're right. So what is it? Well, he can't tell you, Kaminari shouted with a smile on his face. It makes him less mysterious, cool guy, you know. Tsuyu looked at him while Izuku rolled his eyes but silently thanked Kaminari. I guess I understand, but most of the class seems to be afraid of you since you look like a villain. Tsuyu was interrupted, but Izuku already knew what she was going to say. and had already made its mark. Everyone be quiet, we're here. Everyone quieted down and stood up, getting ready to leave. Some of the others noticed quickly that Izuku looked angry or not showing emotion, but they didn't say anything as they entered the USJ. Izuku had dissociated almost as soon as Tsuyu started calling him a villain. He felt numb as number 13 began explaining things to them. He was zoning out as they spoke, but he noticed something and felt himself move into an almost defensive stance. Midoriya, what's wrong? Aizawa asked, getting the others' attention and looking at him. He slowly lifted his hand and pointed to the center of the area. Middle, something's there. Aizawa and 13 looked and noticed something as well. Midoriya, it is unbecoming of a future hero to everyone be quiet. There was a long silence until the portal got bigger. 13, get the students out of here. Aizawa shouted, seeing people begin to get through. The class ran to the doors except Izuku, who looked on for a moment before realizing they were having trouble with the door. It had been locked. He ran over and used his staff to open it enough to get them through. Ada, you need to run to the school. If alarms haven't gone off, then they likely won't. Izuku yelled, already seeing another portal appear near them. I can't leave my class, shut up and go. You have a speed quirk. You'll get there the fastest. The portal was getting larger and he saw a face begin to appear. Go get back up. We need a hero and that's you. Ada nodded his head before speeding out with Hagakure and Aoyama as backup if they ran into anyone else. I see some of you have been able to flee. Izuku whipped around, pushing people behind him on instinct. No matter, we will make quick work here then. He didn't like that tone now. We were told that All Might would be here and he is nowhere to be found. Izuku made his staff longer again and held it close to him and steady. He could tell he was still dissociating in the weirdest way. Why do you want All Might? Izuku asked with a venom in his voice he almost didn't recognize. Well, to kill him, of course, but he isn't here. Maybe if we kill some of his children he will show up. Not on my watch. 13 activated their quirk and began sucking the portal into the black hole. But it didn't work as a portal opened behind them, starting to suck them up, taking them out of commission. Now that has been dealt with, which one of you warned the others? After all, if it didn't happen, no one would have gotten out. No one answered for a moment. Pity, I'll have to kill you all then. Izuku immediately raced forward and swung at the metal part of his body, making him dodge. I see, so it was you. Before he knew it, most of his classmates were teleported away from him and around the area while others were able to get cover from the portal. Let's deal with you now. He felt the ground around him sink, but before he fell into the portal he jumped up and turned in the air until he was caught by another portal opening and catching him. He was transported to the middle of the USJ where he saw Aizawa fighting villains. He was about to join in when he heard a voice stopping him. Now, who are you? He spun around ready to fight again. I didn't ask for an NPC. Kurogiri, where's the mini-boss? The man-child yelled, making Izuku almost want to laugh. Almost. He was the one that noticed us and warned them, letting 3 people escape. What? You let 3 people leave? If you weren't our ride back, the man declared, scratching at his neck. Izuku ignored him as he decided to jump in and getting people off of Aizawa so he could fight more freely. Problem child, what are you doing here? Izuku smirked at the name. I was teleported here by man-child over here. He answered, dodging a punch before jumping and wrapping his legs around the man's neck and punching him multiple times in the nose, quickly knocking him out so Izuku could begin fighting the others. You need to get out of here. I can't protect you while fighting them. Aizawa was about to be attacked from behind, but Izuku quickly kicked the other man in the chest, sending him down and knocking him out. Then don't. Aizawa then watched as Izuku continued to take down more and more villains without seeming to break a sweat. He was proud watching the kid fight and went back to focusing on the people rather than his student. That brat. He ignored me. Izuku smirked, hearing the man scream in rage at being ignored. Shigaraki, calm down. He is merely a pawn. The Kurogiri guy said, trying to calm down Shigaraki. You know what? You're right. He is just a pawn. It was silent for a moment, and that sent a chill down Izuku's spine, so it won't matter if we break him. Izuku turned, feeling someone get close to him, and saw the man from before. He dodged the man's outstretched hand by flipping back, landing on his hands and then flipping again before getting into a stance. This is just like my fight with Shinsu, he thought before he ran forward quickly and performed the same move. But Shigaraki wasn't as quick and got kicked in the head and his feet swept out from under him. You brat, you're supposed to be easy, the man yelled, slamming his fist onto the ground before standing up. Sorry, I disappoint. T's getting back into a fighting stance. I'm done, Namu. Izuku felt the ground around him start to shake. He turned a little to see a portal open with what looked like a giant bird beast step out. He kept looking from the Namu to Shigaraki, wondering who to focus on. Namu ... get him. Izuku saw the thing move, and right before he could have been caught, he moved back out of the way. He felt pressure on his left shoulder to see the man smiling as his costume began to flake away along with parts of his skin. Before it reached muscle though, he moved away again. Most people would have started screaming with pain ... and no worries, you'll be screaming soon enough. Izuku moved as both the villains lunged at him. Once he was far enough away, he made his staff smaller and put it away. It was getting in the way at the moment. Luckily, though, he had requested something that had been added to his outfit. His fingerless gloves that had metal at the knuckles now had something new with them. He flexed his hand, making the metal extend into claws as he made his hand into a fist. "What are you, a cat?" Izuku had to fight the urge to now, but he settled for playfully batting his hand at the man. The Namu acted quickly, though, as it was in front of him again and tried to grab at him. He jumped out of the way, but not quick enough, apparently, seeing as his leg was now bleeding and slightly purple. "Not quick enough, kitty," Shigaraki said before he laid his hand on the right side of his chest. Izuku jumped back but was then punched by the Namu, sending him to where the stairs were and coughing up blood. All Might had finally made it, but no one stayed happy long as a body was thrown close to the group at the top of the stairs. They all looked and saw the person stand up and cough before laughing slightly and pull the mask down. "That all you got, hand man?" All Might stood in shock, seeing one of his students almost covered in their own blood standing to fight. All Might didn't know how to react other than watch as Izuku ran back into the fight, seeing that Aizawa was being held down by the monster. Izuku jumped up into the air and landed right next to Shigaraki, where he punched the man square in the jaw, sending him to the ground. "How about you ignore the old man?" Some of the other students were now in the middle watching the scene before them. Katsuki and Kirishima took the chance to attack Kirigiri and keep him down, while Todoroki was in shock at the smaller teen still standing. "That's it. Namu ... kill the kid." The beast looked up, getting off of Aizawa, and stared at the teen before it began running at Izuku. "That's right, big guy," Izuku shouted before he jumped into the air and avoided the monster again. Todoroki saw the chance and froze the beast to the ground so it couldn't move. "Thanks, Todoroki," he shouted as he landed on the ground and stumbled a little. The other teen simply nodded his head and stared at the blood dripping from the other's mouth, shoulder, chest, and leg. "Midoriya, you're injured." Izuku looked at himself and chuckled a little. "Yeah, sorry, don't look too pretty." When Izuku turned around again, the Namu had already grabbed onto him and was squeezing, but Izuku didn't react. He only panted and coughed up more blood. "Why don't you scream?" the man yelled, getting closer to the gasping teen. "Sorry, hand man, high pain tolerance," he said through gasps. He looked over to the side and saw All Might standing there, shocked, not sure what to do. "You know, for how much you talk about killing All Might? What makes you so ... sure?" Izuku panted out. He could see his other classmates looking at him with worry, shock, and fear. "You ask questions now. Whatever, it's because this Namu was built to kill him. It has shock absorption, super strength, and regeneration. There isn't a way All Might can win." Izuku smirked, showing his bloodied teeth, making him look almost demon-like. "Good thing he knows now, right, All Might?" Izuku shouted, making both the Namu and Shigaraki look to where an angry All Might stood. The Namu loosened its grip on Izuku enough for him to slip out of its grasp. Taking advantage of the situation, Todoroki froze the Namu again while Izuku began fighting Shigaraki. All Might jumped down and began fighting the Namu. "You brat, you've ruined our plans." Izuku smiled as he dodged another hit to only grab onto the man's wrist and yank him forward so he would land on the ground where Izuku pinned him. That was the idea. He felt pressure on his thigh this time and saw it getting close to muscle. He jumped back, letting the guy go, who began scratching at his neck wildly. There was a loud crash before something flew through the USJ and into the sky. Shigaraki became more erratic. "Kirigiri, we need to fix this." Just as he shouted that, he lunged a hand forward, getting a hold of Izuku's throat, but not putting all his fingers down. "If we kill you, maybe it will help," he whispered as he lowered his other finger ... but nothing happened. Izuku turned his head slightly to see Aizawa with his quirk activated, even though he was in obvious pain. "You're really cool, Eraserhead." There was a gunshot that skimmed past Izuku and hit the man in his shoulder. "I have returned with heroes." The man dropped Izuku to the ground as he was shot at more. The heroes began going around and began taking anyone else left out. Izuku stood up and almost ran over to catch Aizawa before he fell back to the ground. "Aizawa-sensei, can you stand?" he asked, already helping the other hero up. "That's what I should be asking you." Aizawa wheezed out, pointing to Izuku's leg. "It's not broken. Karen just says that it's fractured and scrapped up." Izuku explained, picking his teacher up, seeing as he wasn't moving on his own. He put the older man on his back as he began running up the stairs to the other heroes. It was Present Mike and Midnight that saw them first. "Midoriya, Aizawa," they both called, getting the attention of some of the students and Nedzu. "He has a head wound, broken arm, and heavy blood loss," Izuku explained, setting the teacher down gently. Midnight placed her hand on Izuku's uninjured shoulder, making him jump. "Midoriya, you need to lay down. You're losing blood and you're heavily injured," she said, trying to make him relax so he could get help. "I can worry about it later." He reached into his utility belt, pulling out medical supplies and handing them to the other pros. "Take these and check on the student." He turned to Present Mike. "Help him. His head is the worst, and if we can stop the bleeding, it would be better." The heroes looked at him for a moment before going to do what he said. He looked down and saw his own leg still bleeding. He grabbed the edge of his shirt and tore part of it off and used it to wrap his leg. He then went over to some of his classmates that made it to the entrance. "Are you guys okay?" He asked, crouching down a little to look at 13. Midoriya, are you alright? Tsuyu asked, obviously looking at his own wounds. He didn't even look up at her as he looked them all over. I can worry about that later. Is anyone here hurt? They all shook their heads, no letting him stand up until someone stopped him. Midoriya, you're injured, Todoroki said in a cold voice. Part of his body was a little frozen over form using his quirk. And I'll worry about it later. He tried to move but felt his feet stuck to the ground with ice. Todoroki, unfreeze me. No, Izuku glared, but the other teen didn't move a muscle. The two didn't break eye contact until someone tugged on his arm and he looked down. I will deal with this, Todoroki. Go with your classmates. Todoroki nodded his head, unfreezing Izuku's feet, making him stumble a bit. Now Midoriya, you need to stop moving before you make your injuries worse. I need to make sure everyone else is okay. Nezu understood then that he was in a teacher hero mode. Everyone is okay. You're the only one injured besides Aizawa and All Might. Izuku looked down to Nezu for a moment before someone yelled to him. Midoriya, are you okay? It was Shinsu, who looked a little panicked with the sleepover group behind him. I'm fine. What about you guys? I didn't see you throughout the fight, he said, even though he could feel the blood loss getting to him. You're not fine, Mido. You're bleeding out, Kaminari yelled, throwing his hands into the air. I'll worry about it later. He slurred a little as he stumbled forward, making Shinsu catch him. Sure, Mr. Teacher, let's just lay down for a second, okay? And we'll tell you about all the cool stuff we did, Shinsu said, looking to the others. They needed to keep him awake somehow. Shinsu's right. Somi, Momo, and Gyro were in the mountain's own right. After the attack on the USJ and everyone was looked over, or anyone that needed to be looked over, they gave their statements and then were picked up by their parents to go home. All the students had been let go almost immediately except, of course, Izuku. He had to get treatment for his wounds and healed, though Recovery Girl wasn't able to do much without possibly throwing him into a coma. She was able to heal any internal bleeding or puncture wounds, though, before he was sent home. Now he only had bandages wrapped around the left side of his back going down halfway, the right side of his chest looking the same, with one of the legs fully wrapped top to bottom, and the other only on the thigh. Since he wasn't in pain or anything, he had walked home once he was let out. He was laying on the couch with shorts on and no shirt, so he could see any bleeding from the wounds and could rewrap it. The chat had been blowing up from the others wondering if he was okay and that they couldn't come over because of their own parents. He had told them it was fine since he was feeling fine and didn't look terrible, so he was surprised when there was a knock at the door. He stood up a little weirdly, almost falling, and threw on a sweatshirt before answering the door. Who is Uncle Sashi? Izuku yelled before tackling the older man into a hug. Whoa there, little dragon. Don't hurt yourself. He laughed as he hugged his nephew back. When did you get here? Why are you here? He asked, letting the man inside and trying to help with his luggage, but Hisashi wouldn't let him. I'm here because someone got hurt. And the sports festival is soon. I want to see my little dragon win, Hisashi explained, but Izuku was the hidden smirk. You also want to scout out people, don't you? Hisashi laughed with a little smoke dancing at his lips. Yeah, you're right. I can't help it, Izuku. Izuku only laughed before hugging Hisashi again. Now sit down. I'm going to mother you. Izuku tried to protest, but Hisashi didn't let him. Fine, okay, I'll sit down. Hisashi nodded his head, going into the kitchen and getting some food out to make. Unknown, hey, this is Bakugo, right? Bakugo, what the hell do you want? Unknown, it's Uraraka from class. Bakugo, and I'm busy. Uraraka, you don't have to be so rude. I just want to know if Midoriya was okay. Bakugo, why the fuck would you want to know? You and half the extras avoid the nerd and treat him like a fucking villain. Uraraka, I know, and we're all really sorry, Bakugo. Bakugo, it's not my ass you need to apologize to. Talk to the nerd. Uraraka, right? That's why I texted. Me and some of the others wanted to thank him and apologize while we had time. Do you think his parents would mind if we came over? Bakugo, fucker lives alone, but he's not busy and shit. Make a group or whatever and we'll talk there. Uraraka, this is everyone that wanted to go to Midoriya's and thank him and apologize. Hagakure, yeah. We feel really bad and he still protected us. Ida, while I wasn't there I would still like to apologize. Bakugo, who the fuck is all here? Tsuyu, Ribbit. Shoji, me. Koda, hello. Takoyami, present. Ajiro, me. Sato, me. Aoyama, moi. Bakugo, right? Whatever, let me add the other fuckers so we can coordinate and shit. Bakugo added Kaminari, Siro, Ashido, Shinsu, Kirishima, Gyro, and Yaoyorozu. Bakugo, they want to thank and fucking apologize to Zuku. Uraraka, I'm sorry, what did you call Midoriya? Bakugo, shut the fuck up or I won't help you. Kirishima, sorry about him, but sure will help. When do you guys want to head over to his house? Yaoyorozu, this is fantastic. I can pick everyone up who doesn't have a ride. Izuku was siding up more now while eating food with Hisashi on the other couch. It had been pretty silent, but they never felt the need to talk a lot around each other. They finished eating and Hisashi sighed, leaning into the couch a little. So little dragon, how has UA been besides the USJ? Hisashi asked, making Izuku perk up. It's been a lot of fun. I even have more friends besides Kaio and Kaken. There's Shinsu, he's really cool and calm and his quirk is mind control. There's Momo and she's really smart and excitable. She can make non-living things with her quirk. Kaminari's really cool too. He has electricity and likes memes and stuff. Same with Zero. His quirk is tape and they're a fun duo. Then there's Mina. She's like their third member and she has acid she can chew out. And then there's Kirishima. He's really cool. He can harden his body. But don't tell Kirishima that Kaken likes him. They would be really good together, and Kyle likes Momo. He explained a few more things, but Hisashi couldn't be happier. What about the rest of your class? At that, Izuku got a little sad but tried to smile anyway. Most of them avoid me. Apparently they think I'm a villain or something. Hisashi stood up quickly, confusing Izuku. That's it, I'm burning their homes down. Wait, don't, Izuku said through laughs, tackling the other into a hug to stop him. Fine, you little monkey, but I'll tell them a thing or two if I ever see them around here. The group had parked a little ways from the house, so it would be more of a surprise. They were almost there when both Kyoka and Katsuki stopped, making the others stop too. What's wrong, Bakugos? Kirishima asked a little worriedly. Is that his car? Kyoka asked, looking serious, scaring the others. It is, that fucker. Both took off running with the others following. What are they talking about? Uraraka asked worriedly. I'm not sure, Momo responded. The group had slowed down, but the two were now at the door, banging on it with wicked smiles. The door shot open, revealing a man with black curly hair, yellow eyes, and wearing mostly black. He looked intimidating with a glare to his features and having smoke leave his lips. At least until he broke out into a smile and grabbed the two into a hug. Base booster, Pomeranian, it's good to see you. The two hugged him back and laughed. Uncle Sashi, it's been a while. Good to see you're still alive, old man. He set them down and ruffled their hair before seeing the group of people looking confused. What are you all doing here? He asked. The group didn't miss the glare and fire leave his lips. This is our class. They wanted to. The extras wanted to thank and apologize to the nerd. Hisashi stared at the group before stepping out and closing the door. He walked up to the group and looked at them all. Who's Shinsu, Momo, Kirishima, Mina, Zero, and Kaminari? The six raised their hand and Hisashi smiled at them. Thank you for being there for my nephew. The six were about to speak, but Hisashi didn't let them, however. The rest of you are on thin fucking ice. The group all looked shocked, but he smiled again. Now let's go inside, shall we? The little dragon just got done with food. He's quiet, intimidating, Takoyami said as he followed the man. I thought I was gonna die, Kaminari cried out. When Hisashi answered the door and then walked out, Izuku was really confused, but he guessed it was someone from work or something, so he didn't pay it any mind. He looked at his phone and didn't see any texts and thought about texting the group until the door opened again. Now, everyone get comfortable while I get drinks. Any requests? He was now really confused until he saw just about everyone from his class walk in. What the fuck? He asked quietly, seeing the group. Language, Hisashi said as he walked into the kitchen. Everyone came in and sat down in different places. Hi. What are you all doing here? Shinsu, Kyoka, and Katsuki all sat on the same couch as him, while Zero, Mina, Kaminari, Momo, and Kirishima all stood or sat around the couch. Well, we wanted to apologize. Uraraka spoke before everyone else. She's right. The way we treated you Midoriya was unbecoming of a hero. Ida spoke, bowing. You guys really don't have to, Izuku said a little worriedly. We do though, Kiro. I called you a villain, then you saved our lives. Tsu said. I agree with Tsu. The energy around you is untainted with the demon's arms. Everyone looked at Takoyami weirdly until Shoji spoke up. He means you're a good person. You all really didn't need to do this. I get it. I can be a little intimidating if you don't know me. You could have just started talking to me. He laughed out at the end. Hisashi came back out and handed everyone their drinks before sitting on an open chair. Well, it was nice of them to, especially when I wanted to burn their faces off, he said in a cheery tone, making the others jump. He's joking. He wouldn't do that, Izuku reassured, taking a drink from his water. But since you're all here, you want to do something. I'm kinda bored sitting around all day, he said, standing up and stretching his arms above his head. Oh, let's go to the park or something. It could be a good bonding experience, Momo suggested, almost jumping up and down excitedly. I don't know, guys. I don't exactly have the money for it. Uraraka spoke. I'll cover you. Katsuki, Kyoka, Momo, Ada, and Izuku all said at the same time before looking to each other. It's fine, I'll cover her, guys. After all, we're friends now, Izuku said, linking arms with Uraraka and leaving no room for argument. Little dragon, don't you have work? Hisashi asked. Nope. They gave me work off since I'm injured or something, he said, waving his hand like it was nothing. Wait, you're still injured? Uraraka asked, moving a little, finally noticing the bandages. Shouldn't you be resting? Ajiro asked, looking him over now. Nah, I'm fine. He then walked over to his room and fished out a pair of black ripped jeans, a white shirt, and a green zip-up hoodie before pulling his hair back. We must go to the darkest of realms. He wants to go to Hot Topic. Shoji translated again. We do. I heard they got a new shipment of banned merch in. Izuku cheered as he came back to the room. You like Hot Topic? Takoyami asked, a little surprised. Of course. They have really cool cloths and I can only find bands that I like there really. Plus I've been meaning to get some new piercings again. He explained, fiddling with his ears a little. Well then, let's go. When it came to the driving situation, pretty much everyone waited for Momo's limo to arrive to take them to the mall. They had finally made it to the mall and separated into different groups. Group 1 had Bakugos, Kirishima, Kaminari, Mina, Shiro, Momo, and Jiro. Group 2 had Takoyami, Shoji, Izuku, Shinsu, Uraraka, Tsuyu, and Ida. Group 3 had Aoyama, Kota, Hagakure, Oijiro, and Sato. They all went to different shops promising to meet back up at the food court around 2 p.m. So Midoriya, what do you do for fun? Uraraka asked, since none of them really knew him in the group other than Shinsu. Oh, well I like to run, dance, train, listen to music, that kinda stuff. What about you guys? Izuku asked with a smile. I enjoy running and training as well. Ida answered while waving his arms like a robot. I like to read and draw Kiro. I enjoy working out. I really like hanging out and helping my parents. I like to summon the darkest demons and listen to their calls. He means he likes listening to music with emotion. Shoji translated again, making the group laugh a little. I like playing pranks. They all paused before seeing a shadow bird appear out of Takoyami. He sighed and rubbed his face. Sorry about him, Izuku cut him off with a gasp of amazement. He's so cool. It's like a friend that never leaves you. Does he have a name? Izuku asked excitedly, shocking everyone except Shinsu, who only smiled and rolled his eyes fondly. My name's Chad. You're cool. We're keeping him, Chad declared, making Takoyami sigh again. We're not keeping him, Dark Shadow. But he's so nice. Izuku blushed a little at the compliment but laughed nonetheless. Midoriya seems a lot more happy and upbeat than I thought. Hagakure cheered as they walked around the mall. Yeah, he also seems pretty strong. Wonder if he'd want to train with me sometime. Oijiro wondered. The animals seemed to like him too, plus he understands sign. Kota sighed excitedly to Sato, who translated to the group. Yeah, seems awesome. I should make him a cake. That would be perfect. He also seems to be a man of style as well, Aoyama said with a sparkle around him. I don't get why I'm stuck with you extras, Katsuki complained, even though he could have left at any time. You know you love us back, you babe, Mina yelled while jumping onto the blonde, making him growl at her and the others laugh. Of course we got stuck with the loud people. Kyoka rolled her eyes while Momo giggled. You have to admit they're fun at least. Kyoka smiled and nodded her head. Oh my god, they actually have it. Izuku screamed with stars in his eyes as he ran up to a small setup. What is it? Uraraka asked, a little curious as she followed him. It's merch for a band I really like. They're called Water Parks, he explained excitedly. You like them too? Takoyami asked, looking at the merch too. Are you kidding? I love them. The rest of the mall trip went like that, with them all meeting up at the food court. No, you guys missed it. Okay, so we were walking and in Bakugos tripped so Kirishima ha. Mina couldn't even finish her sentence as she burst out laughing while Kirishima tried to hold Katsuki back. So Kirishima caught Katsuki in a dip and then said, I think you fell for me. Kyoka finished trying to not laugh as much as Mina was while the others burst out laughing and Katsuki screamed at them. Hey little dragon, how was the mall with everyone? Hisashi asked as Izuku walked through the door, taking his shoes off. It was really fun. Everyone was so nice to me too, Izuku said as he flopped onto the couch. Good, now let's have dinner. The next morning when Izuku, Katsuki, and Kyoka walked to school, it was silent most of the way there except when they got closer to the school. How do you think it's gonna be after the USJ? Kyoka finally spoke as they walked through the gates. Maybe the school upped security, Izuku asked, looking up. Doubt it. They'll probably do some stupid fucking show of power to show we aren't scared or some shit. Kaken is probably right. They finally made it to the classroom, but they didn't miss the looks other students were sending them. Hey guys, Uraraka called as they walked into the room with the rest of them waving. Hi, how was the rest of your guys' break? Izuku asked, setting his stuff down. It was quite well. How are your injuries? Todoroki perked up slightly at that and looked at the group. They're fine, just some scarring is all. He shrugged his shoulders casually even though Katsuki and Kyoka were glaring at him. Really? How bad were they? Kiro, Izuku had to think about it for a second. Well, I didn't feel anything obviously, but the doctor said if it was a normal person it could have turned out worse. He said happily like it was supposed to be a good thing. Everyone in their seats. Everyone jumped seeing Aizawa standing there covered in bandages. Though it could have been worse, he could have looked like a mummy. We have something coming up. Everyone felt themselves on the edge of their seats. The sports festival. Almost the entire class jumped up and started cheering. Katsuki rolled his eyes and muttered that he was right, while Izuku looked slightly worried. Quiet down. When everyone calmed down, Ida raised his hand. Yes, Ida. Are we sure this is a good idea? We were just attacked by villains. Yes, Nedzu believes us doing this even after a villain attack shows that we're stronger than ever. I don't see how it's logical though. Now today, what do you think about the festival, Midoriya? Shinsu asked while they all chatted in the classroom. I mean, I think it makes sense, but doing this also makes us vulnerable. Ada nodded his head. I would have to agree, but I trust UA to make the proper precautions. Izuku smiled and nodded his head in agreement. What about you? Uraratsu stopped in the middle of her sentence, seeing Uraraka with a serious face that looked borderline scary. I hope everyone does their best, she almost demanded while pumping her fist into the air. She did it to everyone until they joined her. When it was lunch, the class tried to leave but the door was blocked. Hey, why are you blocking the door? Kirishima yelled as he couldn't exactly leave. Isn't it obvious? Shitty hair. They want to get a look at the competition. Katsuki growled out, now move out of the way, extras. Kaken, Bakugo, you can't keep calling other students extras. He's right. Everyone stopped and looked at a blonde standing there with a smirk, though I don't see much competition. Yeah, you think just because you're in class that you're better. Another student yelled. Just because you got attacked by villains doesn't make you special. Katsuki glared at the blonde before pushing past him. You're right, just means we actually have experience. The Bakugo squad followed after the teen with worried looks. Sorry about him. Kaken Izuku didn't get to finish as the blonde shoved him slightly. You must be the demon of 1A. That stopped everyone, the people outside of the door whispering while the rest of the class seemed shocked. Though you don't look very powerful. The blonde leaned down so only Izuku could hear. After all, you're just a quirkless nobody. Izuku's eyes widened. Back up, asshole, Shinsu said, getting in between the two. Shinsu glared at him as the two, along with Uraraka, Ida, and Tsu, followed after. Izuku was still a little out of it as they all sat at lunch. Mido, are you okay? Uraraka asked. She seemed to pick up the nickname. Izuku jumped a little and laughed nervously. Yeah, I'm fine, sorry. He just got on my nerves a little. What did he say? Kiro, Tsu asked, feeling worried for her new friend. Nothing really. He just knew something about me that he shouldn't have, was all he gave before changing the conversation. Todoroki had listened into the conversation and he glared down at his food. Everyone had been tense the past couple of days. With the sports festival coming up, they were all training so they could do their best. Most of them trained at the school, but Izuku, Kyoka, and Katsuki all trained at the dojo, while the other two trained more while Izuku worked and did his job of teaching. You nervous? Shinsu asked, as they all waited in the locker room. Izuku looked at him and nodded, more like terrified. He laughed a little at the end to try and lighten the mood, but it didn't seem to work as Todoroki walked up to them looking serious. Midoriya. The boy looked to the other a little confused. In almost every aspect I'm stronger than you. Izuku jumped a little. The words Monoma said to him ringing in his ears, but you seem to have caught some hero's eyes. You've also taken charge in accidents. So, consider this a declaration of war. I will beat you. The room was silent for a moment. Oh, come on, man. We're all here as friends. So Kirishima was cut off as Todoroki pushed his hand away. I'm not here to make friends. It was silent again until Izuku smiled. Well, this is a competition after all, and we're all here to do our best, so consider your declaration accepted. Todoroki. Welcome everyone to the first year's sports festival. Midnight screamed into the mic, making everyone else around them start cheering. Now, as per usual, to start off the festival we have the student who scored the most points. Or should I say students. So will Midoriya, Izuku, and Bakugo Katsuki come up here? The two walked on stage, with Katsuki standing with a slouch and Izuku standing straighter. Izuku stepped up first. I hope we all have fun and we can do our best. No giving up. Plus ultra. The stadium cheered and even a good portion of the students joined in. Katsuki walked up to the mic. I promise ... to win. That got cheers from the crowd, but all of 1A yelled at him for being rude while the other classes seemed ready to riot. Okay ... Now that that's done, let's get to the first elimination round. The two walked back to their class with Izuku keeping his head low while Katsuki smirked. The first round is ... an obstacle course. Everyone stood ready to run through the gate. Izuku was low to the ground, ready to slip past people as the timer went down. Go. The gate opened as people began to run and push, trapping some people against the walls. Wait, the tunnel is the first obstacle. He turned to see Kyoka and Shinsu lagging a little behind. He glared a little as he grabbed their wrists and somehow weaved himself and them around the group of people. They emerged just in time to see Todoroki freezing the robots and running past as Kirishima and someone else were stuck under them. The other two ran ahead while Izuku picked up a piece of shrapnel and tied it to his back. Some people gave him weird looks as he started to run to the next obstacles. When he came to the wires going across the pillars, he smirked. He would always practice his balance on even smaller things. This would be easy. He ran and crawled across the wires. He was lagging behind a bit, but it didn't stop him from smiling. He finally got to the mines and saw Katsuki and Todoroki neck and neck. He began digging up the mines without setting them off into a pile, even if he was getting weird looks for it. Once he had enough, he got into position before slamming the metal and himself against the mines, making a huge explosion, sending him all the way to the front. He got into position with a feral smile. He planted his feet on the two teen boys before slamming down the metal, setting off more explosions. Sorry, Kaken. Sorry, Todoroki. He laughed out as he rolled and stood up and started to run again. Damn it, Zuku. He heard Katsuki yell as he crossed the threshold and appeared on the other side of the finish line. And the winner of the first round is Izuku Midoriya. Once everyone made it back, Izuku was happy to see that all of his friends had made it past to the next round. Sensei, that was amazing. Kyoka quietly yelled as she tackled him. You fucking nerd. You used me as leverage. Katsuki shouted as he put Izuku into a headlock and gave him a noogie. Kaken, stop. I said sorry. Izuku giggled as his friend let him go. Some of the others congratulated him while others glared at him. Now, the first 42 students, please come this way. The large group approached while the others left. The next round will be a Calvary battle. Everyone looked around confused until she continued. The rules are simple. There are the horses, who are used for carrying the leader. The leader will be wearing a headband with point values on them. The point values work with the last people having the lowest and so on, but first place gets 1 million points. Everyone immediately turned to Izuku with a death glare, making him shrink back a little. Izuku was frozen. They were supposed to group up, but no one wanted to group up with him because of the points, so he was left with no one until, hey Mido, do you want to partner up? Uraraka asked with a smile. Izuku breathed out and hugged her. Uraraka, thank you so much. She only laughed at him a little. It's really no problem. After all, friends should stick together. He smiled and nodded his head. Even if they hadn't been friends for super long, they were still close. Hey Ida, wanna join us? Uraraka asked, but Izuku already knew he would say no. I'll have to decline. He turned more towards Izuku. They're not the only ones who see the target on your back, Midoriya, and they aren't the only threat. Izuku smiled innocently as he tilted his head. I'm aware, Ida. He grabbed Uraraka's hand. Come on, I think I know someone else. But okay Mido, I trust you. Just as they walked away, a girl with pink hair and goggles approached them. Well, hello Mr. 1 million. I have a business proposition. Izuku was a little stunned. If you let me join your team, we can use my babies to win. Uraraka blushed at the word babies, but Izuku knew what she meant. After all, his uncle was the same. And what do you get out of this? He asked with a smile. Well, Mr. 1 million, since everyone will be going after you, everyone's eyes will be on you. So when they see you using my tech, they'll want me. May Hatsume at your service. She offered her hand and Izuku shook it. Midoriya, Izuku. Now we only need someone else, and I think I know who. Thank you for allowing me on your team, Midoriya. Izuku only smiled as he tied the band onto his head. It's really no problem, Takoyami. I was just glad you accepted. Now does everyone remember the plan? Izuku asked with a smile. Avoid people as much as possible. Use my babies to make us hover. Be a guard. Izuku nodded his head with a smile. Perfect. The alarm went off telling them to start. Immediately most of the groups went for them up. The four flew into the sky, avoiding the other teams as some of them ran into each other. You can't hide up there forever, Zuku. Katsuki shouted before he went to other teams. He's right. I can't hold us much longer. Izuku smirked before turning to her with a smile. That's okay, Uraraka, drop us. Todoroki couldn't wrap his head around Izuku. At first he just seemed like a delinquent that would have been kicked out. Then he was someone who protected others no matter what, and now he was someone friendly. We can't just win by avoiding people. The three nodded their heads in understanding, so let's get a few headbands before someone gets ours. Everything had been going smoothly. They had headbands from other teams, and enough that if they lost their own they wouldn't be out right away. But now that they were down for a long time, more teams were going after them, at least until a circle of ice surrounded them, separating them from the rest of the teams. Crap. Mido, what do we do? Uraraka asked, a little panicked. They already had a broken hover boot. They couldn't take another hit. We avoid them as best as possible. Izuku thought about his options, and I need you to trust me. You got it. You haven't hurt one of my babies yet. You've protected us. I trust you with my life. Of course, Mido. Let's do this. Izuku watched the team closely. They had already had Kaminari attack, and if he attacked again he would be a liability. Momo couldn't do long range since she knew Izuku could dodge. And Ida ... it was Ida. When I jump, I need you to get behind them ready to catch me, okay? Hatsume cheered with excitement while Takoyami nodded his head. What do you mean, Mido? Izuku spared her a glance. I need you to trust me. Uraraka looked at him for a moment before nodding. The moment was short-lived though, as Izuku saw Ida powering up his jets. Now, he jumped as the group came racing to them. His own group started to move while he was still in the air. Time seemed to slow as Izuku came face to face with Todoroki. He saw flames dancing out of the corner of his eyes, but paid it no mind as he smirked, taking most of the headbands from Todoroki's neck before using his shoulder as a springboard and flipped to his group's arms again. Mido, he got the 1 mil. Uraraka pointed out, making Izuku look up and sigh. I'm so sorry guys, I was able to get some headbands though. He tried to lighten their spirits even though they seemed happy. Don't worry, we can still win Midoriya. Birdie's got it right. I'm not giving up. Yeah, Mido. Besides, even if we don't get first, what matters is we got in. Izuku smiled at his new friends until he heard someone scream and make it over the wall. Zuku. Izuku turned with a devilish smirk, meeting Katsuki's eyes, who seemed to get the message and instead turned to Todoroki. Time's up. Izuku almost burst out laughing as Katsuki hit the ground a little less than graceful. And the teams going into the next round are Team Todoroki, Team Bakugos, Team Shinsu, and Team Midoriya. The three cheered while Tokoyami simply nodded. That was amazing, Mido. That move you pulled, flipping over Todoroki even though he was on fire. Uraraka cheered as she jumped up and down. She's right. You didn't even get injured. Izuku tried to hide the flinch. He had gotten injured. Sure, not bad, but his palm was red. I couldn't have done it without you guys trusting me ... so thanks. He smiled sweetly at them. Well, was all they said, making him confused. Did I do something wrong? No, it's not that. You're just ... so bright. Tokoyami tried to clarify. That doesn't Midori. The boy turned around a little surprised to see Todoroki standing there. I need to talk to you ... I in private. The two stood opposite from each other in the tunnel. Izuku felt nervous as hell. He almost wanted to say no when the other asked. That was some move you pulled, Midoriya. Izuku chuckled a little nervously. It surprised me enough to use ... his side. Yeah, I guess it would surprise anyone really. Yes, but I didn't expect it from a quirkless person. Izuku turned rigid. Todoroki, what do you? My father always said that quirkless people were weak, useless things. Guess he was wrong, but when isn't he? Izuku stared at the boy, not sure if he was trying to joke or not. You surprised me, made me break a vow. Izuku continued to look at him confused. I vowed to never use my left side. I didn't want to use his quirk. Have you heard of quirk marriage? Izuku stood there in shock. Of course, he never liked Endeavor for the way he acted. But the fact that he treated his family like that was terrible. As a teacher ... he needed to tell CPS it was his job. But that needed to wait. Todoroki. The boy looked up slightly and moved his hand away from his left side. I'm sorry ... none of that should have happened to you, your mother, or your siblings. I can't say I understand it, the feeling, but ... it's not his power, and I will show you that. Wow ... such youth. Dropping out to give other people a chance. That's so sweet. But we must continue, so the people going into the finals shall be. The list showed along with the matchups. Midoriya versus Monoma, Todoroki versus Shiro, Ada versus Hatsumi, Yaoyorozu versus Tokoyami, Ashido versus Aoyama, Uraraka versus Bakugos, Kaminari versus Ibara, Kirishima versus Tetsu, Shinsu versus Akabane. Izuku waited in the tunnel again. He was nervous for his fight. Last time he had talked to the Monoma guy, he had gotten under his skin. Midoriya. Izuku jumped a little at seeing Aizawa. I have a question. For the announcements, Mike tends to say their names and quirks. What do you want said? Anything really. But I want the quirkless part saved for if I get a little further. Aizawa nodded his head in understanding before leaving. Though it wasn't long till the signal for them to enter the ring was heard. On the left side, we have Izuku Midoriya, known as the Demon of Class, and who got first in the obstacle course without the use of a quirk. The stands cheered, though Izuku could mostly hear his friends cheering for him. And on the right side, we have Monoma Nito. From Class B, though we haven't seen much, he'll be a surprise. Izuku could see the sneer on the blonde's face. Whatever, let's get this over with quickly. Izuku got into a fighting position while Monoma seemed to try and imitate it. Go. Izuku raced forward quickly, aiming a punch to the other's stomach. But it didn't meet as the other's arm blocked it, but the arm was hardened. Let's see how that feels. Izuku jumped back as the other aimed a kick at him. How is that possible? Izuku asked quietly as he got ready to attack again. This time, though, it was acid that was aimed at him. He jumped back with a part of his uniform being burned off. Stop dodging and actually fight me, Monoma yelled with an almost crazed smile. Those are Kirishima and Mina's quirks, which means ... he can copy quirks. Izuku ducked under a fist before punching the other in the stomach. The skin had hardened, but he was still pushed back with the air knocked out of him. How did you? Monoma was cut off as Izuku swept his feet out from under him. You can copy quirks. That's how you knew I was quirkless. You tried to copy something that wasn't there. He looked to his hand and saw the knuckles bleeding and bruised slightly. You think you're so smart because you figured it out. Doesn't matter, I'll still beat you. Izuku dodged again and pushed the other back more before grabbing his arm and flipping him onto the ground. Midoriya wins. Monoma is out of bounds. The blonde punched the ground and grunted. Damn it, I was supposed to beat you and show you that Class B is better. Izuku smiled and offered a hand to the other. You did, you made it this far, right? The blonde glared and pushed Izuku out of the way. Whatever. You need to be more careful, young man. You could have damaged your hands worse. Recovery girl scolded Izuku as she healed his hands and wrapped them. I'm sorry, ma'am. I'll try to be a little more careful. She nodded her head but didn't seem to believe him. Mido, are you okay? Uraraka asked when he finally made it back to the watching stands. Yep, just hurt my hands a little is all. He sat down and saw it was Shiro versus Todoroki next. Do you guys think Shiro will win? Kaminari asked. I think so, if Shiro can get him out of bounds quickly, Mina explained, pointing to the two. Izuku stared at the teens for a moment. I don't think so. Most people gave him a look before he explained if Shiro could get the drop, maybe, but he can't. Todoroki will probably just freeze him so he can't move and win that way. Katsuki and Kyoka knew he was in teacher mode then, but the others seemed almost angry at the analysis. Once the fight started though, Izuku saw something in the way Todoroki was acting. He was angry. So when he activated his quirk, Izuku stood up. Duck. Most of them did, but the ones that didn't barely dodged the glacier that came at them. After the break, Izuku decided to look for Todoroki. He wanted to help the other, but something had set him off before he went on. You there? Izuku turned to see the number 2 hero and had to fake a smile. How can I help you, Endeavor? He didn't hide his glare though as he looked down on the hero. You've been able to beat my son in all of the competitions. You've proven to be a formidable opponent, but you're just another stepping stone for my creation. Izuku smirked. You know, if someone ever told a teacher about what you've done, they would have to report it. What are you if Todoroki or any of his siblings told someone about all the things you've done to them? Then you could go to jail for child abuse. Izuku could see the slight panic in Endeavor's stance now. You brat. You can't what? Tell you the facts. I can though. I'm a teacher, not here of course, but I still am, and it's my job to report that sort of thing, and if you try to do anything else, well, that wouldn't look good now, would it? Izuku stepped past the man before he spoke again. And Todoroki isn't you. He's better than you in a lot of ways. I plan on helping him. He took a breath before waving bye Endeavor. He walked back to the stands and waited for the next rounds. The rest of the fights went like that, with Ida, Takoyami, Ashido, Bakugos, Ibara, Kirishima, and Shinsu winning. The next lineup will be Midoriya versus Shinsu, Ida versus Ibara, Bakugos versus Kirishima, Takoyami versus Ashido, and Todoroki will get a small break. Midoriya stood in the tunnel stretching again. He'll try to get me to talk, but there isn't much he could use. Well, no, he wouldn't. And now, on the right, we have Midoriya Izuku again, the demon of Wana who has been beating everyone so far. And on the left, we have Shinsu Itoshi, another student of 1A, though we haven't seen much of him. He somehow made his opponent walk out of bounds and give up. The two stood across from each other waiting for the signal. I'm glad I'll get to fight you, Midoriya. Izuku smiled. He knew that he wasn't using his quirk yet. You can call me Izuku, Shinsu. After all, we are going to be fighting soon. Shinsu smirked and nodded his head. Then you can call me Hitoshi. Fight. The two ran at each other ready to hit the other. Izuku grabbed onto Shinsu's arm and flipped him over his shoulder. Shinsu stood up quickly and swung a leg at Izuku, who dodged again. You're really impressive, Izuku. Shinsu knew he wouldn't respond but talked anyway though. You and I both know you're still worried about being quirkless. That made Izuku falter slightly, letting Shinsu get a good hit in. You were then ... but why? You're an amazing fighter, you have good friends, a fantastic teacher, but you still see yourself as weak, so why? Izuku felt his lips twitch as he kicked the other in the stomach a little too hard. Sorry. Are you? His brain clouded over as Shinsu took control. I did hit a nerve it seems, sorry about that, but do me a favor, walk out of bounds. Izuku's feet moved on his own as he did what Shinsu told him. Why can't I stop? He tried to move his body, but it was like he was dissociating. Wait, that's it. It's like dissociating. Okay, how do I normally get out of it? He felt and saw the memories flow through his head. Zuku, you there? Katsuki hit him in the shoulder, making him snap out of it. So I need something to hit me, but nothing can. God, what else? He saw more memories until one settled on a picture of his mom and she was singing. Mom. It was like a shock had gone through Izuku. He snapped out of it. He turned almost violently to Shinsu, who jumped back a little, and he snapped out of it. Shinsu looked shocked and sorry. Izuku were crying. He lifted his hand to his face and wiped away the tears before running at Shinsu again. The two went back and forth, but it seemed like Izuku was hitting harder than before until he was finally able to get the other back out of bounds. And Midoriya wins. Izuku sighed and walked over to Shinsu with his hand out still. I'm scared ... That's why, Hitoshi. Shinsu looked up shocked as Izuku smiled sadly at him. Izuku, come on, I hit you pretty hard, let's go to Recovery Girls. He helped the other teen up. He took a step forward as Shinsu watched him. Izuku, who hurt you? Well, he'll be okay, but you both should go back and watch the rest of the rounds. The two walked silently down the halls as they made their way back the sitting area with the rest of them. Wow, Mido, that was crazy. You fought amazingly. Kaminari complimented as they both sat back down. Thanks, Kaminari, but Hitoshi did really well. He almost beat me, Izuku teased as he nudged Shinsu in the side. Hey Mido, how come they didn't say your quirk? They've been saying everyone else's. Izuku smiled and put one of his fingers to his lips. It's a secret, but don't worry, in my next round they'll say it, I'm sure. After that, everyone left them alone, but the sleepover group seemed almost nervous about Izuku's quirk being announced. Once everyone's rounds were over again, they waited for the next ones to be announced. And now, we will have Midoriya versus Todoroki, Bakugos versus Takoyami, and Ida will be getting a break. But don't worry, third place will be decided in a special way. Izuku sighed as he stood up. He of course knew that Todoroki would likely win, but not before Izuku helped him. You know Midoriya-one would fault you if you dropped out now. Izuku smirked as Todoroki talked. Yeah, true, but where's the fun in that? After all, in the left area, we have Todoroki, the powerhouse who has frozen most of his opponents. I'm not scared, Todoroki. Izuku smiled as Present Mike announced the best part. And in the right, we have the quirkless demon of Wano who hasn't lost yet. When Present Mike announced it, he could hear the crowd and other people seeming shocked. He's quirkless. How can they let him compete? He's gonna get killed. Fight. Todoroki did the same as before and tried sending ice to freeze Izuku to the ground. He smirked and dodged the ice and ran towards Todoroki. You're getting predictable, Todoroki. Izuku dodged another ice wave and got closer to Todoroki. I won't use his fire. Izuku glared, sending a kick to the other side, making the teen fly back before he stopped himself with his ice. When are you gonna get it through your head? Izuku got close enough again and punched the other in the stomach, but got a frozen arm in return. You know nothing, Todoroki shouted, sending another wave of ice that Izuku wasn't able to dodge. It was silent as the ice hit. Izuku reared his hand back and slammed it into the ice, making it break enough for him to get breathing room before running back and getting close to Todoroki. I really don't, Todoroki. He threw Todoroki over his shoulder. I don't because my parents are dead. I didn't have anyone, and I didn't have a quirk either. He punched the other again and gasped in breath. God. I was bullied. I went through hell. I know I don't know anything about what happened to you, but you know nothing about me. Todoroki finally stood up and seemed almost lost in thought as Izuku got into a fighting position, even though his knuckles and arms were frozen, bleeding, and bruised. It's your quirk, damn it. Not his. Todoroki froze again. Izuku let him. Fire began to dance Todoroki as he smiled. Izuku smiled back as the fire got bigger. You're crazy, Midoriya. Izuku chuckled a little as he got ready to run and fight again. I know. The two ran at each other as people seemed to scream. Thank you. The flash was bright. The wind pushed against everyone until it was all gone. And Todoroki wins. The other teen seemed shocked as he saw Izuku leaning against the wall trying to breathe. He didn't waste time though as he ran over to Izuku and made sure he didn't fall over. Wow, good job. You actually used it. Izuku chuckled at the end as Todoroki smiled. Well, you helped me. You're very injured, Midoriya. You're lucky that you can't feel pain though. Izuku chuckled nervously. Isn't the first time I've heard that. Todoroki stood awkwardly in the corner as he watched the other talk to Recovery Girl. Now, your hands look awful. I may even have to do surgery, especially on the burns. Izuku looked even a little shocked to see them. Midoriya, you can call me Izuku. Todoroki paused a little shocked. Well, I just fought you so I assumed we were. You can call me Shoudo then. Izuku smiled and nodded, and I was wondering if I could talk to you in private, please. He looked at Recovery Girl who sighed. I'll give you time, but I'm sure his friends will want to see him before he goes into surgery. Todoroki nodded as Recovery Girl stepped out. What is it, Shoudo? Izuku asked as the other sat down next to him. When you were screaming, you said Thaddeus went through a different kind of hell. What did you mean? Izuku looked down at his bandaged hands. Exactly what I said. I didn't have someone abuse me or pushing me constantly to do something, or hurting my mom or siblings, but I didn't have a dad. He died before I met him. I don't have a mom because she died of cancer when I was 11. I was bullied constantly for something I couldn't control. I only had 2 friends for most of my life, until now. So I'm sorry for what happened to you. You didn't deserve that, but I'm here for you. Todoroki seemed shocked before pulling the other into a hug. Thank you, and I'm sorry. Izuku pushed him away a little and looked confused. Your hands and arms. You need surgery because I couldn't hold back. Izuku glared and held Todoroki's face in his hands. Shut up. I didn't want you to hold back. If I was worried, I wouldn't have done it. Mido. Oh my god, I thought you died. Kaminari yelled as they all busted into the room. I didn't. I'm okay. He laughed, trying to calm down the panic he saw. Of course, they were focusing on his arms, so he moved them so they were more covered. I should probably go. Todoroki waved before leaving the room. You did really good. Are your hands okay? Momo asked, picking one up for a moment. Yes, they're fine. Now go. Enjoy the rest of the competition. They all looked to him before nodding. Fine, but I'm gonna kick Katsuki's ass if he loses to Todoroki. Kyoka joked as she walked out. The rest of the festival went well for the most part, but it didn't matter as they were now back in the class, or at least Izuku thought they were. Midoriya. Izuku stopped his conversation with the group and turned to Aizawa. Nezu needs to see you in his office. Izuku was a little shocked. It wasn't even the beginning of class. Sure, everyone was there, but they still had about 30 minutes till it actually started. He walked down the hall nervous about what the principal needed. Maybe it had something to do with the sports festival or next week's internships. He knocked on the door before entering, surprised to see Haku sitting in the office looking disheveled. Haku, is everything okay? Nezu turned to the boy. I assume you remember the last time she was here we talked about a week where you would need to be at the dojo all day. Izuku's eyes widened and he face-palmed. I completely forgot. I am so sorry, but I'm ready. Do I need to go now? The two nodded. Don't worry, I can drive you there and the others will help out where they can. Okay, thank you Principal Nezu for allowing me to do this. He bowed before running out the door to grab his bag and possibly tell the others. When he made it to the classroom, he didn't expect everyone to be seated and listening to Aizawa. Sorry, I had to grab my stuff and Aizawa lifted a hand. The principal has already informed me. Don't worry and get out of here. Izuku nodded and grabbed his bag and ran back out the door. Now, back to what I was saying. This next week we'll be going to a local dojo to learn more on hand fighting and etc. So today you'll all be in your gym uniform, but for the next week come to school in comfortable clothes that you can move well in. The class stood up getting ready to go with Katsuki, Kyoka, and Shinsu all sharing a smirk. When Izuku arrived at the dojo, he thanked Haku before she drove off. He sighed as he entered into the building. There was the normal hum of music and people training even though it was early in the morning. He waved to Ash at the front desk before going to the changing rooms. He slipped out of his uniform and changed into white yoga pants that had the seams open but sewed loosely by black ropes, a thin strap black tight crop top that had fabric making an X on his stomach, a white flat bill hat, white fingerless gloves, and a black medical mask for when he knew he would record a video with his students. He threw on a black jacket knowing he might want to hide the scars from his students still. Once he was out of the changing room he was tackled by Tama who was excited to see him in the morning. Tama, be careful. What, I didn't catch you? Izuku asked even though he was now holding the older teen in a bridal carry. I knew you would catch me. Besides, I haven't seen you that often. Only on weekends, but since you're here in the mornings for a week. There was a pause before the whole group shouted, the OG students are back. He couldn't help but laugh at them for a moment as they all calmed down. Okay, everyone. Warm-ups in 3 laps. Then a small break, then roundabouts. The group shouted a mixture of yes Midoriya-sensei and yes Dragon-sensei. As he watched the group begin he walked over to the other side, knowing Tama or Sakura would get him once they're done. He walked to the front of the building and stopped at Ash to check in with her. Anything new? He asked. The two had actually talked a lot since he ended up helping her with self-defense. Yes, actually, Haku has left you with a class from a school that will be coming here to learn. The older woman smirked as Izuku groaned. Are you kidding me? What are they here to learn? He really hoped it was fighting, even though he loved dance. Both you're here to learn fighting ... and dancing. Izuku shot up. What? Why both? He could already feel the embarrassment already. You should know, you fight and dance, it's all about rhythm. She smirked as she turned one of his own lines against him. I hate you so much right now, Haku even more now. Ash laughed at him. He sighed as he went over to the aerial silks and began slowly performing on them while his class watched, even though they were supposed to be running. The class all talked about where they might be going as they sat on the bus. It's probably some super cool gym full of technology. Kaminari cheered, throwing the idea out to the bus. I don't think so. Maybe it's a simple little place. Uraraka looked happy nonetheless. It is a shame that Midoriya can't attend. Ada pointed out. The class seemed a little bummed. Why couldn't he attend though? Todoroki asked, though the question was pointed at Katsuki, Kyoka, and Shinsu. The 3 smirked, but didn't say anything. Sensei, we're done, Sakura called as Izuku fell before the silks caught him close to the ground. He fully unraveled himself and smiled. Great, we'll start with roundabouts then. The two walked to where everyone was sitting, seeming to finish their small break okay. Everyone pair up. Roundabouts. The class cheered, already getting into pairs they worked well with. Izuku waited till everyone was ready and looked to the person at the DJ station. Hey Jay, they were originally from America, can you get the roundabout playlist up? They nodded as they set everything up. Midoriya-sensei, can you join in the groups today and lead them? One of the students asked. He turned to them a little surprised. Are you sure? It's been a while since you've danced with me leading. He was proud how far they came. Yeah, come on, join in, join in. The group started chanting. Okay, I'll lead in them, but that also means it's going to be harder. He smiled with an evil glint. And maybe the class regretted asking for him to join them. They all got into a half circle with Izuku in the middle before a thought popped into his head. Is it okay if I record this? It would be fun to have on my channel. All the students agreed, allowing Izuku to set up his phone to record it all along with putting his face mask on. It was typical for the person leading the groups to do one song solo before other groups started jumping in. The first song started playing and Izuku felt the song go through his body before he started. As the song went on, he could feel his students watching. He ignored it though as he swayed slightly back and forth like a walk before jumping into the dance. He moved like he was going through water before stomping his feet during the dance to the beat and letting his hands go through the air and on him. He could hear his students cheering still. "Dirty Dancer's back," one of them shouted, though it just made Izuku move more to the beat with a smile, though the students couldn't see it. Once the song began to fade out, he felt two people get next to him and smirked, seeing Tama and Sakura. The two were inseparable. The next song came up and they began following Izuku's lead. The class finally arrived at the building and the sleepover group, minus Kyoka, Katsuki, and Shinsu, looked shocked. They looked to the three who all gave a gesture to keep quiet as they entered the building. "Good morning. You must be Class A. My name's Ash. Our owner isn't here at the moment, but one of our teachers will be leading you through everything." Aizawa nodded, as what seemed like a student passed by before gasping. "What are you two doing here?" Tama looked at Kyoka and Katsuki, who both smirked. "Oh Tama, perfect timing. You're all doing roundabouts right now, right?" Ash asked, getting the others' attention. "Yep, Sensei's killing it like always." "Is this the class?" Ash nodded her head. "Okay. Then follow me and I'll explain what's happening right now with the class on the way." They began walking with the class looking around. "So right now Dragon Sensei is leading us through roundabouts. Those are when we get in a half circle and dance to music while Sensei leads the dances. Here, watch." He opened the door and they could already feel the thumping of the beat and the cheering. As they fully entered, they saw someone dancing in the middle with fluid motions before two girls hopped in and started dancing to the song. Once the group heard the song, it looked like he was going to scream about the language in the song. The class watched the three dance and switch positions throughout the dance. "Wow, they're all really good." Kaminari cheered as they watched. "Yep, the one in the black and white is our sensei. You'll love him." Tama had a smirk on his face as the song slowly played out. The person in the middle seemed to cheer since it was the last song. They talked to the people in the group for a second before pulling down their medical mask. "Midoriya." The boy jumped and turned to the class surprised. "Sensei, you know them?" Akihiro asked as she leaned on his shoulder casually. Class, this is Class 1 from UA, they're my classmates." Izuku introduced, still feeling on edge with them now staring at him. "Wait, Midoriya, what are you doing here?" Uraraka asked, now in the boy's face. "Oh, well, Haku had to leave for a family emergency, so I'm taking over for the week," he explained, rubbing the back of his neck. "Midoriya, holy fuck, you can get it." Kaminari cheered as he nudged the boy, making him blush. "I assume you guys are here to learn fighting and dance?" Izuku asked a little awkwardly. "Correct," Aizawa answered, taking some of the attention off him. "Oh Hawk, this is going to be a long week," he whispered to himself. "Okay, since you guys are here for dance and fighting, let's get started. I'll have the class show you one of the dances they all do in sync and give you a feel of it. Then we'll do some light sparring and go from there." Izuku called to his own students, getting their attention. "Sensei, can you join in? We want to do," the student whispered in his ear and he blushed. "Seriously, is it your guys' job to make this difficult?" he asked, a little annoyed, though he was laughing a little. Haku said if we made it fun she'd let us have a lock-in. Sakura called with a high five from Akihiro. "That's a lie, but yes it is," Tama answered with a smirk. Izuku glared at them. "Fine, Kyoka, can you DJ?" Izuku asked, looking at his student. "Sure thing, Sensei." The class looked even more shocked. "What track?" "Tantrum." Kyoka got the most evil smile on her face. "I'm recording this. I hate you so much." As the group waited for her to take over Jay's spot, they got into formation with Izuku in the front while he talked to Class 1A. "Usually when we do this I just watch and help show mistakes and better ways to move without hurting yourself. It also helps with teamwork actually." The music started up and they all moved in sync. Once it got to a slightly slower part, Izuku and another student hopped to the front as the back group moved for the next part and began dancing on their own before hopping back over and finishing the dance with one last stomp. The group all cheered as the song faded out. Izuku turned to his class with a blush even though most of them looked amazed. "Holy fuck, I am so gay," Shinsu whispered from next to Todoroki. "Same." The two looked to each other before nodding and understanding. "Yeah, so that was a group one, but a lot of what we do is pairs or smaller groups." He turned to the other students that were still talking. "Go over the dance from last week." The group shouted a yes, Sensei, before getting back to work. "Okay, now we can go over to the fighting side. Kyoka, let Jay do their job." "Yes, Sensei." She hopped over the railing and joined her class, who looked even more confused. They began walking over to the other side of the building, and the class seemed amazed at all the things in the room. "This is more of the training side. We have a rock wall, track, aerial silks. We have more specific workout rooms, but this is also just the general area. We have an obstacle course too. But over here," he led them over to a branched room where mats were all laid out, is where we'll be doing some sparring. Now, he walked over to one of the middle mats while shrugging off his jacket and throwing down his hat before turning back to the class. "Who wants to go first?" The class was silent until Kirishima stepped up. I'll go. Izuku smirked, already having a plan. Great. You are allowed to use your quirk of course since this place has the proper papers for it, so go all out. Izuku explained in a happy voice as the two got into a good fighting stance. Good stance, Kirishima. Izuku called Aizawa-sensei, can you tell us when? The other man nodded as he stood more off to the side. Go. As soon as he called, Kirishima ran forward ready to punch. Izuku pretended to try and dodge but got hit on the side of his face. Once it landed, he staggered back and hit his face in his arms and shook. Holy shit. Are you? Kirishima got close enough for Izuku to grab his arm and pull him forward before kneeing him in the stomach and throwing him to the ground. He then pinned him to the ground so he couldn't move. That was a good hit. But if you let your opponent trick you, there's no point. Izuku then helped the other teen up and turned to the class. Now who can tell me what he did wrong? Izuku asked. Todoroki raised his hand and Izuku nodded to him. He let himself get too close and let his guard down. Izuku smiled. Right. Now who wants to go next? And yes, you can still use your quirk no matter what. Kaminari raised his hand this time and stepped up. Let's do this. Izuku smirked again, getting into a different stance than before while Kaminari got into a more open one. Interesting stance, but a good one. As soon as Aizawa said go, Izuku charged forward and swung his leg low, making the other trip in surprise and making his quirk shock Izuku. Though he didn't react as he pinned the other to the mat. Nice job. If I had gone for a more obvious hit, you would have gotten me. Izuku helped the other up, who seemed a little confused. Wait, Midoriya, I hit you with my quirk and you didn't react. Izuku looked confused. Well, yeah, I can't exactly feel it. Wait, he turned to the class. Did I not tell you I can't feel pain? That made the class even more shocked. What? Uraraka yelled, though she should have remembered from the first training exercise. Uraraka, Ida, you were there and found out during the first training exercise. The two looked away since they both forgot. Doesn't matter. Anyway, since I want to do one more before going into the other stuff, Kakin, will you do me the honor? Izuku asked as he offered his hand like they were going to dance. I would be honored. He humored him but still glared. Kyoka took a step back since she knew how they fought. Aizawa didn't even get a chance to say go since as soon as Katsuki took Izuku's hand they started fighting with the blonde using his quirk right away. Wow, Kakin, you didn't start with a left hook. Izuku teased. Oh, you wanna die then. The class took a step back as the two went at it. Holy shit, he's going against Bakugos all out. And he's totally jacked, Kaminari pointed out as Izuku dodged again. After a couple minutes they were away from each other. Okay, calling that one a tie then. Izuku clapped his hands as they both stood down. Let's go and start with the first training. Izuku picked up his jacket and hat. He led them back to where the others were still dancing to some music that was playing. But this time it didn't look like the roundabout. It looked like they were all just dancing. Guys, over here. The group all paused before cutting the music and running over to them. What's up, sensei? Hiro asked, leaning on Akihiro. We got newbies, you know what that means. The group all looked shocked before cheering and jumping around. J. Play club night list. They nodded as the music started playing. The group of dance students all started jumping and screaming the lyrics to the song with excitement, with Izuku coming before turning to the other class. Come on, loosen up. The Baka squad was first to move and join the other students, followed by Uraraka and Tsu, who were dragging it in. Slowly more and more of the class joined in, leaving Todoroki and Shinsu to stand a little awkwardly. Come on, you two. Izuku grabbed both their arms and dragged them in before starting to hop and yell just like the others. The lights were dimmed with a few colored ones popping up. Some of the less social ones were dancing a little awkwardly, but the other students were helping them loosen up a little. After the little party they had, everyone in Class 1 seemed a little more relaxed than before. Okay, that was mostly to get you to loosen up a little, and it seemed to work. Izuku noticed as the class seemed a little more lively. Hey sensei. Izuku turned to Hiro, who looked tired. Do you think we could do another dance? It's really fun. Izuku smiled and nodded his head. Sure thing, but you need a break first. Make sure everyone drinks and eats some food. Hiro nodded and went back over to the other group of students. What now, Midoriya? Aizawa asked. He honestly hadn't done much. Well, we have gotten people to relax a little, so everyone either pair or group up. No less than 2 people and no more than 3. The class looked around before beginning to group up. After a minute everyone seemed paired up. Katsuki and Kirishima, Mina with Shiro and Kaminari, Kyoka with Momo, Ida with Uraraka and Tsu, Ajiro and Hagakura, Aoyama with Takoyami and Shoji, Kota and Sato, and then Todoroki and Shinsu, though both seemed a little awkward around each other. Izuku looked at them all before walking closer to Todoroki and Shinsu. Okay, now, I'm gonna try to teach you some simple choreography, then let you practice it. At the end of the day we'll see how well you all did. Izuku then led them over to the middle to try and teach them a beginner's dance. He ran through it a couple times before he started walking them, though it with him helping out groups on certain parts. Same going for his other students helping. Once the class had gone over it a couple of times, it was finally time for a break and some lunch. Were we supposed to pack something? Uraraka asked, a little nervous. Nope, I was gonna order pizza, so who wants what? Izuku asked, pulling out his phone. The class got a range of things and multiples of each. Are you sure you want to cover this, Midoriya? I can help, Momo offered. It's okay, I can pay for it just fine. The class all nodded and Izuku was about to join them when one of the students stopped him. Oh, Sensei, Izuku signed, already knowing what was gonna happen since you're here. Why don't you make it up to us now? Class looked a little confused while Katsuki and Kyoka started dying of laughter. Fine, just hand them to me. He rubbed his eyes and left his hand open. When he was given the shoes, he glared really. The two in front of him nodded. He sighed before kicking his shoes off and putting the heels. They were black boots with a higher than normal heel and fabric that went to his knee. You look great, Sensei, one of the students chuckled. Just because I'm wearing heels doesn't mean I won't chase you, he warned with a glare, making the three run back to the class. Whoa, Todoroki and Shinsu said at the same time as Izuku simply strutted back to his class and crouched down to talk to Uraraka about something. Damn, Mido, work it, Mina called, making the boy blush and glare at her. Okay. Well, while we're waiting for food to come, he smirked before standing up straight. I'll show you guys our Parker area. The class followed, though most of them screamed when he climbed up one of the walls and casually hung off one of the rails. Most people use this place to try and get better balance and climbing. He stopped hanging and instead balanced on the railing using his heels, but it can take some time to get good at it. He jumped off and went into a roll before standing in front of the class again. Holy fuck, Kaminari yelled at the stunt. Izuku smirked again. You can also use the rock climbing for that in the aerial silks. Izuku wrapped one of his arms around it before beginning to climb up. Once to a certain point, he wrapped his legs around them and hung upside down again, though these tend to be more advanced and take longer along with years of training. He fell out of them again before walking the class back to the front and going back to his dance class for a moment. Holy shit, Mina voiced everyone's thoughts. Did you see that? He did that. And heels. This explains so much now. He's a god, Uraraka yelled with a lot of the others agreeing. I wonder how advanced his fighting is, Ajiro thought. You kidding? He could probably beat All Might. The class dissolved into praises at that point while some of the others stood off to the side simply watching. Bakugos, him and Jiro turned to see Todoroki and Shinsu looking at them. Has Izuku always been like this? Katsuki was a little confused by the question. Half and half. If you're talking about him being an idiot, then yes. Todoroki looked a little confused. Okay, then what the fuck do you mean? If you're talking about his dancing and fighting, then yes again. Shinsu sighed. He means, has Izuku always shied away from compliments? Shinsu finally explained. Katsuki had to think about it for a minute. Yeah, nerds never understood that shit. Oh yeah, first time I told Sensei he was amazing, he started mumbling about how useless and terrible he was. But when I asked about it again, he acted like nothing happened. The other two seemed a little shocked, but Katsuki nodded his head. The fucker does that sometimes. The four looked to him as he watched some of his students run through more choreography. Sensei, he turned to the girls, can you do the dance with us? Izuku looked at the song, seeing it at heels. Sure thing. He tossed his phone to Shinsu. Can you record it? The boy nodded, already getting ready while Izuku put his jacket, face mask, and hat back on. Him and a few of the girls stood in front of the mirror as the song began. The class looked on in shock as he danced with the girls effortlessly in heels, not even stumbling for a second. Once the song faded out, people started cheering more and throwing around high fives and hugs. Wow, Izuku, that was amazing, Todoroki commented with Shinsu nodding. Izuku blushed and rubbed the back of his head. It really wasn't. The girls did most of the work really. Neither got a chance to argue though as someone called and entered with the pizza. Hey Mido, how long have you been a dancer? Kaminari asked. They were all sitting in a circle now eating. Ever since I moved here, saw since I was 4. He asked, looking to Katsuki who nodded. Well really, no wonder you're so good. He mumbled something though they couldn't hear him. Once it got closer to the end of the day for the class, Izuku stood in front of them. Okay, now everyone back into their pairs or groups, then everyone in front of the mirror, time to see how good you did. Everyone seemed nervous but ready. So when the song began they all started. At the end of it Izuku looked proud. You guys did amazing. You did better than most beginners. The class seemed happy at the praise. Hell yeah. Thanks Mido. Izuku nodded as the group began talking before Aizawa took over. Remember, we'll be coming here for the next week, so in the mornings come here instead of the school so we can begin as soon as possible. The class nodded and cheered as they got ready to leave. People packed up. They noticed Izuku was still talking to Katsuki, Kyoka, and Shinsu. What are you guys up to? Uraraka asked, making everyone look over to them. Well, I still have to teach today. Kaken trains here. Kyoka is one of my students so she still has to train, and Hitoshi spars with me. Izuku explained. The class all looked at each other. Can some of us stay too? Toru asked this time. Izuku lit up. Of course. If you guys need dinner I have my uncle coming to drop some food off, Izuku said with a small cheer. Everyone decided to stay at that point. Some even talked to the other students and sparred or danced with them. Dragon, wake up. Izuku heard Hisashi call from the kitchen. He rolled his eyes as he finished washing his face and changing. I've been awake longer than you, Uncle Sashi, Izuku teased, poking the other man in the ribs. Oh, you think so? Well, get ready. You have to be at the dojo early, right? Izuku nodded his head since he had food in his mouth. Great, I'll drive you. Been a while since I've seen you dance, little dragon. Izuku swallowed before looking at the man in confusion. What are you talking about? You've watched my videos. Hisashi rolled his eyes and ruffled the other's hair. That's different. I haven't seen you dance in real life for a while. Plus, I want to see your classmates. I haven't seen them since you all went to the mall. Izuku glared at his uncle playfully. Yeah, and you threatened most of them. Hisashi pretended to look offended. What I would. Who told you? Izuku laughed as his uncle glared. No one, Uncle Sashi. Can we take Kaken and Kaio with us? Yeah, sure. When will they? He was cut off by the sound of a knock on the door. Never mind. Izuku smiled as he opened the door. Hi, Kaken. Hi, Kaio. Morning, Sensei. Sup, nerd. He let the two in so they could grab some food. After a minute, Hisashi picked up his keys and spun them on his finger. Come on, you little demons. Time to go. Once they made it to the dojo, Izuku had to unlock the place since it wasn't normally open on Tuesdays. He never knew why, though. They walked into the quiet building and put down anything they had while Izuku unlocked and turned on everything. It wasn't long either till Class 1A and Aizawa showed up, though the class was a little lost until they heard someone shouting. Okay, I give. They all walked over to the sparring area and saw Katsuki and Kyoka losing it while Izuku had a man pinned to the mat. Take it back then, Izuku yelled playfully. Never. Izuku pushed his arm higher, making him yelp a little. Okay, I'm sorry. You're my favorite. Izuku got off the man. Damn right, old man. The class was even more confused now. Izuku turned and saw them and smiled. Hi. Didn't see you guys come in. Who's this? Aizawa asked as the man stood up. I'm his uncle. You can call me Hisashi though, but most of you have met me. Some of the class shrank back, remembering his threat when they first met him. Right. You're all already dressed. So let's start with stretches. Once they had all finished with stretching, Izuku had them all get into pairs, this time for sparring. He was with Todoroki since he had noticed something about the boys' stance yesterday. Okay, we'll be doing quirkless fighting since a lot of your guys' stances are for your quirks. We're gonna try to come up with a stance that makes it easy to use your quirk, but also easy to switch to hand if needed. Izuku explained. Wait, why would we need that? Kaminari asked. Well, say you were fighting someone and your quirk didn't work against them. Or you had to do close combat, but you have a long-range quirk. It lets you get close while not leaving yourself defenseless. Izuku walked closer to Todoroki and stood right in front of him. Shouto, what would you do if someone got this close? Todoroki stared at Izuku for a moment. I would activate my quirk and force you back. Izuku nodded his head. In a fight that works once, the second time the person knows what's to expect next. Izuku explained, stepping back again, then pointing to Kirishima. If me and you fought again, what would you do? The redhead was cut off guard and froze for a second. Would let you attack first, and not let myself worry about if I did hurt you until you're actually knocked out. Izuku smiled and nodded. Good job. Now, while you all fight each other without quirks, I'll see where I can help. Then we'll get to the next lesson. He turned to Todoroki. Go ahead and show me your stance for when you use your quirk. Todoroki nodded and shifted so his feet were turned and he was slouching a little. Izuku walked around him for a second before standing in front of him. You shift your weight to the right side since you're used to using UIs. Try to keep it even on both sides. Todoroki shifted a little. Put your hands in front of you like this. Izuku mimicked the stance while Todoroki copied. Bend your knees a little so you're lower to the ground. The boy nodded and got into the stance Izuku wanted him in. What else? Izuku smiled and turned to his uncle. Uncle Sashi, can you spar with him while I go to the other students? His uncle nodded and walked up. He saw the slight panic in Todoroki's eyes and patted his shoulder. He's not Endeavor. Trust me, he won't hurt you. Todoroki nodded his head as Izuku walked away. He walked around the groups and stopped certain ones and helped them with their stances or show them moves that would work for them. After a few hours of them working on that, Izuku stopped them so they could have a break while Hisashi went and bought food. That was a very interesting lesson, Takoyami stated as he sat down. I would have to agree, but it did make me feel very elegant. Shoji rolled his eyes at Aoyama. The class then all began talking about certain stances they had taken or what they thought they could add or help the others. Izuku smiled at them since everyone seemed more relaxed as they all sat together. He walked over to the front desk and pulled up the cameras and watched everyone fight. He analyzed their styles and what exactly their pattern and rhythms were. What are you doing, problem child? He jumped a little, hearing Aizawa next to him. Oh, I was looking at their fighting styles and patterns. Even if they were fighting quirkless, you can predict when they were going to use their quirks by the movement of their muscles and when they leave themselves open. Aizawa looked a little shocked at the boy. Why are you analyzing them? Aizawa asked, a little curious now. Everyone has a rhythm, a tempo sort of. If you can figure out that tempo and predict it, then that person is either going to lose or change their tempo. You can know someone's prepared to change it when the rhythm of their movements changes randomly. If someone's faster than you, slow it down. If someone's stronger than you, speed it up. Aizawa nodded his head along as Izuku explained it. And what do you want to do with theirs? Izuku smirked. I'm gonna change it up a little. Once everyone was finished with food and ready to get back to training, Izuku had them all stand in a half circle as he stood in the middle. He crossed his arms and smirked at them. You're all predictable when it comes to fighting. The class seemed a little shocked at his bluntness. When you came in Monday, you saw me leading my class in something called roundabouts. We're going to do something similar. He walked over to the speakers and plugged in his phone. Once the music starts, either one or two of you will jump into the circle and we'll start sparring. You either end the spar by making it to the end of the song, pinning me, or I pin you. If you win, you go to the left side of the circle. If you lose, you go to the right side. So, the music's bass almost shook the floor as it started. Who's going first? To his surprise, Ojiro was the first one to step out. The fight almost lasted to the end of the song, but Izuku had gotten an opening when Ojiro almost used his tail. Izuku grabbed his arm and pinned him just as the song ended. Hisashi stopped the music as Izuku helped the other boy up. Once he was out of the circle, the music started again, and this time Kyoka jumped out and the two began fighting. The second punch she threw, though, Izuku caught and used it to spin her before pinning her to the ground. The fights went on like that. Not even Katsuki had won his fight, but he was one of the people that got close. Now who can tell me what they saw? Izuku asked after he downed a bottle of water. No one ever actually landed a hit on you. Sato spoke in disbelief. Good. And he looked to everyone else. You never actually punched back. Takoyami added. Yep. It took me 10 minutes of watching you all fight to find your pattern and rhythm. None of you changed your rhythm no matter what. He unplugged his phone and walked back to the middle. Each time I fought one of you, a new song came on. A lot of them have fast tempos, but they all change slightly, enough to not be noticeable to the normal person. So Kaio, tell me what I did. The girl smirked. Each new song, your fighting style matched the tempo. You were changing it each time you fought someone. He smiled. Fantastic. Now everyone take a short break. The rest of the day went on like that, with them switching from fighting each other to Izuku trying to help them learn how to change their pattern. It was the last day for class. Wanted to go to the dojo and have Izuku as a teacher. They were all excited to start the day off again since Izuku had mentioned a surprise for them. What do you guys think it'll be? Uraraka asked. Oh, maybe it'll be a party, Mina suggested. I don't think so. It'll probably have something similar to the first day, Todoroki suggested. They walked into the dojo and saw a few people wandering around, but they were all carrying tables, food, and machines. The fuck? Katsuki asked out loud as they watched everyone. Wait, it's Friday, Kyoka shouted with an excited smile and jumped slightly. What is that? Oh hell yeah, Katsuki shouted as the two high-fived. I am so confused, Shinsu commented watching them. Kaio. The class turned to see Izuku waving to them. He had a pair of black cargo pants tucked into black combat boots, a tight black laced-up crop tank top, a black leather jacket, black fingerless gloves, a black beanie, and finally a black mask. His jacket and pants all had chains hanging off of them along with the sides of his mask. Please tell me you're DJ tonight. Are you kidding? How could I miss this? Izuku hugged her before turning to the class. Surprise. Every Friday we have a night where we all dance and do competitions for fun. It's how this place gets its income, and I'm inviting you all to come and watch or even join. He explained quickly. Are you kidding? A huge party. We're not missing this for the world. All of the class agreed and added their own comments. Great. Today's gonna be a little different since it's the day we prep for it, so you all sort of get a break. You can practice, spar, train, anything really. If you want to help set it up, by all means do. Dragon, time to wreak some havoc, baby. The class saw someone in a similar outfit to Izuku's, the only difference being they wore jeans and a t-shirt. Heard you loud and clear, Arson. He turned back to the class. Right now I'm working with my team since we open and get to compete tonight. You guys can watch. A few of his classmates followed as he walked while others began helping people move things. You gonna introduce us to your friends, Dragon? A girl in a black outfit similar to the others asked. Sure thing. These are my classmates. I was teaching them this week and they're gonna come see us. He explained. I appreciate the darkness that consumes you all. Shoji wasn't there to say what he meant, but the dance group all smiled. Thanks. We decided to do black since it matches with the dances. Takoyami seemed a little shocked that they knew what he meant. Well, we need to start working soon. But for context, we all have stage names that we use. Mine's Zombie and I'm the leader. A girl explained. That's when the class notices they all had bands around their arms with different colors and names on them. I'm Crystal. Name's Jaws. Arson. Call me Ak. The group was mostly girls minus Izuku and Ak, it seemed. Nice names, Todoroki commented. He was being genuine. Okay, Chains, we gotta practice. Luckily though, our favorite DJ is here. Zombie shouted as Kyoka ran up the stairs to the DJ booth. Ready when you are, Z, she called, already set up at the booth. Dragon. Izuku turned to her. Havoc. Riot. Danger. He nodded. Everyone, let's do Believer with Dragon and Jaws behind me. The group all got into position with Zombie in front. The class was in amazement watching the group. They were all in tune with each other to the point that it was almost scary. Since it was around lunchtime, Zombie had called it and given them the rest of the day to practice and relax since it was a competition night. Dragon, if I catch wind of you overworking, I'm killing you, Zombie threatened as she walked out the door to get food. Don't worry, I won't, he called back as she left. After a moment he stood up and stretched. Hey Ak, you know how many rounds we got today? The boy nodded. We got the 2 team ones and then dance battles with the other group, but you have to defend your title tonight. Izuku turned almost violently. What? I thought that was next weekend. What's he talking about? Shinsu asked from next to the boy. Every time we have something called Champion's Turn. Each week there is a new champion. After a month they all face each other and whoever wins they go against the reigning champion from last month. Dragon here has never lost, Crystal explained to them. Huh, that's pretty impressive, Midoriya, Ajiro commented. Thanks, it's choose again, right? Izuku asked, receiving a nod. Yep, gotta keep it fair. Most of the class had gone out for food or were still helping some people set up. You guys wanna go out for food? Izuku asked the group in front of him, which consisted of Ida, Uraraka, Tsu, Bakugos, Jiro, Momo, Kirishima, Mina, Kaminari, Siro, Shinsu, and Todoroki. Most of them smirked before answering. Nah, I think we'll order something. Yep, we're good. Why don't you take Todoroki and Shinsu with you? Izuku quirked an eyebrow at them. You mock? You two wanna go? The two nodded as they stood up. Great. Do either of you want to change first? Shinsu was wearing a black hoodie with gray joggers while Todoroki was wearing black joggers and a light blue t-shirt. Nope, I'm good. Izuku giggled as the two followed after him. They both have it bad. Oh, for sure. The three walked down the street with Izuku mostly talking about how excited he was about the party that night. I haven't been this excited in a while. I'm glad you guys are gonna be there. He grabbed onto both of their hands, making them both blush a little. Of course, Izuku. Wouldn't miss it. Izuku smiled before letting go of their hands. I know a good cafe over here and there's a park nearby too. The two followed after him as he continued talking. He was walking backwards talking to them when he bumped into someone. Oh my gosh, I am so sorry, are you okay? He asked before noticing who it was. Midoriya. Izuku jumped at the voice and the other boys automatically stepped up a bit. Holy shit, it's actually you. Figured you'd drop dead by now. Izuku flinched again. And who are you? Shinsu asked in a cold voice with Todoroki glaring at the guy. Oh, me and Midoriya used to be in the same class before he somehow got into UA. The guy explained. Right, we'll be leaving, Todoroki said, pushing Izuku a little with his hand on his back. Wait, are you actually friends with this quirkless loser? That's hilarious. The guy began laughing, making Shinsu and Todoroki glare more while Izuku shrunk back a little. Yeah, we are. You got a fucking problem with it? The guy stopped laughing and looked at them with a small glare. You know the guy was cut off as his eyes glazed over. Turn around and leave. Once we're gone you'll forget this ever happened. The guy turned around and began to walk away. Itoshi, you can't use your quirk on someone like that. Shinsu turned with a smirk. I have no idea what you're talking about. He's right. I don't remember running into anyone either. Izuku glared at both of them before laughing a little. You're both terrible. They continued on their walk and got food before sitting at the park. Who was that guy anyway? Shinsu asked. Izuku looked down for a moment before laughing a little. Since I'm quirkless, I was bullied a lot as a kid. Kakin and Kaio tried to help but it didn't work since they weren't with me all the time. So I got beat up a lot too. Both sat there a little shocked. How come you never told anyone? Todoroki asked this time. Well, if you're a teacher that ignores bullying in your class and blames it on the quirkless quiet kid, who would you believe started a fight? Shinsu looked a little guilty this time. Shit, so all that stuff I said at the sports festival, I'm sorry, Izuku. The boy simply smiled. Don't worry about it. You were trying to win, so I don't blame you. You could have gone a lot darker too. The three made it back to the dojo and saw the class all sitting in a circle with some people laughing. Mido, Uraraka yelled, pointing to the boy. Truth or dare? Izuku paused for a second. Truth. The group talked for a second. Do you know who Dirty Dancer is in Bakugos chats? Shinsu doubled over laughing while Izuku blushed and Todoroki looked confused. Yeah, that would be me, he explained, making some of the others start laughing. Shut up, Izuku shouted, kicking Shinsu in the side. It was now time for the party to start. It had been going for almost an hour now and the class had left to change into clothes they preferred before they all met back up. They all walked in and saw people talking or dancing. Where do you think Mido is? One of them shouted over the music. He should be over with his group. Kyoka was already at the DJ's booth playing the music and saw the class walking in. She ran down the stairs with a huge smile. I'm glad you guys made it. Sensei and his group are just preparing a little before they all face off. Come with me and you'll get a good view. The class followed her up to the booth area where they all stood on a track. They could see a large area mapped out with the floor part of it having lights that changed colors. Hold on, I gotta make the announcement, but get ready to have your mind blown. She went back to her booth before grabbing the mic. Hey everybody. Everyone on the ground began cheering. We have a showdown tonight. So everyone off the court unless you're on chains or dagger. People cleared the way and the two teams appeared. Though the class noticed Izuku wasn't their Captain Zombie. Captain Crossfire, please meet in the middle and talk. Everyone cheered again as the two were handed mics. It's good to see you, Zombie, ready to lose? The Crossfire guy asked. Nope, but it'll be sweet to watch you cry when we win. The crowd cheered again when the other team seemed to notice something. You know, Z, it looks like you're down a member. I don't see Dragon anywhere. Did he chicken out? The crowd seemed shocked before all the lights focused onto a large platform behind Team Chains. Far from it Cross, everyone started cheering when they saw him posing there with his arm casually hanging by his side. Just needed a better view when we make you eat dusk. The crowd went wild and so did some of the class as Izuku handed the mic to someone they couldn't exactly see. Now everyone. The fight hasn't started yet. A sound similar to a siren began going off. It is now though. She dragged it for a minute as the other team got ready. Team Dagger, you're up first. Once they finished, they all high-fived while the crowd cheered and Team Chains rolled their eyes and crossed their arms. That was pretty good, Dagger. Who thinks our home team will have trouble beating that? The crowd booed while a good amount cheered too. Well, you all know the ground rules. They can add to the music they're given and Dagger kept it with some great choreo. Let's see if Chains got what it takes. The song started but it sounded different. They noticed that Izuku was dancing the same as the rest of his team just higher up. The song cut off again at another drop. When Izuku hopped off the platform and got into the other team's face before Chains switched the style a little bit, it was over and people started screaming. I've never seen shit like that before. The crowd cheered again. I think we all know the winner with that performance. And when they pulled out the fans, holy crap, people cheered louder. Chains wins the competition. Next we have our champion Cage. But before that, would our lovely dragon like to perform again to show the people what they're up against? Someone handed Izuku a mic again. Of course, Kyo, let's wreak some havoc. As soon as the song started, he began dancing. As he did it, he got closer to some of the people and even threw his jacket to Kyoka, who caught it with a cheer. Whoa, did I see an almost return of Dirty Dancer? Someone handed Izuku a mic again. Maybe you'll get to see more once the night gets into swing. So let's get this competition started. What you guys think? Izuku asked once he got upstairs next to his class. That was amazing, Midoriya. Hagakure cheered while jumping. I think you broke Todoroki and Shinsu though, Shoji pointed out as both boys seemed frozen. You did quite well, a true sparkle. Izuku thanked them as they all went back to watching the competition. At the moment, one guy kept winning, and each time he did, he would blow a kiss to Izuku, who would smirk before pretending to catch it and drop it before stomping on it. It didn't seem to bother the guy though. At a lot of competition nights, Izuku had people flirt with him until they realized A, he was quirkless, or B, he was better than them. After the guy won again and he would be facing Izuku. Next they handed both boys a mic while Izuku calmly walked down the stairs but took his sweet time. Seems we finally get to face each other, baby. Izuku smiled under his mask before speaking into the mic. Call me baby again and you won't be having any in the future. The crowd oohed at that as Izuku finally made it to the guy. Don't worry, once you see me dance that'll change. Once the guy finished his first dance, Izuku did have to admit that he was good. Didn't mean he would lose though. What you think, babe? Izuku glared and smiled again. I can do better. The crowd went wild again. Kyo, DSN please. She nodded her head as the song started and he handed the mic to someone. The guy smiled again as he began his own dance again. The crowd seemed to sort of like the guy, but by the cheers you could tell they preferred Izuku. Oh, stepping it up I see. Scared? Izuku asked as he sauntered to the middle. The guy smiled and was about to grab Izuku's wrist before Izuku stopped him. You keep me on my toes. Izuku glared and pushed the guy a little before he started dancing again. Not bad, dragon. Izuku grabbed the mic again, but I've seen better. The crowd booed again, making Izuku smirk while showing his teeth and pulling his mask down. Really? Maybe they can show you how to actually dance. The crowd cheered again. Okay. Who wins? The crowd cheered dragon, making the guy pout a little. I lost this time, dragon, but how about your number? He asked into the mic, making the building go quiet. Izuku shook his head. Kyo, run it. Kyoka smirked as she hit play. Throughout the dance, Izuku either pushed the guy back or flipped him off. When it was over, Izuku grabbed the mic again and spoke into it. Get the hint. Once the competition was over, it went back to people dancing and talking. Most of the class mingled and danced with people while Ida, Uraraka, Tsu, Todoroki, and Shinsu relaxed in one of the corners with Izuku. That ending was cool, Mido. You put that guy in his place. Uraraka cheered. It was quite impressive, though he was overstepping his bounds quite a bit. Tsu nodded along to what Ida said. Does that happen a lot? Todoroki asked. Yep, but they usually stop after they either find out I'm quirkless or I'm better than them. He's the only one that didn't quit after losing. Some of the others looked shocked as he explained. But let's not worry about that. Do you guys want to stay at my place this weekend? Yeah, of course, Midoriya. Sure. Shinsu and Todoroki just nodded their heads. After the party, the group of 6 went to Izuku's house and watched a few movies before all passing out with Uraraka and Tsu on one of the couches, Hida in one of the chairs, and the other 3 all on one couch. When the other 3 woke up, Uraraka got tons of pictures of them all cuddling on the couch while Ida tried to stop her.